Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Naruto Conquered the Allied Nation, Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
One rather irate mother searching for her only son was housed in the vast, undulating, forested hills that encircled the Uzumaki clan village. She looked about 30 years old, with lovely, fair skin, long red hair that fell past her waist, and lovely violet eyes. She wore a long green dress over a white blouse with a high collar and no sleeves. Not exactly ninja-appropriate clothing. Actually, more like that of a housewife. As she scowled around looking for her cherished child, she thought to herself, that boy. How many times do I have to tell him to stop leaving the village? I don't know where he gets it from. Not leaving alone was the least he could do. It was risky for a young boy to be out there by himself, even though the area around the village where they lived and the whole nation of Uzu no Kuni were significantly safer than the adjacent mainland of the elemental nations that they were to the east of. He was only 10, ninja or not, however, that was merely a proxy. He was only a ninja because the society in which they lived considered him old enough to be considered such. Drafted into the Uzumaki clan, of which they were members, as shinobi. He had not left the island on any missions. He had never intentionally killed someone or engaged in a real battle with a shinobi. Thankfully, none of the children his age had to before. They had this advantage because they were allies of the dreaded Senju clan and because their country was a small island. Because attacking them would mean facing the wrath of the world's most powerful ninja clan. They were kept relatively peaceful and were too far out of the way for the more aggressive clans to engage in combat with. Despite taking a lot of missions, the Uzumaki clan was unquestionably the clan that fought the fewest direct battles against other clans. Compared to other clans, their life expectancy was significantly higher. Many reached the ripe old age of 50 instead of the typical average expected age of 30. A few even went beyond that. But back with the mother of the Uzumaki clan, looking for her kid. Luckily for her, he wasn't difficult to find. The nicks, cuts, and holes in the trees were likely caused by Naruto practicing with his shuriken and kunai while he was out and about. The mother simply sighed and held her temple as a vein started to pulse on her head, finally stopping because she was sick of walking all over to find her son. Naruto, you little so-and-so, get your ass over here right now. If I actually have to keep looking for you, I'm not cooking the you-know-what that you like tonight. She let out a short growl before raising her voice loudly. She merely stood there with her arms crossed beneath her bosom, tapping her sandaled foot impatiently on the ground as she mentally counted down from 120 seconds to be fair, while her voice echoed through the woods and into the open air for what felt like miles. Eventually, however, the valuable last seconds passed. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 12, 11. A distant rustle of leaves and the incessant chanting of no 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 caused her to stop counting. She placed her hands on her hips well in advance of a small, yellow-topped blur that rushed into view from the trees and slid to a dusty stop, bumping his face directly into her stomach before bouncing off and landing on his backside. She was facing in the right direction with her best reprimanding face. 10-year-old Naruto, a short boy, ran into his mother and winced as he looked up at her. He wore a pair of orange shorts and a black t-shirt with the Uzumaki clan's red swirl mark insignia in the middle. He had bright blue eyes and spiky blonde hair. He sat motionless, staring up at his mother with wide-eyed fear, as though he were sitting in front of a predator that would only attack him if she sensed his movement. Although she didn't notice it at first, Naruto's mother had been among the best kunoichi their clan had ever had during her time on missions. This woman, known as the Red Hot-Blooded Habanero of the Uzumaki clan, has a fiery temper and frightening skills. On a few discreet missions he ran with her around the island. He had occasionally witnessed this woman's performance up close. However, Naruto just gave her mother a call. As he clambered around in front of her, Naruto yelled, "Okay mom, I'm here. You were just kidding about that whole dinner thing, right? Right? We're still having the miso ramen with the pork in it, right?" he inquired. Kushina turned her gaze away from Naruto and said, indecisionally, "I don't know." She seemed to ignore all of his hopping around, saying, "I mean you keep disobeying me whenever I say," before flooring him with a hard fist. "To stay in the goddamn village and stop running off all by yourself, TT Ebane." With tears in his eyes from the blow, Naruto smiled and said, "Hey. You did it again, Mom, with the databane." Though her cheeks did flush a little when her son called her out on her verbal tick, Kushina said, "And never mind that. Honestly Naruto, listen to your mother, or if you're really going to run off when I told you not, at least pick a better day for it. Ideally, one that wouldn't lead to him potentially being punished by her denying him his favorite meal, which he knew she would prepare that evening. She repeated, "Where do you even go all of the time?" There was no super secret training location for Naruto. He never really did his thing in just one location, he did it everywhere. "I'm just taking a walk sometimes. A walk where you use your weapons on the trees for target practice and come back all beaten up and smelly more often than not," the child said, raising a delicate, crimson eyebrow in skepticism. Still sitting on the forest floor with a large bump on his head from his mother's love tap, Naruto ventured, "I take really enthusiastic walks," before recognizing that Kushina was not letting up on her firm stance. "I have a good reason, it's just, well, I don't know," he said. Kushina's face softened as she listened to Naruto's strain to find a reason for his impulsive, ever-increasing runs away from the village. "He looks so much like you, Minato," she said, knowing that he would never publicly reveal the reason, even to her. "I hope you get to see him." This time, Kushina's hand rubbed Naruto's hair while resting on his head. "Come on Naruto, let's go home." Late afternoon, Clan Village, Uzumaki. Because of the sheer number of residents, the village that served as the Uzumaki clan's primary operational base was rather large. Since only members of the Uzumaki clan were shinobi, there were more civilians than ninjas. However, the safety provided by the clan, which served as the settlement's focal point, made it a rather expansive society. The village's focal point was a massive river that divided the community in half and flowed directly through the middle. The majority of the people and businesses were located in the civilian half, while the other half was designated for the Uzumaki clan. The Uzumaki clan side resembled a traditional castle that was under guard. To the opposite side were a number of bridges, each of which was constantly defended by a minimum of 2 ninjas. Only clan members were permitted to enter this area of the village. However, after being cleared, civilians might be invited. The castle itself was somewhat of a small town, and a massive wall enclosed the riverbank to prevent people from swimming across. The leader of the clan and the entire village lived and worked in a tall, traditional mansion on a hill in the middle of the village that had a commanding view of the entire area. As clan members, Naruto and Kushina resided here, but even as they passed the guards on the bridge that allowed them entry, Naruto sensed that his mother and he were being watched with icy eyes. He already knew why the adults had made him accustomed to it. Other children constantly made fun of him for it. To stop them from staring at her child as though he were a plague on their people, Kushina simply returned the icy gaze. As they walked home on the paved clan streets, Kushina put her hand on Naruto's head and smiled broadly to distract him from it. "So, did you just play in the woods all day or did you actually do anything useful today?" Kushina asked. Pouting up at her, Naruto said, "I didn't just play. He wasn't just a playman. I was totally doing something useful. Since you won't teach me any cool fuinjutsu, I've got to do my own stuff," he said, claiming to be a ninja. "Baby, fuinjutsu is dangerous." Kushina replied, "I taught you basic generic sealing, but if you can't even get the first 3 ninjutsu I taught you down, I can't responsibly teach you anything else. Now can you do the Bunshin no Jutsu?" "No," Naruto reluctantly admitted, "but I can do the other 2, my henge is awesome, and I can definitely kawarimi. I can stick to stuff with my feet and water walk and all of that stuff." "That's good. Now get the Bunshin down and we'll talk." Rei, Naruto was aware of his mother's impressive skill set. Rumor had it that she had been exceptionally skilled, hailed as one of the strongest Uzumaki kunoichi, not only of her generation but of all time, possessing a unique chakra for their clan. Even when she had been training him, he had never witnessed her use it or any of her advanced skills. However, he never performed well enough during their sparring sessions to warrant her using much more than what she had previously taught him. From her point of view, it was simply the mother lion playing with her young. But he detested the Bunshin. Why would he ever need a jutsu that wasn't even a true replica? What if they all appeared lifeless and colorless? Anybody who was truly good would not be duped by a Bunshin. When they reached their charming little one-story house, Kushina told Naruto, "Don't be in such a rush to grow up. Not too long ago, a kid like you would be on the battlefield right now." Naruto grinned as he pictured using jutsu he didn't even know was possible to defeat hordes of enemies. "That sounds so cool." Kushina flicked him on the ear to get his attention and said, "We're lucky. Uzu no Kuni is out of the way. There isn't any other clan in this country for us to fight tooth and nail with. Not like on the mainland. All they really had were bandits from the other populated areas in Uzu no Kuni, and few of them even knew how to use chakra." His red-haired mother didn't agree with him, saying, "No, not cool." "You've been?" Kushina shook her head, realizing that she was mentally approaching Naruto, and said, "Of course. It's terrible. Those battles are absolutely horrible. Adults butchering children even younger than you, kids that were put on the battlefield to fight for their clan's name. I'm just saying, don't think that this is some kind of race. You've got plenty of time to get involved in those things, because once you actually do start you're probably going to wish you could have gone a bit longer without going to the mainland. Her eyes took on a 1,000-yard stare. On my missions? On your missions. Now go play and I'll start dinner. After giving Naruto a forehead kiss, Kushina entered the house to begin preparing meals while he complained about the rather ostentatious show of affection. It was all right inside the house. Not in the open, where people were observing. After all, he wanted to look good. In any case, Naruto continued to hop down the street until he came to an open field where a group of red-haired children were playing a rather frantic game of King of the Hill. He sat down in the grass just out of range and watched, thinking, man, why is it always like this? There was no point in trying to run on over there and get himself involved because they would only try to stop him from playing. It's not my fault. Stupid old man, how could he leave mom like this? Naruto scowled as he tugged at a few strands of his own blonde hair. He was 10 years old and had never laid eyes on his father. However, Kushina remained completely enamored with the man. Naruto had no idea what he looked like, and he hoped the bastard would never show up. He was the reason Kushina was no longer a ninja who carried out missions, either as a result of his father or his presence. His mother used to constantly remind him of his father's strength as a shinobi, about his potential status as one of the world's most powerful individuals. She gave him the impression that he was superhuman or something, but Naruto began talking to other clan members and heard a lot of different things. It was against clan custom for a female ninja to marry an outside shinobi. Given that Kushina had no living relatives, there was no one to approve of their union, and Naruto's father was an outsider ninja who had no known affiliations to any clan. Naruto inherited her complete black sheep material because she was somewhat on the outs. Minato Namikaze. The village knew him by that name because he was thought to be a very dangerous man. Naruto's father was this. That was your ass if you saw the flash. Although Naruto didn't understand what that meant, he had heard enough adult male clan members say it to make it stick in his mind. It rhymed, too, and by nature, rhymed things are easier to remember. But when his father hadn't revealed his face once in Naruto's life, his reputation as a formidable shinobi did a great deal of good. Nevertheless, Kushina vowed to follow him and kept telling Naruto that his father was a good man and that he loved him. Naruto was starting to question that, but he never allowed her to see him down in the mouth about anything, including that, for as long as possible in order to keep Kushina in the best possible mood. You left the village again, didn't you? A girl's voice asked as she released her grip after Naruto pushed her hands away. I could sense you leave, you know. His thoughts came to an abrupt halt when he felt a pair of knuckles grind into the side of his head for a noogie. Before turning to confront his attacker, Naruto yelled, well, goody for you. Why do you gotta be so mean all the time, Karen? The Kagura's eye of the stupid mind. For miles around her, she could sense anything, and the feeling would only grow stronger with time. At the same time, he was pleading with his mother for something more than Bunshin. Like most of the other members of the Uzumaki clan, Karen had red hair. Her hair was long and straight on the left side and spiky and a little untidy on the right. She wore a tan short-sleeved jacket, short black shorts, black stockings that reached her black sandals, and a black shirt underneath that showed off her stomach. She had brown-framed glasses and red eyes. The young girl countered, I'm not being mean. I'm toughening you up for ninja life. Naruto simply rolled his eyes. As though she were so superior to him. However, she had the advantage over him because she was able to begin learning the components of her family's branch of ninjutsu. I felt you run off, and then I felt Auntie Kushina go off to get you. So how much trouble are you in? I'm not in trouble, TT Ibeo. Right now. He was saying that he wasn't having any problems today. In any case, not really. By now, Naruto had turned back to ignore her, something she wasn't particularly comfortable with. You're always in trouble, Naruto. If it's not with Auntie Kushina, it's with my mom. If it's not with her, it's with someone else. What's out there that you're always running off for anyway, huh? She asked. It's a secret. Naruto grinned broadly. If nobody around here wants to play with me or train with me or whatever, I can do that too. Who needs him? She approached him abruptly with large doe eyes and tried to make her glasses look cuter so that he would say, you can tell your cousin, right? She wasn't attractive enough or kind enough to him frequently for that to work. But Karen, you're all my cousins and stuff. Okay. Your favorite cousin then? How was he going to explain that she wasn't his favorite cousin without making her angry? Hell, She only really did it when it worked for her, like at that moment, and the majority of them didn't even claim him. Fortunately, the Vey children he had been watching playing moments before rescued him from such a fate. As the other children appeared to have finished their game, one boy exclaimed, "Hey Karen! Nagato-sama is on his way up to the mansion. Let's go see him before he makes it in." He and the other children with him gave Naruto a quick glance before completely ignoring him. Something he was already accustomed to, again. They essentially used this to inform them that he was not invited. The idea of the village chief and being near his ridiculously potent chakra made Karen's eyes light up. She hurried to join them without thinking twice, but before she could go far, she turned back to Naruto and asked, "Are you going to leave the village again tomorrow like you do every day?" Naruto gave her a deadpan look and then said, "Maybe," with a small smirk. The following day, the countryside of Uzu no Kuni. It was more difficult than usual to leave the house today without being discovered by Kushina, but he was, in his humble opinion, occasionally too cunning for his mother and managed to return outside the village and far beyond after 4 hours of moving swiftly through the trees. He must have been doing this for about 2 years by this point, and he must have seen everything there was to see in the Uzu no Kuni wilderness. He didn't visit other towns along the coast or anything, but he had seen his fair share of the interior of the island nation where his village was located. Nothing, however, was more intriguing than what he had discovered approximately a year prior, the location he was visiting today. Naruto smiled when he discovered a deep gully concealed by a thicket of trees. He then tied the large length of rope he had managed to smuggle out of the house around a very sturdy tree and fastened the other end snugly around himself so that he could safely descend the hundreds of feet into the darkness. As Naruto took a light from the bag on his back, he reflected, "Good thing I brought lanterns and stuff." It enabled him to scan the dank area and determine when he was approaching the bottom. Unable to get out of his improvised harness fast enough for him, he hurried before sprinting to the origin of a low rumbling sound in the abyss. "Hello? You there?" Naruto asked, launching himself up onto a rock and sitting down. His light bounced forward, revealing a massive red-orange wall that appeared to be moving as if it were alive. "Oh come on. I can see you. How could I miss you? You're the size of a mountain." Before a loud voice filled the large hole in the ground, there was a sigh that sounded like a great wind tearing through the crevice. "Go away, boy. You're useless to me. Far too weak to be any kind of a threat, far too small to eat and be worth anything more than a bug caught in my throat." After scowling and leaping from his chair, Naruto circled the long end of the large, furry orange wall until it split into a long paw and a massive, black-lined head with pointed ears that led to a closed eye. The eye was exposed to the light until it burst open, red and enraged. After the initial shock subsided, Naruto simply smiled and approached, saying, "Hi Kurama. Sorry I haven't been here in a while. I was busy training before my mom could come looking for me." Naruto had unintentionally taken a step back at the intimidating sight. "I don't care. You could have been gone for 50 years for all I care, and the amount of attention I would have paid to your absence would have been the exact same as right now. Go away. Why are you such a jerk, Fox? I know you're not that mean." As if it were a normal human, the titanic creature Naruto was speaking to gave a dark laugh and said, "You keep thinking that. I can guarantee you're the only human being in the world that would think that. Such a foolish runt." For Naruto, at least, the novelty of speaking with the largest effin' fox anyone else would ever see was more important than Kurama's persistent taunts and generally negative outlook on life. The wretched bastard side of his personality was more than offset by his coolness factor. Naruto took a large bowl of ramen out of his bag and removed the top before saying, "I brought some leftovers from last night for lunch. You want some? It's good. Miso ramen with servings of pork." At that moment, Kurama's gaze shifted to Naruto, who remained motionless for a few seconds. "That smell was simply too strong, if you insist." The fox raised its head sufficiently off the ground as Naruto ascended on one of its large paws to allow Naruto to pour it into his mouth. To Kurama, it was the equivalent of hydrating a human tongue with an eyedropper, but to Naruto, it was a rather large portion. However, the taste was more important than the portion. He nearly wished he were smaller so he could take in the experience more fully. Naruto retucked the bowl into his bag and took out his own bowl for himself, remarking, "I never saw a fox that liked ramen before." Kurama, using his paws as a pillow, joked darkly, "You need some variety away from eating people every now and then. Eventually the taste just blends together. I like the vitamin D deficient bodies better. Less crunch, easier to chew." Unaware of the seriousness of his statement, Naruto simply smiled awkwardly and broke his chopsticks to start eating his own lunch, saying, "Tea, that's great." Except for Naruto, No one was aware of Kurama's presence on Uzu no Kuni. And that was only because Naruto happened to stumble upon him one day after inadvertently falling into the ravine. Naruto was saved by landing on a bed of 9 enormous tails after he fell to his death after being chased into a hidden pitfall by a giant bear. After recovering from his initial shock, Naruto naively inquired as to Kurama's whereabouts. Rather than causing a fatal cave-in that would destroy his temporary den, Kurama told Naruto that he liked it there and that he should not tell anyone about him until he left or he would destroy his village. Kurama almost felt compelled to show Naruto how trapped he was. A year ago, that was. Since then, he had returned to discover Kurama still there, simply dozing off until he stopped by to visit and spend time with him. Was it unfortunate that Naruto discovered a monster fox who was more open to spending time with him than other children his own age who were human? Most likely. So Kurama, I was wondering, do you have a dad? Despite the sarcasm, there was no justification for treating the child so cruelly. Yes, because there's more than one gigantic fox running around the world. He wasn't scared of him because of who he was. It was just a question. It was odd. Father wouldn't be the correct term. I had a creator. It's odd enough to be fascinating. If that were the case, Naruto could relate to the question, so he wasn't around for you. He only saw Minato as the man who had hit his mother and abandoned her with the consequences. The phrase, the whole big talking fox thing was a bit weird for him, huh? Is used, though not in a very crude way. It was amusing to think of his early days as a young Biju. No, the sage was around quite often. Kurama recalled, swishing his tails around in a bored manner. He had to be to keep the rest of us in line, I imagine. Fun times. So there are more big, giant foxes out there? Naruto asked, gazing in wonder at his inhuman acquaintance. What the devil was Kokuo supposed to be? Kurama said, no dumbass. He counted off his siblings with his tails. There's a giant tanuki, a giant cat, a giant turtle thing, a giant monkey, a giant horse, a giant dolphin thing, a giant slug, a giant beetle, and a giant octopus thing. Was something he was completely unaware of. Your family is weird, Kurama. One of the few people he had ever respected in his long life said, I know. Especially since our creator is human. The most sickeningly powerful human that ever walked the face of the planet. Why am I carrying on a conversation with a brat of a human? Perhaps because he was unable to detect any negative feelings at all from the boy toward him. When they first met, it was how Naruto was able to literally drop in on him. Of course, he was still dark. No amount of loud talking or smiling could conceal the deep abyss of loneliness in the heart of Naruto from Kurama's senses. Still leaning on Kurama's paw, Naruto yawned and said, I need to start returning home soon or mom is going to kill me this time. This is a long way out from the village. As Naruto did the same, Kurama simply closed his eyes and snorted hot air through his nose, saying, whatever. If I shift around in my sleep and crush you under my chin, it's your fault. You'd feel bad and cry. I'd lick you off of my paw and go back to sleep. Hey, gross. Clan grounds, Uzumaki clan village. As she removed the dried laundry from their backyard and folded it immediately, Kushina muttered to herself, I might kill him this time. I seriously might. He couldn't wait a week before running off again. I've seen puppies that are easier to train. Naruto troubles again, Kushina. Without even looking back at the composed voice that had said something about her son, Kushina yelled, what's it to you, pal? If he didn't break anything, fight your kid, or do anything that's actually bad, I don't want to hear you complain about him to me. Go do it to someone else like everybody else. Do you really think the village leader would complain about your kid behind your back? Especially when he's an old friend of yours? A familiar face was sitting on the low-lying roof when Kushina stopped folding clothes and turned around, grinning. Wearing traditional plated clan armor over black formal attire with long sleeves that covered his hands, he was a man with nearly pale skin and red hair that reached his chin and covered his eyes. He simply sat there grinning, waiting for her to react in some way. Why, Nagato-sama? You don't have anything better to do than come pick on little old me? She asked, approaching him with her hands on her hips. Getting a big hug from the energetic mother, Nagato said, good to see you, Kushi, it's been a while. I wanted to stop in before the Senju clan meeting in about a week. No idea when else I'd have the free time. He landed with a slight stumble after falling from his seat on the roof, laughing sheepishly at his lack of style. Being clan leader is a tireless job after all. Glibly stated Kushina, I don't really get much to do with clan affairs anymore, as you know, so it's nice to know sometimes that I've got a friend up there somewhere. But I guess it does get lonely up at the top for God, after all. I actually like the fact that someone around doesn't always consider the Rinnegan first when they think of me, Nagato said, exposing a pair of odd purple eyes with ring ripple patterns behind his red bangs. Don't you start calling me that now too. Before Nagato had somehow roused the Rinnegan, he and Kushina had been friends, because when I think about Nagato, I can't help but think back to the crybaby you used to be. Sticking those fancy eyes in your head all of a sudden can't make me forget that. He didn't have many of them back then because of his personality, but after it was revealed in his early adolescence that he had the Rinnegan, his popularity changed. To his credit, he grew into it to the point where, even though he was under 30 at the time, he was chosen as the new clan head, primarily because of the deterrent effect the threat posed to potential enemies of the Uzumaki clan. Nevertheless, despite the fact that everyone was vying for the affection of the man who had inherited the Rikudo Sennin's renowned eyes, Kushina was different and continued to treat him like an ordinary Nagato, which he truly valued because it kept him honest. It wasn't as though Kushina cared about infuriating more people because she had already lost favor by the time he took over as clan head a few years prior for pairing Naruto with a nomadic, clanless ninja. As a result, she expressed her feelings about the clan activities she was aware of, and Nagato enjoyed using her as a kind of sounding board to get an entirely objective viewpoint that wouldn't be biased against him. In addition, he had known her all his life and had witnessed her transformation into a stunning woman. She was an excellent active ninja. She most likely still was. He was also good friends with her. So? Nagato asked, surveying the area as the attractive redhead woman returned to her laundry chores. Where's your firstborn? When the subject of Naruto's reappearance was raised, Kushina laughed ominously and said, take a guess. Despite his strength, Nagato felt compelled to back off for safety in case Kushina's temper got out of control. Ran off again? He asked. As irritated by it as she sounded, she sighed and her eyes took on a sorrowful expression. Of course. It's his thing apparently. Not that I can really blame him for not wanting to be around here with the way things are for him. It's the only thing I regret about being with Minato. What it's done to Naruto just for being born. Even if it was the only regret she had, it was a pretty big one. Because of his birth, Naruto was not considered a member of the Uzumaki clan by the majority of them. Naruto was viewed as a bastard despite the fact that Kushina and Minato were married at the time of conception and birth. Not helping either was the fact that he didn't resemble any of them. It simply raised the stakes even higher. You could remarry back into the clan. That would solve most of the hate. Nagato offered Kushina the alternative. If you married someone with enough pull, they could even shield Naruto from the way others treat him. Although he didn't say it out loud, it sounded like he was speaking about himself when he said, it'd be better than it is now. I'm not divorcing Minato. He could be dead. You haven't seen him in how many years? With a ghostly smile on her beautiful face and a headshake, Kushina said, you know better. Shame on you. Sorry. It's just that you know what it's like on the mainland, if it wasn't for. He started to say something, but Kushina interrupted and clarified everything. I know. If it weren't for the Senju, the fact that we're our own island nation, and the fact that you having the Rinnegan scares the hell out of most of the superstitious clans out there, we'd be up to our necks in enemies. The Uzumaki clan was the world's best at fuinjutsu, which was a very dangerous art to specialize in. With the arrays, the hand seals, and the effects, it seemed as though they could communicate in their own language. The kids were pretty good at it, too. For a variety of reasons, that made many people fearful. The most notable of these was the fact that fuinjutsu was the only effective defense against the 9 natural forces in their world, collectively known as the Biju, none of which had been observed attacking in a long time, years and years. The Uzumaki clan had a monopoly on the best fuinjutsu on the market, and they were always thinking of more, and everyone was interested in watching that. We welcomed every advantage that was available. The world was a crazy place. The discussion ended abruptly because Nagato believed that, despite being the village leader, he had gone too far. Even though no one had seen Namikaze Minato in Uzu no Kuni in a decade, Kushina was a married woman who was extremely faithful. He wasn't exactly accepted by their clan anyhow. Everyone knew he was a vagrant ninja. No worldly pull, no clan. His strength was the only thing that stood out about him. Very powerful. Hell, the fact that Naruto was tangible evidence of his ancestry was the only reason the majority of the villagers did not consider him a myth. Namikaze Minato was a ninja so powerful that his physical attributes were able to overcome the Uzumaki clan's dominating physical attributes in his progeny. He didn't have to mention it to his wife to make her angry. In the early years of their relationship, enough fools had done that, and even after she had, Naruto and Minato had been essentially barred from going back. People's perceptions of how intimidating a badass someone could be when they were a new mother and hadn't worked for years to raise her son and ensure he was taken care of were rather short. Nagato also adored her. However, he was unable to have her. Her son, who was married, served as a continual reminder of the man who removed Kushina from the market before he had gained enough self-assurance as a ninja and a man to approach her as more than a friend. The cloud of Namikaze Minato hung over the village even when he was far away. Gazing off into the sunset, Kushina remarked, "I just know that if Naruto could meet Minato, it would change his life, the way it changed mine. Ours. One day he will." Hearing how she talked about Minato broke Nagato's heart every time the subject was brought up between him and Kushina. He hoped she would talk about him in that manner. In a perfect world, she would have fallen in love with him. Instead, Naruto would be his son. There would be so many changes. With Naruto, Hidden Ravine, Uzu no Kuni countryside. There were two reasons why Naruto was unable to sense the passing of time in the shadowy gorge. One was that the trees and cave walls obscured the top of the ravine, making it impossible for him to see where the sun was. He was sound asleep in the paw of a sleeping natural disaster, which was the second reason. He would be aware that the sun was setting if he was awake, and he would be terrified because Kushina would be furious and would be spitting fire at him by the time he got home. Thankfully, he was able to sleep without worrying about such things, and it didn't appear that he would be waking up anytime soon. Kurama didn't either. Until, just as a swirling vortex appeared in the air at the back end of the ravine, one enormous red eye snapped open upon sensing a disturbance in the air. It revealed a man wearing a long, hooded cloak and a black and orange mask over his face. The Kyuubi no Yoko. The strongest of the 9 Biju. In contrast to Naruto, Kurama felt nothing but evil intent and malice from this man, and he abruptly got to his feet, ready to murder the intruder. Who was this? One moment he felt nothing at all, and the next he was on top of him. When he stood up, Naruto slipped off Kurama's paw and collapsed in a heap on the ground. What? Why'd that happen? Kurama, why'd you? He realized something was amiss when he saw Kurama standing defensively, openly glaring and growling at something at the other end of the cave. Who is that? He asked. With a booming voice that reverberated off of every wall with menace, Kurama said, "You've come to the wrong place, human. I'll give you one chance to leave the way you came." The masked man, who seemed amused by Kurama's aggression, questioned, "Or else what?" "Or else I'll show you a little something I like to call, fuck everything in that general direction. You're aware that a Bijudama down here would cause an earthquake that would devastate this island, aren't you?" "Oh, I'm sorry. You're under the impression that I give a damn." Kurama then struck out with a number of his positively enormous tails, crushing into the walls and crushing out protruding rock formations as the odd man appeared to be quick enough to avoid them all. "What? Avoiding all of my tails would require more than just speed." He seemed to know where they would be coming from. Kaiten. Gukakyu no Jutsu Fire Release. Great Fireball Jutsu. The masked man blurred through hand seals and used his own offensive jutsu to battle the monster in front of him. Somehow, he created a massive fireball from behind his mask that was half the size of Kurama's head, but the deadly target of his choice simply swiped it out of existence with a paw. With the same swipe that destroyed the fireball, Kurama used his paw to smash into the masked man, dragging the clawed appendage through the ground so forcefully and quickly that it caused a miniature earthquake that brought down large portions of the ravine around him. "Die for me now," Kurama demanded. But Kurama sensed something was amiss, as a malevolent presence materialized above him. "He is holding back," said the enigmatic assailant, who descended from the same type of portal from which he had first emerged. "This is ideal." Kurama sent forth the last two of his tails in an attempt at another swift-tailed attack, but the strange man managed to slide his body through them as he fell, landing on one and sprinting up its length. As he approached Kurama's body, he looked directly into the mosque's eyeholes and said, "How about a blast from the past, Kyuubi?" Kurama was unable to see it from a distance, but when his assailant got close enough to meet his gaze and he saw the 3-tomo pattern imprint of red eyes form in his mind, he tried his hardest to break free of control, flailing wildly into the walls, crashing violently, and bringing down pieces of rock that could crush a man. "No," he said. "Sharingan, that eye." Naruto had long since grown sufficiently conscious of the situation to realize that he was in grave danger. As Naruto dodged rocks, he couldn't help but worry about Kurama. "Kurama!" he roared, trying to stop the genjutsu from taking hold. Naruto turned to see the evildoer harming the fox. "What are you doing?" he asked. "You're worried about a monster that wouldn't hesitate to snuff you out in an instant. But let me tell you a secret, kid," the masked man said, referring to Naruto, as he saw the young member of the Uzumaki clan race straight for him, dodging rocks for dear life as he tried to get close enough to fight. Naruto's attempt to fight him was courageous, but was he listening? He had just defeated a huge fox that could destroy entire landscapes. Did he really believe he would be harmed by anything he did? "Leave him alone or I'll—" Naruto yelled as he ran up the side of a nearby rock spire and then leapt straight off of it at his new foe. He revealed a Fuma Shuriken and held it by the center ring around his wrist. When his opponent didn't move, his threat died in his throat, and the swing of his weapon went straight through him like a specter. The masked man's next blow, which went straight into his stomach and lifted him off the ground with only his fist, was never felt by him. With his shuriken clanging to the ground, Naruto sputtered and choked. The masked man took Naruto by the collar of his shirt and held him up while whispering in his ear, "The secret is, it's not the monsters the size of a mountain that you should be scared of. It's the monsters that look like me or you that are the scariest of all." Kurama was already rendered docile by whatever genjutsu had been used on him, and the enigmatic assailant then did the same to Naruto, saying, "You know, you look like someone I've met before." The child resembled Namikaze Minato exactly. It would be hilarious if he used that man's son to initiate his plans and get everything going. Later, he planned to abduct an Uzumaki clan child, but this prevented him from running the risk of Kurama attacking the village in order to acquire a suitable vessel. The battle was easier than the masked man had expected because Kurama held back just because Naruto was in the ravine. In addition, Naruto had a large and strong chakra for a young boy. Even by the standards of Uzumaki, he was flawless. Indeed, Naruto was going to assist him in rescuing that rotting hellhole of a world that the ninja as a whole had created. "Let me tell you something else while you're being such a good boy. Something I want you to remember as everything falls apart around you," the masked individual said as he strolled down the side of his high position. "All warfare since the beginning of the shinobi sect is based on deception. For years, every fool clan bastardizing the will of the Rikudo Sennin with their own machinations has made the world a battlefield. Brothers, sons, sisters, daughters, wives, mothers, fathers, husbands, everyone spills their blood for their selfish causes, and they have for centuries." The masked ninja descended from his rocky perch, approached Kurama, and dropped Naruto in a heap at the feet of the yoked Biju before revealing his navel by rolling up his shirt. He had called forth a ceremonial altar with Naruto at its core using a few hand seals. As the catatonic boy passed through a lengthy, meticulous chain of hand seals, the masked man continued, "The bigger the lie, the more likely people will believe it. People will call for vengeance, and the lie spreads like a wildfire. The fire builds, devouring everything in its path. Our enemies all believe that they alone dictate the course of history. The deceit of conflict cuts both ways." The entire ravine was engulfed in a blinding light as the man placed his hand on Kurama's stomach and completed his jutsu, causing a glow to spread over both his and Naruto's bodies as he completed his chain of seals. And all it takes is the will of a single man. "Naruto, you're in so much trouble. What a way to begin the day." With a start, Naruto jumped out of bed and landed on the floor after bouncing off the ceiling. To his bewilderment, Kushina was standing above him in a white yukata, asking, "Mom?" With a sniffle, Kushina said flatly, "Yeah, your mother. The woman who brought you into this world and raised you lovingly, gave you of herself with all of her heart, and yet day after day you continue to disobey even the simplest request when all she wants is for her son to be safe and a splendid shinobi." Kushina proceeded to put on a waterworks display. After getting beaten up by a man wearing a mask, Naruto jumped back up and gave her a tight hug, saying, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to be gone so long you were worried. I wanted to come back sooner yesterday but I fell asleep and I lost track of time and—" Hold on, was that a dream or did that shit really happen? Furthermore, how did he get home at all? Although he had no recollection of walking, he still felt as though he had just returned from a trek to Kurama's makeshift den. Now that he was conscious enough to feel it, his stomach ached like crazy too. However, it wasn't a physical or sick, pukey kind of hurt. If there was a way for someone to understand what that felt like, it was like something being steadily seared into his being. Evidently, Kushina thought she understood the main points of what had transpired last night after Naruto interrupted his explanation of his own sequence of events. As she ran a hand through his hair, she repeated something she had heard many times before. "I only tell you to do things that I do because I love you, Naruto." In a near repeat of his conversation with her the previous day, Naruto muttered into her yukata, "I know. I'll try. I don't want to do it to make you mad. It's just, I don't know." As she walked down the hall, she shouted back at him, "Make sure you wash your face before breakfast. You're filthy. The dirt on your face looks like whiskers." Kushina simply grinned down at him and drew away to leave his room, saying, "You don't have to say if you don't want, but remember that you can tell me anything. No matter what happens. No matter how old you get or how strong you become, you'll still be my baby. And I'll be able to kick your ass no matter what, so be good." She disappeared in the doorway after Naruto smiled at her. He cringed and held his stomach until he was positive she was gone. Then he sat on his bed and gazed out at the early morning sun. Kushina had no idea what time he had returned last night, and he loved to make sure he was up no later than 6:30 every morning. Was it a dream? He was assaulted. It should have meant death to lose a fight like that. Despite his entire body burning like fire on the inside, he was still alive and unharmed. He assumed he was at least all right. What happened to the man if it was real? What had happened to him that he could leave without recalling it? Where is Kurama now? Before deciding, Naruto glanced at his bag on the ground and then at his own doorway. "I apologize, Kushina." This time, he would return home quickly, saying, "I have to go back." Karen rubbed her eyes under her glasses as she walked the streets of Uzumaki clan, trying to wake up properly for the day. She then sighed when she saw the first rays of light peeking over the horizon, asking herself, why can't the day start at noon or something? The sun doesn't even want to be up right now. As she was walking, she noticed a small, orange and black figure dart across the fence to his house and quickly make his way to whatever destination he had planned for this early in the morning. Karen said rather disgustingly, "Naruto." Even she occasionally shunned him to blend in with the other kids, but there was a reason she never made an effort to follow him even though she could sense him. She simply couldn't keep up with his speed. Her only dislike of training was when she had to use the mind's eye of the Kagura. That jutsu was her favorite. In connection with that, she might as well practice by focusing on Naruto's chakra signature. It couldn't have been that difficult because she was accustomed to the sensation. Furthermore, it wasn't. But because she was unprepared for the sheer volume of chakra inside his body, she wasn't expecting to experience the equivalent of feedback overload in her brain. That's such a strong chakra. That certainly wasn't there yesterday. Additionally, Kami was unstable. Very frightful. Something wasn't right, and she had to tell someone. Inside his body, there was something far more potent than Naruto. Something was sealed inside of it. Something powerful. Something negative. Later that day. Hidden ravine in Uzu no Kuni countryside. Naruto's body operated automatically, utilizing every valuable brain cell to try and retrieve a reasonable memory of what had transpired the previous evening. He knew the route back to Kurama's den by heart. He and Kurama were spending time together. He fell asleep. He fell off Kurama's paw after waking up. Kurama was attacked by an odd man wearing a strange full mask, and rather than being smashed or devoured, he did something to damage his head. Naruto was flattened when he attempted to fight him. He looked at the man and then he disappeared. Nothing was explained by that. When he returned to the ravine, Naruto knelt at the edge and peered down into the darkness as though there was no light there. Naruto shouted, "Kurama," down the crack, allowing his voice to reverberate until it was no more heard. "Kurama," he repeated, hoping for some sort of response. He repeatedly attempted, but received no response, until he was dragged up by the back of his shirt and spun around in midair to see the well-known face of Kushina, who appeared unsurprised but still agitated. As an icebreaker, Kushina stated, "Yeah, I followed you today. I didn't think you could hustle like that though. You made pretty good time for coming this far into the backcountry." Thanks?" Kushina smiled. "You're welcome." Naruto fell into what he thought was an awkward silence as he stayed off the ground in his mother's grasp, at least until she started slinging him by his shirt in a circle and felt her smile grow strained. "What the hell is a Kurama? Why the hell is it down a ravine? And is this where you've been going every day?" he asked. Wow, Mom, stop." Kushina's anger had officially reached a boiling point due to him and his frequent skulking out of the village, and emotion-sick Naruto was unsure of which question to answer first. "And another thing. Why is your face still dirty? I saw you go into the bathroom before you tried to sneak out." "I washed up and changed clothes after I took a leak. I'm not dirty." "Then what's with the smudges on your cheeks, you sneaky smartass?" "What smudges?" After halting Naruto's swing, Kushina placed him down to examine his face closely, holding his cheeks to examine the tanned skin and the 3 horizontal lines on each cheek. Ignoring Naruto's complaints that it was disgusting, Kushina's maternal instinct took over and she licked at her own thumb before attempting to obstinately rub the marks off. She tried without success. They persisted as though they were a natural part of his skin. "Naruto, where did you get those marks?" Kushina said softly, perplexed by Naruto's expression after repeatedly trying and failing, then simply staring at his face. Even after washing up that morning, Naruto had not noticed any marks. What marks? Naruto asked. Mom, you're freaking me out. What marks? He hadn't bothered to give himself more than a cursory look in the mirror because he had been in such a hurry. Naruto, what have you been doing in this place? What did you do last night? She asked, frightened, shaking her head and glancing over his shoulder at the gulf behind him. Such markings were not simply applied to people. The Uzumaki had no clan markings, but there were. Such markings had additional meanings. Bad things. Naruto had to say something to her. Something constructive. Something to calm her down because she was terrified of the worst when she saw the marks that had appeared on his skin overnight. I don't know. Furthermore, he wasn't merely trying to conceal his true feelings from his mother when he said this time. To be honest, Naruto had no idea what had happened the previous evening. Kushina was crying in front of his eyes, but whatever had happened after the man in the mask knocked him out left those marks on his cheeks and that sensation throughout his body. Oh no, that man in the mask. How did he harm him? How did he affect Kurama? The clan leader mansion in Uzumaki clan village. Nagato never finished the work of a leader. He had to handle a variety of requests as soon as he entered the office that morning. When the town's civilian merchants wanted to go out and get goods from the mainland, they wanted to ask the clan for protection. There were even quite a few mainland client requests that were still pending resolution and pricing. When it came to Ninja Paradise, Uzu no Kuni was the closest thing one could find in the modern world. For their clan, the status quo was favorable. They didn't have to be the way things were for them, but they weren't the most powerful or feared. When the door was knocked on, Nagato looked up and said, "Come in." His secretary, bodyguard, a red-haired woman, opened the door and peered in after being asked, saying, "You've got someone here to see you, Nagato-sama. One of the clan children, her name is Karen." As the anxious young girl was led inside, the Rinnegan possessor smiled amiably and said, "Send her on in." He joked, "What can I do for you today, Karen-chan? I doubt your parents want you trying your hand at a mission yet." She was undoubtedly old enough to go on missions, but it was debatable if she had the necessary skills. Karen, who had never spoken to Nagato before, began to feel the trepidation that comes with facing the most formidable Uzumaki clan ninja in the world. Well, Nagato-sama, it's about another kid, Naruto. At the subject, Nagato scowled. He might not have liked Naruto because of his ancestry, but it was annoying when people tried to find a reason to be critical of him. The children developing that habit as well was the last thing anyone needed. If you're having a problem with Naruto, I'm sure it's something that two clan ninja like yourselves can work out. This would make it very difficult for Naruto to collaborate with them when the time came. No, it's not that. There's something wrong with Naruto's chakra. Karen replied, waving her hands over her jacket. It feels weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's like there's something else sealed inside of him. Whatever it is, it doesn't feel human. Then things became very serious. How not human did it feel? Was not the kind of thing to be made fun of. Karen, approaching the village leader's desk, acknowledged, "It's the scariest chakra I've ever sensed in my life. I thought I messed up and turned off my jutsu for a second before I tried it again and it was the exact same. Thank you for telling me this. It's a very important thing that you did." Nagato stood up and walked around the desk before placing his hands on Karen's shoulders and smiling reassuringly. Karen blushed at the attention and nodded as he ushered her out, saying, "Go on home for now." Nagato sat back down at his desk, pushed his hair around his face, and put his hands on his temple after he saw her go and closed the door. This wasn't good. This was not at all good. There was a possibility that the ultimate taboo of the shinobi world had been inexplicably broken if Karen was correct and Naruto had two chakra sources, one of which wasn't human. It had been a Jinchuriki. In her mind, Kushina was in a panic. In order to find the anomaly she had anticipated seeing on Naruto's body, she had him stripped to his boxers in the forest and had him produce chakra. To her surprise, she discovered it precisely around his navel. A seal that seemed to be throbbing, glowing from black to red every few seconds. It was really careless. Given the way it was set up, it was obviously meant to be used temporarily. A Shishofuan, or seal of 4 symbols. She could tell by the pulsing color that whatever the seal was containing would not last long. What a careless job. Naruto's current seal was much too powerful for a 4-symbol seal. Naruto was fortunate to have his mother there to save him. Kushina worked diligently on the spot, strengthening and improving the seal, at least doubling its strength by simply doubling up on it. It was a straightforward solution, but it was the key to why Kushina's sealing technique worked so well in contrast to others. Instead of attempting to become unduly complex, she was able to innovate using straightforward techniques. Following some field work that required her to put in extra effort to complete the task, Kushina was able to immediately invent a new seal. The power of a mother's love was undeniable. Kushina, momentarily pleased with her work, wiped some perspiration from her brow, and stood back to look at her work. Your mom is the most awesome seal artist in Uzu no Kuni. Hake no Fuin Shiki Aid Trigram sealing style. This is a really special seal, Naruto. The seal had stopped throbbing in color and had turned into a solid, serene black. It now took the shape of a swirl mark directly on his belly, with 2 array arches above and below that each had 4 branches. As he rose from the ceremonial throne that Kushina had somehow conjured up so that she could correctly use the jutsu she needed to change his seal, Naruto asked, "You know how it works?" while glancing down at the new artwork on his stomach. Before pointing to the top array arch and then the bottom, Kushina said, "Of course I do. I created it after all. It's a combination of a Shisho Fuin, meant to seal any target into something else." He had witnessed it firsthand, so perhaps he could start attempting to learn it himself. "I know what the Shisho Fuin does, Mom. If he was good enough, perhaps he could duplicate it." "Ow!" he exclaimed as his hand was swatted for prodding the seal. "Now this one is different. Stronger. There's still something sealed away in you, but do you see this?" Kushina commanded Naruto to stop playing around, saying, "Shush, listen." "What is it?" the little yellow-haired boy asked, nodding as he observed her pointing out the tiny gap between 2 arcing arrays surrounding the swirl mark over his navel. "That allows whatever's chakra is inside of you to mix more evenly with yours. That way it won't hurt you as much and isn't as unstable," Kushina stated, attempting to keep things straightforward. "You were getting an overloaded rush of chakra from it before, but now it's more balanced." The amount of raw chakra he was receiving would have been too much for his body to handle. She estimated that everything would have caught fire in less than a week. Nothing in the vicinity would have probably survived when Naruto's body failed. The seal would break, and the beast would be released. That was not going to happen now, at least. Kushina truly excelled at her craft. Naruto would have believed it more than ever before that Kushina was possibly the most remarkable kunoichi in the history of the Uzumaki clan. As she went on to explain things to him, she had a serious expression on her face, her attention fixed on something greater than herself. The elder Uzumaki believed it must have been intentional. Whatever happened, someone did a horrible job of sealing whatever's in you. A 4-symbol seal to contain as much power as Naruto. Really? No way. Listen, Naruto. Don't tell anyone how my seal works. I told you because you deserve to know. You need to know. What just happened to you is bad. What happened to me? I believe you are a Jinchuriki. Naruto's blank expression was followed by the words, "Power of human sacrifice. You contain a Biju." Kushina's bewildered head tilt finally caused an irritated eye twitch. "You have a big-ass chakra monster in your stomach, and if it comes out, you'll explode and everyone around you will die." Naruto recognized that. The easiest times for him to understand were when Kushina was direct with him. "What?" "Yeah, that's why we don't let kids mess with Fuinjutsu," Kushina said as she stood up. "Oh sure, back in the day you could go around all willy-nilly, sealing stuff into other stuff, because nobody knew how that crap worked. People still don't know how it really works. All people know is that it's an unwritten rule that everyone's followed since the Uchiha and Senju laid it down almost 100 years ago. No sealing chakra monsters into people. It's weird that that's the only thing we can't do when other people." "Mom, you're talking a lot about nothing again." "Oh. Sorry baby." Nevertheless, given the current political situation, it was astounding that those 2 clans were able to agree to stop killing one another long enough to establish their rule over all other clans by stating that it was impossible to create a Jinchuriki. A goddamn Biju should never be sealed inside a human. It was forbidden. Except for those who were extremely power-hungry, everyone accepted this. However, the majority of clans were complete shit at sealing techniques. That was also the reason the Senju clan decided to tie up with the Uzumaki clan at the time. After Senju Hashirama married Uzumaki Mito, the clans united. In reality, it seemed as though the Uzumaki clan was intended to serve as the Fuinjutsu police and handle any suspicious seals that the Senju encountered elsewhere. In return, the Uzumaki clan had not engaged in a tooth-and-nail conflict in which they had been at the center for nearly a century, and other clans refrained from attacking them outside of missions for fear of upsetting the Senju. However, if Kushina was correct, which she was, since it was Fuinjutsu, for heaven's sake, Naruto was a Jinchuriki. It was nearly the worst-case situation. A lot of negative things were going to happen if this got out. However, it was nearly impossible to conceal. With a single routine security sweep of the village, The damn mind's eye of the Kagura users would know something was amiss with her son. Naruto immediately told her everything. He occasionally traveled that far outside of the village to do something, and he told her about it. As he continued to talk about him, he saw her face go white as he explained what Kurama was. When he told her about the masked man he had encountered, he witnessed his mother flashing her enraged teeth. Ultimately, Kushina's only option was to seize Naruto and draw him close to her in the most intense embrace Naruto believed she had ever given him. Other than returning it, he had no idea what to do, but before he knew what had happened, she had picked him up and fled back to the village through the trees. This is bad, Kushina thought to herself as she hurried through the forest, her red hair trailing through the air behind her. There's nothing I can do for him here. This is terrible. With Naruto still alive, this cannot possibly be the end. Jinchuriki are forbidden. The landscape would start to shift when it became apparent that the Uzumaki clan could control something so potentially potent. There would be too many clans that were fearful, hostile, and quick to act. The establishment of a Jinchuriki was the blade being held to the throat of the status quo, which was king. All of this happened so quickly that Kushina had been running for nearly 20 minutes before Naruto's mind finally registered his mother's words, "Hey, put me down. I can run by myself." Kushina warned that course of action, saying sharply, "A lot of things are about to happen, but no matter what I want you to promise me you'll do what I say to the letter. You're slower than me and we don't have any time to waste." Naruto was afraid of Kushina's personality, and the expression in her eye indicated that the seriousness of the situation was overshadowing his mother's typically lively and playful demeanor. All right. I promise. I'll do whatever you say." Sometimes people can pinpoint the exact moment in their lives when everything changed. The point at which you were on a path from which you could not return. Since it appeared that nothing would ever be the same again, Naruto felt as though he had been asleep during his village of Uzumaki clan. Naruto had to question whether Kushina had been planning for a backup plan in case something similar occurred. As soon as they were back inside the village limits, she led them to a merchant who was preparing to leave on a business trip to the mainland by the river that led out into the ocean. The man had a scar across the bridge of his nose and had brown hair that he wore in a spiky ponytail. Before he realized they were approaching, the man was simply relaxing in a chair on the docks. She simply handed the man a scroll, gave him some brief instructions, thanked him for agreeing to her request, and took him on without telling Naruto what was happening. "You know what I said about the Bunshin, and how I wasn't going to teach you anything until you showed me you could do it?" Kushina asked, grabbing his attention as they began to make their way back into the Uzumaki clan side of the village. "Naruto? Yeah, I was doing that for a reason, but that reason doesn't matter anymore," Kushina said to him as they walked at a rapid pace. "Bunshin is a low chakra jutsu and it's hard for our clan to master because most of us have strong chakra. I'm gonna show you a replacement for that, and I know you can do it, but I wanted your chakra control to be better. I just don't have the luxury of waiting anymore. This jutsu might save your life and I want to give you something just in case." What if? Was that really how bad things were going to get? Kushina spent the remainder of the journey explaining to Naruto what to do in the event that this or that happened. She was more agitated than he had ever seen her. By the time they arrived home, they were both terrified. To Naruto's delight, Kushina wasted no time in teaching him a ninjutsu, and he had only one hand seal to learn. They proceeded directly to the backyard. Even though he would have been more thrilled, the time had to be spent only on ensuring that he had learned it to her satisfaction. When Naruto finally started to perspire on his hands and knees, Kushina was standing close by, watching him closely. Ha, I think I've got it," he said. Naruto's self-control surprised Kushina in a good way. She simply taught him the technique and allowed him to practice, without explaining to him how hard the jutsu she taught him was supposed to be. She assumed he would stop after he threw a fit an hour in, but Naruto must have realized something was amiss with his chakra control because he immediately resumed the tree climbing exercise to rediscover his sweet spot. He then resumed his jutsu practice, but this time he was much more successful as he was improving his skills. Before noon, they had begun their training, and they continued until almost late in the afternoon. The reason for this was most likely that he felt much better when he was using his body and mind to do something different from worrying about what would happen now that he was a Jinchuriki. As she watched Naruto try to rest on the grass, Kushina thought, "That was the highest level jutsu I could teach you in the short amount of time we have left. It was tailor-made for you, especially now that you're a Jinchuriki," she said with a warm smile. "Good job. I knew you could get it. Rest out here for a bit and I'll start dinner." Still in the grass, trying to recover enough to get up on his own and return inside, Naruto was too exhausted to offer her anything more than a thumbs up. He could understand why his mother had never been so strict with him when teaching him jutsu. He picked it up in a single day, but wow. She knew he could handle the weariness, but he didn't. It was likely that he would not experience fatigue for a very long time. But perhaps he should just spend a minute or two napping outside, only for a short time. It was not shocking to Kushina to see someone waiting for him when he entered their home. That's what she had anticipated. They couldn't go for very long without Naruto's condition drawing attention in some way. As Kushina went to the kitchen to start cooking for herself and her son, she remarked, "I didn't expect that you'd send yourself for this. Were you thinking that you being a friend would soften the blow or something? He's tough. Naruto, I mean. He gets it from you." Kushina followed her and watched her start her cooking, saying, "I watched for a while. Did you really teach him?" As she passed Nagato, who had been leaning against a nearby wall the entire time. "Yes." Kushina interrupted, setting a few veggies on a chopping board and starting to chop them. Every time the knife struck the board, the sound broke the stillness and made Nagato wince. Kushina couldn't see him, but he said, "I did." Although he didn't want to come across as harsh, Nagato stated, "If we don't, it's going to get around outside of the country what's in him and then all hell will break loose. You know what we have to do. If he's got a biju in him, we've got to see what's sealing it and find a way to get it out." In a mysterious reply, Kushina said, "That's why I taught him the jutsu that I did today." Nagato assumed that Kushina had taught Naruto a chakra intrinsic jutsu that would have been lethal for anyone else to practice to the extent that they did in a single day to tucker him out, because she seemed to understand the urgency of the situation, and in case he objected. In reality, Kushina was saying that she was already aware that chaos would ensue as soon as it became apparent that a biju was missing and that a jinchuriki had been made. For this reason, she taught Naruto a jutsu that would soon be able to protect him. However, at this moment, how long will it take to extract it from him? She inquired. "I don't know. I've never seen a seal as strong as his before. It looks like a 4-symbol seal, but it isn't. We have 10 days until we're to host the Senju clan leader, or everything's going to go to pot," Nagato said, shaking his head. Using the counter to that seal to extract the biju from Naruto wouldn't work because it wasn't a 4-symbol seal, no matter how much it looked like one. Even if they could, they wouldn't be able to justify Naruto's status as a jinchuriki, and there would be too many questions they couldn't answer to the more powerful clan. Nothing would. "This is bullshit, Nagato. Taking the biju out is going to kill him," Kushina said, driving the knife deep enough into the cutting board to pin it to the counter. Although there was little information available about jinchuriki, this much was known. Even an Uzumaki would probably die if something that was so deeply ingrained in their vital system were to be separated. Even if it doesn't kill him, it'll ruin him. She was furious at the idea of some sick bastard injecting Naruto with a biju for whatever reason he felt like it. She wanted to vent her frustration on someone or something. "I know that," Nagato responded. "You think I don't? That thing is bonded to his chakra network already. The mind's eye of the Kagura can barely tell Naruto's chakra apart from the bijus from what we've gotten so far. The last time this was recorded as happening anywhere in the world, the last clan leader had to." He took a breather. Naruto's mother, Kushina, was a skilled practitioner of Fuinjutsu. He didn't need to explain this to her, she already understood what it meant. Thus, the responsibility of leadership was placed. Nagato's feelings for Kushina and the ways in which his choices would hurt her had to take a backseat to the clan itself. He didn't want to kill a child, but if he didn't, Naruto would be the one to destroy the clan's largely stable base. It would be similar to the bad old days before Uzumaki Mito became a Senju clan member. Once more, they would find themselves isolated on an island surrounded by adversaries. With a sniffle and a bitter laugh, Kushina said, "I can't protect my own son." She turned around with a murderous expression in her eyes and said, "I could fight you, but I wouldn't win, and you wouldn't even kill me for trying. I couldn't protect him from being lonely, from being treated like a black sheep, from some freak in a mask, and I can't protect him now. I can't kill you, but you can kill my 10-year-old son." He had no response to that. There was no denying that he would. Members of their clan were not particularly prone to lying. However, what they saw as personally deserving of their attention was honesty and unwavering dedication to it. When one of them had a belief, they tended to stick with it through thick and thin, for better or worse. "I'll try to come up with a counter. I'll try to find some way to do it that won't kill Naruto or keep him from being a ninja again, but if I can't find one in 5 days, I'll have to begin the extraction process." Nagato made every effort to reassure her. He needed to get the biju out of Naruto and out of the area in the 5 days before the Senju clan arrived. The ceremony would take that long. Given that the seal was new and that Naruto could release whatever was inside of him dead center in the village if he died so soon after it was placed, the ceremony was required. For that reason, it was not possible to kill Naruto quickly, and it was also not possible to send him away because he would be bound back to them. From that day on, clan relations would be a complete nightmare for them and the issue would not be resolved. "Get out of my house, Nagato," Kushina said, taking her knife from the counter and cutting board and continuing to chop the ingredients for her upcoming dinner. She didn't say anything more, keeping her back to him and not turning to face him or diverting her focus from her task. Although he hadn't anticipated it, Nagato didn't want his talk with her to end this way. Despite being the leader of the clan, the strongest ninja in the village, and the owner of the Rinnegan, he was still unable to perform certain tasks. After a while, he excused himself and went off to try to figure out what he could about Naruto's seal, which had never been seen before. To avoid letting them all experience whatever it was, he wanted to do it correctly. Before leaving, Nagato said, "That's all I can give you. I have to think about the well-being of the clan also. 5 days. Kushina's hold on the knife was so firm where she had been standing that she could have used the handle alone to slit the palm of her hand. She looked directly down at the counter, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Thus, Nagato was to start the tortuous process of securely getting rid of Naruto's Biju in 5 days. He would never even attempt to break the seal. Kushina was still working on it. However, she was aware of what she would be doing most of the time during that period. For Naruto's benefit, she could at least improve the mechanics of her own creation. For Naruto's sake, she could still figure out how to work the seal even though she didn't know how to do it yet. After all, it was her design. After 4 days, before, Naruto felt strange being in his own village. Now, he felt as though he had the plague or something. No longer was his routine exactly routine. He was no longer able to observe other children playing or training from a distance. They would eventually notice him and immediately start to move away from him if he even attempted to do that. "My parents say he's seriously dangerous. There's supposed to be something really wrong with him. You can tell now. Just look at those marks on his face." As they scuttled away from him, he could hear them whispering to one another. The entire Uzumaki clan side of the village was affected. He was also unable to return to the forest. Going back the second day didn't help him much, aside from the fact that his mother probably saved him from blowing up in a burst of city-smashing chakra while he was sleeping. Doing that was what got him screwed over in the first place. As he ran his hand over his stomach, Naruto wondered how Kurama could be inside. That man did that to him, but why? To both of them. He couldn't understand it. To enclose Kurama within himself and then simply run away. What was the whole point? Apart from ruining his life, what else did it achieve? He sensed that other clan members were watching him as he passed their houses on his way through the streets, going about their daily lives, until he looked up at them in return. This was the second reason he couldn't go out and do what he usually did. He knew when someone was observing him. Well, he was being watched by all. Apart from that, he couldn't just do what she had told him not to do after everything he'd been putting Kushina through over the past few days, with his running away being the trigger that caused all of this to happen to him. Why did this happen? Naruto asked, clenching his eyes shut as he practiced taijutsu and punched at a tree in his yard. Was I the only one? If it hadn't been me, would it have happened to someone else? The memories of Kushina embracing him for entire minutes a night, as though she would lose him if she let go, come to mind. He was solely to blame for this. If I hadn't gone out there. One of his punches was executed incorrectly, causing his fist to veer off course enough to scrape the skin clean off his hand and land on the white meat. Naruto shook the hand wildly and hissed to himself in agony before rushing inside to apply some water to soothe it. When he took his hand out of the flow 5 minutes later to examine his stinging knuckles, he discovered that the bleeding had already stopped and that some areas had even begun to scab over. Even as he took out a wrapper, he gazed in wonder at his healing wound. So strange. Even after he had finished and covered the unsightly wound with the medical tape, he continued to stare at his right hand until his mother's voice interrupted his thoughts about his peculiar recovery. "Naruto," she said to him as she waited in his room, grinning and holding his backpack, "I need you to run an errand for me." Naruto frowned and said, "People are watching me, Mom." His face was now marked with whiskers. "No one's going to do anything unless you try to leave the village. They're trying to keep an eye on you because we've never had a Jinchuriki here before," Kushina said, rolling her eyes and placing the bag on his back before pulling on his cheek. "Oh." After stroking Naruto's cheek for what seemed like an eternity, Kushina turned him around with a handful of cash and a list, saying, "All right, go over and put in a new order at the blacksmith and pick up my last request from him. Don't give me that frown, baby." Kushina gave Naruto a big smile and kissed him on the forehead. Everything's gonna be okay, I promise. As she gently urged him out the front door, it seemed unremarkable enough. Some of that is for me, right? She asked. Kushina told him, smiling and showing off her delicate bicep. Mama trains too, you know. She maintained a strong front until Naruto had hurried off and disappeared down the street. All of the pickup is for you, Mr. Cuts trees a lot. The next order is for me. Okay, you've got 20 minutes to get him before the sensor shift change. Any later and you'll have every ninja in this village on your heels, she said, leaning against the doorframe and smoothing her crimson hair back with her hand. When a shadowy figure entered the main room from the kitchen, a somewhat casual male voice said, "The ship leaves in 10 anyway, so I need to grab him and be on it before then. I won't have you to dampen my chakra signature after I leave, so I guess I'll have to be quick. Just take care of him, okay? I won't let your son die, Kushina-sama. I wouldn't be able to face Minato-sama if I did. Show him that when you give him my letter. Otherwise he'll just try to escape the moment he sees a chance." Kushina picked out a few of her own hairs to give to her guest, who took them but was perplexed. Wait. A tall, lanky man appeared as he walked into a better light for the shaded living room. The young ninja-like figure had white hair that defied gravity, a face mask covering his face from nose to where it was fastened to his black long-sleeved top with gray stripes running up the length of the arms and pants, and a headband with a plain metal plate over it that was slanted enough to cover his left eye. Leather straps crossed over his chest, supporting a unique tanto on his back, while metal bracers sat around his forearms attached to his fingerless gloves. "Ah, come on, do I look that suspicious?" the man asked, crinkling his only visible eye as if he were grinning. After what had happened to Naruto, Kushina was not very fond of people wearing masks these days, even those she had known for years. "Yes." She deadpanned, "Maybe if you took that mask off you'd be more trustworthy." "That hurts coming from you. I can see it all over your face." "Still with the bad jokes, I see." Kushina sighed as he entered the house and closed the door, saying, "I guess there's just one thing left. Just make it look legit." "The Rakery lightning cutter isn't really a gentle technique," Kakashi said, making a few hand seals before stopping as a concentrated blue surge of electricity formed in his hand and illuminated the room. "It's going to hurt." Turning away from him, Kushina said, "I really don't care. Your little bug zapper jutsu better put me out on the first try." After being electrocuted for almost 15 seconds, Kushina fell to the ground, unconscious. "Take my son somewhere safe," she said, twitching on the floor before she completely left. "You really are a tough lady, Kushina-sama, and I swear on my life, I won't let your son die. He's a comrade after all. Or he will be anyway, once he meets his father," Kakashi said, looking down at her with his hand still outstretched from using the rakery. In order to reach Naruto and depart with him as soon as possible, he left the house completely hidden. This was Kushina's will. Days earlier, when she had seen the writing on the wall, she had sent out the desperate request. Furthermore, Kakashi would complete it quickly if it would save the life of Namikaze Minato's only son. Whether Jinchuriki or not was irrelevant. With Naruto, the Uzumaki clan village's civilian side, Naruto cried out, "Thanks a lot," as he packed his backpack full of ninja tools and some extras as he left the blacksmith shop and smithy. Everything seems better when you've got some shiny black kunai in your pocket. Nothing compares to the sensation of a loaded down pouch on his butt and knowing that you were well armed. Naruto was running down the street as usual to get to his destination, but when he realized he would only be running back to the village's clan side, his mood soured. The location where he always felt like hundreds of eyes were watching him. In a place where nobody would even say, "Good morning," or smile at him. Why would you want to run back to that? There was no hurry, all of that shit would still be there when he returned. And because he had Kurama sealed inside of him, everything was getting worse. When he was in the part of the village that wasn't inhabited by ninja, he at least received some smiles and nods. Since they weren't Uzumaki, even those who were aware of his ancestry didn't give a damn. They were undoubtedly unaware of the entire Jinchuriki phenomenon at this time, and even if they were, ninjas would hardly understand the anomaly, so how much would they actually understand? Even worse, though, was the negative reaction from ninjas who hardly understood. The unknown was frightening, and it would be even more so for people who had no means of self-defense. But that was the last thing on his mind. Naruto didn't think about it. Simply put, it was pleasant to unwind and take a seat somewhere where he wouldn't have to worry about how others perceived him or his mother for having him as a child. But for the sake of his mother, Naruto told himself, "I have to keep going. I'll make this better." One day, regardless of who my father is or what is ingrained in me. I will prove to everyone that I am a fantastic ninja. He would also need to find a way to deal with Kurama. Although he didn't know enough about his situation, that big old grumpy fox hadn't done anything to deserve to be trapped inside of him. If anyone would help him here at all, he didn't know anyone who would truly know how to help him, especially not in the village. The adults would have taken care of him by now if they had any idea what to do. That was his feeling. According to that line of reasoning, Kushina was the only person in his clan with any real power. If anyone could figure out what to do, it would be his mother because the seal belonged to her. Feeling as though he still had some money from the blacksmith, Naruto put his hands in his pockets and said, "I guess I'll go get something to eat and go back. Gotta keep working on that jutsu mom taught me." Even though none of the Uzumaki clan members watching Naruto were censors, it wasn't difficult to follow him. Even going to the civilian side of the village didn't do much to distract them because of his bright yellow hair, which made him stand out like a sore thumb. They were able to keep a considerable distance from him. They were able to conceal themselves while maintaining a clear view of him thanks to their location on the rooftops of the busy little town. Although the 10-year-old was technically a ninja, he wasn't accustomed to observing his surroundings enough to recognize when he was being watched by individuals who had years and years of experience doing so. Nevertheless, the thought of a Bijuu's power in such a small body was a little unsettling. Everyone was going to suffer if he lost it, and Kushina's son was never the most composed. Every clansman was familiar with his voice because of its typical boisterous volume, and everyone had witnessed him have a tantrum. Not that it gave any assurance that he wasn't a bomb with an unspecified fuse. Hell, there should have been no reason to seal something so potent. It was one of the most taboo for a reason, and that was most likely because it was impossible to do safely and the chances of it failing were too great and numerous to try. Hey, don't you guys have something better to do than watch a kid? It wasn't until it spoke that they even noticed the new presence among them. They all fell asleep instantly after turning around to face the man who had ambushed them and getting a quick look at his red eye and rapidly spinning features. The genjutsu had taken hold of them so fast that they could not even get a good look at his face. Kakashi nodded to himself after examining his creation. Either way, that should buy me a good window until they wake up, but if I don't have Naruto on that ship in a few minutes, this isn't going to end well. Killing them was the worst thing he could do at the moment, so it was a last resort in this instance. He could likely defeat his share of the ninjas who would pursue him if everything was blown, but the sheer volume of them and the fact that no ship would be abandoning Uzu no Kuni until he was taken would wear him down. Additionally, he didn't really want to consider such a morbid outcome if he succeeded in getting Nagato himself to go out and stop him. In order to avoid such a fate, he set out to meet the new Jinchuriki while keeping that nasty little thought in mind. Finding Naruto wasn't that difficult. Kakashi had to acknowledge that those who were posted to watch Naruto must have been congratulating themselves for obtaining such a simple detail, if nothing else. A person with such noticeable features of another kind would stand out among their kind, whereas a member of the Uzumaki clan would stand out anywhere else in the world. When he finally caught up to Naruto, he noticed him standing outside a confectionery, seemingly pondering what to buy. Kakashi found the thoughtful expression on his face somewhat amusing, assuming it was the same expression someone would have when making a serious decision. Rather, Naruto was merely attempting to decide whether to purchase a large bag of sweetened almonds or a small cake. Naruto thought grumpily, "I wish there was a place around here that sold ramen," and then shook his head, saying, "No, it wouldn't be as good as Mom's." When Kakashi decided to buy both of the items he saw Naruto had an eye for, he simply rolled his eyes and moved to the line that Naruto was reserving. Seeing that Naruto was paying attention, he handed him the almond bag and said, "There." Since he had witnessed the stranger purchase the food right away, Naruto accepted the bag from him. However, he raised an eyebrow at the strange man wearing the face mask and covered his eyes. "Who are you?" Naruto asked, and he followed him as he began to leave. "Why'd you do that for me?" He probably wouldn't have done that if he wasn't from the area. As the boy walked along, Kakashi grinned down at him from behind his mask and said, "Oh, I'm just a traveler. And you looked like you needed help making the decision." "Huh? You couldn't choose one over the other. In cases like that, when your choices are so hard you can't make it, it's best when you can have both, isn't it?" When Naruto noticed that Kakashi had also given him the other small cake, he looked down into his other hand and smiled. "You're pretty weird, you know that?" Naruto asked, although his face conveyed no malice or accusation. "Why's your eye covered like that?" "Well, I'm kind of hurt that you called me weird. If I tell you what's behind my headband, you'll probably just think I'm even weirder, so I probably shouldn't say," Kakashi remarked, as though debating whether or not to tell him. No, I didn't mean weird as in weird bad. I meant it as in, weird cool, he replied. From Naruto's perspective, Kakashi was cool. That mask was enigmatic and fierce, and he carried himself coolly, which was fantastic. In terms of comparative understanding, Kakashi remarked, like, crazy awesome, instead of just, crazy. Yeah, that? Kakashi simply laughed and then stopped. Okay, you really want to see? He asked, receiving a panicked nod from Naruto. You'll have to keep it secret for me. Can I trust you with that? He asked again, and now Naruto was jumping enthusiastically on the balls of his sandaled feet. All right, Kakashi said, reaching for the headband. Did he have to feel guilty about how well that worked? Docks of Uzumaki Clan Village, civilian side 5 minutes later. Amino Iruka had little interest in living as a ninja. He had belonged to a small clan of his own, which had gradually been reduced to his mother and father, the latter of whom had married into the family. Even when they were larger in terms of population, his family never really stepped on the toes of the infinitely larger clans because they were complete small fry when it came to the pecking order and worked as ninjas for subsistence pay. His clan was so small that nobody even realized his family name, Amino, was a clan name when he dropped it around Uzu and Nokuni areas. This was because they only worked in the high Nokuni area, serving a single village that employed them. After his parents passed away and Iruka attempted to live alone for a short time, he discovered that it wasn't a particularly glamorous or honorable way of life. He was still young and intelligent enough to start his own business, and he had some savings. By simply traveling at sea and trading, he was able to earn significantly more money with about the same amount of risk. In this manner, he was at least in charge of himself. Being a traveling merchant definitely extended his life expectancy past 30, which was the age at which most ninja and even civilians trapped in areas of ongoing conflict were supposed to perish. He didn't need to be considering that because he was only 21. He was not even allowed to use his last name without fear of running into an old clan enemy. That was the state of affairs. Although he continued to practice ninja arts, it never really stood out because, prior to entering the maritime trade, he had never been much of a talent to be on the lookout for. Aside from one ability that greatly aided him at sea, his clan never really stood out from the others. He never really needed to hire clan ninja to guard his cargo, for starters. Usually, he could do that on his own. However, that wasn't either place. What mattered at the moment was that a few days prior, Kushina had sent him a letter requesting that he sail to the mainland and bring someone back to rescue Naruto before things went wrong. Someone he would immediately recognize based on her description. He did, and he brought him back. Kushina had excellent instincts, let it be known. Iruka, who was sitting off to the side at the time, arched an eyebrow when he saw Kakashi walking back onto his ship with a young boy in tow. The boy was clearly hanged enough that an untrained eye wouldn't mistake him for Naruto. According to the young captain, now how in Kami's name did you get him to do that willingly? He was well versed in Naruto. I figured he would have raised so much of a fuss himself that you would have either been late or had the whole clan breathing down your neck by now. He would have fought it with all of his might and teeth if he had known what was going on. They'd work on that, though, it wasn't willingly. Kakashi shrugged, adding, apparently Sharingan isn't something that's well known since the Uchiha are so far away. Both the ability to recognize illusions and the general knowledge of the world. As he watched the lucid boy being led up the gangplank onto his ship, the former ninja Iruka asked rhetorically and laughed, sucker for a genjutsu? I heard his mother used to be terrible at them too. She still says she's bad at using them. Kakashi patted an almost unresponsive Naruto on the head and remarked, I almost felt bad until I remembered that it was for his own good. Kushina-sama said that he's going to be beyond pissed when he snaps out of it, but for now he thinks that I'm walking with him to the clan limits. After pulling the gangplank up and reeling up the anchor, Iruka shrugged and said, setting sail then. I can't come back here again to trade after this, but if Kushina's son is safe I guess I can live with having one less friendly port to stop in. I owe Namikaze-san anyway. Iruka quickly climbed the mast of his little ship and let the sails fly free to get them going, using the agility of a skilled ninja. You won't be able to come back here for a long time. I'm not very good with children, but I'll do my best. I promised your mother that I would. Kakashi nodded and sat Naruto somewhere safe on deck, putting his hands on his shoulders and letting out a sigh as he felt the ship start to pull away from port. Kakashi-san. The man in question said, yeah? Something that Iruka could see from above made him sound very alarmed, and then he realized what it was. As he put his headband back on, he remarked, man, these people are a bunch of diehards. The men he had previously rendered unconscious had woken up in time to chase the ship down the docks. But that wasn't all. Iruka also noticed several ninjas moving from the clan side of town into the civilian area across the bridge. Fortunately, no one would be able to pursue them in any kind of appropriate vessel until they were far down the river and heading out to sea, but it was only a matter of time. Then it was full canvas. They had finally run out of dock to give chase from, so Kakashi sighed with relief as Iruka fully opened the sails and the ship began to climb to its maximum speed. Good, because he didn't want to risk damaging a ship by fighting on it, particularly when it was someone else's. Why were they creating hand seals, I wonder? For what reason were they leaping to the water's surface? What was the strange behavior of the water in front of the ship? Whoa! A jutsu practiced in water. Iruka's ship was already feeling the pull backwards into the whirlpool that was beginning to form behind it. Sweden. Daibakufu no Jutsu water release. Great waterfall jutsu. Kakashi began to make a lot of hand seals as quickly as he could in a panic before water started to rush out and up dozens of feet into the air before crashing down at the whirlpool with as much force as he could muster. The whirlpool was broken up by the violent collision of water on water, and Iruka's ship gained a slight push further ahead due to the force of Kakashi's jutsu ebbing on the water's surface. That was the definition of taking a bad situation and making it better. Iruka, who had already descended to the deck to guide his ship, simply shook his head and maintained a forward gaze. People pondered why he quit whenever the subject was rarely brought up. "I can't beat people that can do any of that," was a no-brainer when someone had to deal with such situations. It really gave Iruka the impression that he was the most knowledgeable person in the room about ninja life at the moment. He had been a member of a clan that was too small time to merit the interest of anyone who would pit them against larger clans, and he left when he was offered a different means of support. As he heard a loud warning bell ringing from the village they were leaving behind, Kakashi trailed off, and that leaves us with no time to spare. Good work, everybody. Iruka remarked, "I'm the only other person here, Kakashi-san." "I know. Good work steering, I guess. I don't really know too much about ships to know if you were doing a good job or not." And this man would be in charge of a brand new Jinchuriki who was also a 10-year-old boy with a manic disorder and little regard for authority. Furthermore, it should not be overlooked that he had been kidnapped in the first place. When he woke up, that kid was going to be furious. With his compass ready for when they left the river's mouth, Iruka declared, "Tahai no Kuni it is then. Nobody's going to catch this ship in the open water." Before breaking the genjutsu he had on Naruto earlier, Kakashi reached over and closed his eyes, saying, "Being around you is going to suck when you wake up." Kakashi then sat down next to Naruto and lowered his headband back over his Sharingan eye, saying, "Still a drain on my chakra, even for just that long." Kushina's house in the Uzumaki clan village. A pair of medic nin who had arrived at Kushina's residence after learning that the Watchers had lost sight of Naruto were examining her. As they attempted to heal her, she simply sat in a chair, back exposed, and wearing a dejected expression. The door was open, and she could see Nagato giving orders to multiple ninja teams outside. These teams set out to search as far and wide as possible because word of Naruto's disappearance was getting out there. After taking care of that, Nagato turned around and returned inside, where Kushina still appeared to be in terrible shape from whatever had happened to her. "Oh Kushina," Nagato said. With her voice dry from the attack that had damaged her, Kushina asked, "You ever have one of those weeks where everything that seems like it could go wrong does, and you're not even around for most of it to happen?" While the other medic rubbed her hands over Kushina's body, which was glowing green, one of the obedient medics said, "Nagato-sama." Kushina was attacked from behind and suffered rather serious injuries from the ambush. Before setting out to locate the missing Jinchuriki, Nagato nodded and looked outside to observe a number of additional shinobi receiving his commands through another. Which brings us to the statement, "Whoever attacked you took Naruto." "Now do you see?" Kushina asked with a bitter tone, "But I would be lying if I didn't say that I'm kind of glad this happened. Of all the terrible things that could happen, at least I don't get to watch my child die. You haven't figured out the seal yet, have you?" He hadn't. He was baffled by the effectiveness of something as simple as doubling up on a 4-symbol seal. Even though it seemed so basic and uncivilized, there was something about it that he simply couldn't understand. Somehow, it wasn't as easy or straightforward as it appeared. Before dismissing the medics and letting Kushina cover herself again, Nagato frowned and said, "I had one more day before something drastic needed to be done. But now it doesn't matter. How someone got far enough into the village to disable you, 3 of our shinobi, and take Naruto, I'll never know." She covered her own tracks when it came to accountability for Kakashi's successful intrusion, saying, "It's not like there aren't plenty of places to hide, and you didn't really put out anyone to sweep the countryside in case they were still here." Someone got onto the island and sealed something inside of Naruto without anyone knowing it already. I'm not surprised someone could get here too. It was related to Kushina's statement that Naruto had been attacked by a man wearing a mask, but that the 3 ninjas he had vanquished were unable to recognize him by sight for some reason. They only knew that he was wearing a mask. It was too ambiguous. Some users, particularly those who could be as inventive as Kakashi, simply found Sharingan hypnotism to be too beneficial. Nevertheless, Nagato couldn't help but harbor misgivings about Kushina. Her silence was unexpected. She had been like this for the past few days, which was quite different from her normal temperament, which was full of energy, joy, and a hint of conceit every day. Hell, after being attacked in that manner, she should have been furious and determined to exact revenge on the jerk who did it. He reasoned that she would want to get Naruto back, if only to spend a little more time with him, even if she didn't think he would figure out a safe way to get the Biju out of him within the next day. But you have to be honest with me right now, Kushina. I don't know what it is, but I don't like the smell of this, Nagato said, putting a hand on her shoulder and walking forward, but she turned away. If you know anything at all about what's happening beyond what you've already told me, I need you to share it. You have no idea what can happen if you don't. It was as though his chakra were touching her soul. It wasn't good. He was questioning her with this Rinnegan power. Before he took that last step, he was giving her an opportunity to tell the truth, but he could just take her soul with it to get what he wanted. Kushina partially shifted her gaze toward him with an expression full of rage. Don't you think I'd like to know where he is? Where he's going? You want the truth, Nagato? I have no idea what's going to happen to Naruto. I wish I did. I wish I could go to him and get him right now, and I wish I could kill the people that did this to my family. Is that what you want to hear? Nagato pulled his hand away from Kushina without taking away her soul or killing her, saying, It's not what I want to hear. But you're not lying. Nagato retreated toward the door before continuing, I don't think you should stay here by yourself. Come and stay at the mansion. You can help find Naruto, and it's best until you heal from your wounds. Is that an offer or an order? I can make it an order if need be. Well then I guess I have no choice, Nagato-sama. The clan leader flinched at the thought. Unlike the others, Kushina had never addressed him with the noble honorific, and now it was done explicitly to show her anger at the state of affairs. But he had to watch her because he knew something was wrong, so he said, I'll have someone assist you with moving in. He wished she could be more than that, saying, but you know the survival of the clan has to come first. Perhaps he could make her see him more personally by saying, You're still my friend Kushina. Nagato used Kushina's simple nod as an excuse to depart, which he did in a shunshin. She put her arms around herself and glanced at a photo of herself and Naruto on the wall. Kakashi, you'd better get Naruto to Minato. Anywhere in the world Minato was. The mindscape of Naruto. All right. Where am I now? Naruto inquired as he passed through a flooded hallway that resembled a utility tunnel of some sort. It was damp and dank everywhere, and the walls were lined with pipes. All he could do consciously was follow the inexplicable pull he felt, which led him through the maze of pathways, since he had no idea where he was and was so disoriented. Damn those eyes. It happened to me again. The sound reverberated off the walls. Was Kurama there? Stuck inside of the weak, defenseless body of an adolescent human brat. Well, that wasn't a kind remark. Was he even aware of Naruto's presence? I'm not weak, you big, stupid fox. And I can hear you, by the way. Naruto rushed to a huge gate, behind which Kurama was lying down, his footsteps splattering water. Are you pissed? He asked. Of course I'm pissed. Your bitch mother made the seal stronger. Kurama sprang forward and slammed his body futilely off the bars, frightening Naruto back. No, I love having my freedom barred with me stuck inside of this goddamn cage. Kurama's next words, don't call my mom a bitch, you big red douche, if she didn't fix the seal, finally caught up with Naruto. Well, don't yell at me, it's not my fault. If she hadn't fixed, I would have broken out by tomorrow, Kurama yelled, her tails waving wildly. Your body, and the strength of the seal that bound me, both were too weak to keep me here. I would have busted out by sunrise tomorrow. 5 days, and I would have been on my way. But Naruto paled as he recalled what Kushina had said, but that would have killed me. That would have killed everybody around me when you broke out. After finally having a chance to vent to someone who would listen, the giant fox started to calm down. That wouldn't have been my problem, but this is my problem. You wouldn't be a sport and tear the tag off of the bars for your old friend Kurama, would you? He asked. Well, it would kill him to do it. The word, seal, on that tag was clearly a mental image of the seal and Naruto's determination to keep it intact. If Naruto were to remove it, he would be blatantly violating it. It would kill him to break it so disrespectfully. You couldn't forcefully remove seals and hope for nothing bad to happen in return. Seals and members of the Uzumaki clan. At the very least, Naruto knew enough about them. With a sideways head tilt, Naruto simply gazed up at the fox's face and said, "I'm not taking that stupid tag off without a really good reason." After giving it some thought, the intelligent creature of mass destruction said, "I'll be your best friend," his red eyes lowering to Naruto's. Naruto had to acknowledge that the idea of having a true friendship with something so amazing was very alluring. It was something he desired for a year after he no longer felt fear. However, there was a significant issue with that. "I'll be dead. Also, I won't eat whatever's left of your corpse after I get out. Common courtesy, you know," Kurama said solemnly. "I'll remember your sacrifice for about 2 weeks." He ended with a toothy smile, but Naruto turned around and marched back from where he came, saying, "Hey, I'm all-powerful, you little shit." As he walked away, Naruto joked, hands up behind his head, "There's a lot of stuff I've got to figure out and do before going suicidal to free you comes up. You're all stuck behind that gate right now from what I can see, motherfucker. It's definitely on the table though, right? Come on, what do you really have to look forward to? You're probably going to die before you're 30 like everyone else anyway." Before heading out the corner, Naruto yelled one final time, "Stop trying to make me kill myself already. I'll figure it out, just chill out or something. I'm a peacock, Kurama. You've gotta let me fly on this one." As Naruto walked out of sight and literally out of mind, Kurama's claws crashed through the bars, but they didn't go very far because of the seal. "And peacocks don't fly like regular birds, you little dumbass," Kurama snarled sarcastically. "I'm not sitting here waiting for you to kick the bucket so I can die with you and respawn 5 years later." In the vicinity of Hai no Kuni, slowly, Naruto's eyes opened, and he began to move on the ground beneath a tree in a forest. However, it wasn't his neck of the woods. It took him only a few minutes to realize that he felt completely unfamiliar with his surroundings. He sat up on the ground and rubbed his head, asking out loud, where am I now?" As Naruto's nostrils filled with the aroma of cooking food, he turned to look around the tree trunk beneath him and saw the white-haired man from earlier tending to a small fire with his back to him. Naruto found that he was still fully armed after pressing himself against the tree's trunk and feeling around on his person. By this point, his mind had fully processed the situation and he realized that this guy was the reason he wasn't at home. So should he run away or try to attack him before the guy noticed he was awake? Decisions. He could try questioning him to find out exactly what was happening and why. If he could beat the man without killing him, he had a better chance of escaping if he was outmatched if he ran without attempting to fight. Not that he would ever acknowledge it. Running away was also such a tacky way to put it. Ninjas from the Uzumaki clan did not flee. Before figuring out better ways to carry on a battle on their terms, they purposefully withdrew and evaluated their circumstances. To arm himself, Naruto opened the kunai pouch on his thigh, but before he could even grab a weapon, a voice interrupted the forest's peace and said, "Oh, you're finally awake. You slept for quite a while, you know. Now, you had to decide whether to fight the guy when he knew you were coming or run when he would undoubtedly know you had attempted to take off." Kakashi, meanwhile, stayed with his back to Naruto, tending to the fire and observing the cooking of the fish he had captured from a nearby river. Now there was no need to confront him. He would only do 3 things. Either he would try to flee, he would try to fight, or he would sit down and talk like a responsible adult. Naruto wasn't a sensible adult, so one of those things was off the table. Even if Kakashi hadn't essentially kidnapped him from his village, he was a 10-year-old ninja living far from home, so he had every reason to be terrified and paranoid. Since Kakashi was ready for both fighting and running, why not make sure he didn't overcook the fish? Kakashi said amiably, "The fish are almost ready. Do you want something to eat?" Sneak attack. Naruto jumped down onto Kakashi from the branch of an overhanging tree, holding a kunai. It seemed like he was going to hit him, but instead he struck a random log. "I didn't even see him move," Naruto said. "How smooth that Kawarimi was." Kakashi reprimanded Naruto from 10 feet behind him, making him almost jump out of his skin. "Good morning, now that you're awake and got that out of your system. You know, it's not really a sneak attack if you call out that you're doing it beforehand." He easily stopped Naruto's quick lunge with the kunai to stab him in the stomach by grabbing Naruto's wrist and stopping the stabbing motion before the blade's point even remotely touched him. Naruto attempted to thrust forward to drive the knife into his opponent, but it wasn't even a test of strength. Kakashi was keeping him back and making it appear simple, which is exactly what it was. He was 10 years old. In addition to his incalculable years of experience, Kakashi was 13 years old. With a grunt, Naruto asked, "Who are you?" without moving Kakashi's arm an inch. "I'd be more inclined to answer if you put the kunai away, Naruto." "How do you know my name?" Same answer. While still utterly incapable of stabbing Kakashi or even releasing his wrist from the one-eyed man's hold, Naruto responded, "Fine. If you won't tell me, I'll just beat it out of you. Just as soon as I get out of this," he emphasized, pulling futilely to break free. Kakashi was having fun, even though it was probably wrong. "This is actually fun," said the strange child, almost forgetting that Naruto was a Jinchuriki. After that, it ceased to be enjoyable. A small platoon of Narutos, who had positioned themselves while the original had been battling the adult ninja, leapt down from the trees and attacked Kakashi. You won't understand fear until you see 20 identical individuals flying at you with nothing but malice. He can use just the standard Kage Bunshin no Jutsu to make that many? Kakashi's eyes were wide as he thought. When she warned Kakashi that he would likely try to fight him once he realized what was happening, Kushina explained that she had taught Naruto a special clone jutsu to help him out. However, she had forgotten to mention that she had ensured he was aware of the super steroid-enhanced form of basic jutsu that a child of his age ought to have been practicing. There is no doubt that the Uzumaki clan was incapable of doing things half-heartedly. He knew for sure that she knew the forbidden version, so thank God she didn't teach it to him. Changing his hold on Naruto's wrist, Kakashi whirled around and yanked him off the ground, launching him into the air and eliminating multiple clones instantly, causing them to scatter in smoke. From there, he had a side where he was unencircled and could swiftly retreat to when the others landed and pursued him. On their end, Naruto and his clones were growing impatient. They were unable to even touch the man because he was completely out of their grasp. He was moving quickly enough for them to see him and follow him, but they were unable to hit him with a punch, kick, shuriken toss, or anything else. Kakashi's hand slowly made its way up to the sword on his back before he abruptly charged forward in a single rush right through the wall of clones that had been chasing him. "I'm sorry. I know you're really trying here and I don't want to be that guy, but the speed you're moving at." When the weapon was swung, Naruto saw only a flash of white light, which he was certain was there. "Against me you might as well be wading in mud." The recipient of the unexpected action was stunned and wide-eyed. Did a high-level ninja need that much speed to survive in the frigid world known as the Elemental Nations? The capacity of a man to outlive the average lifespan of the majority of people on the planet? And he was expected to go on missions to deal with such individuals? He had only made a few pathetic little deliveries throughout the island thus far. The majority of Naruto's clones had been sliced by Kakashi so rapidly that there was a lag between the blow and their eventual expiration. Kakashi had worked hard to approach Naruto as closely as possible without hurting him in any way, letting him know that he could have easily killed him or dealt him a crippling blow. "I don't want to hurt you. That's not why I took you away from your village. Now if you want to keep fighting we can do that if it will make you feel better, but at some point you have to move forward with this," the white-haired man said, resheathing his incredibly cool tanto and walking back over to Naruto, completely ignoring the other three clones that he knew were clones because they seemed so defensive over the one he had kept track of as the creator. "That didn't take so terribly long. Come on, the fish aren't burned that bad yet," Kakashi said as he passed Naruto and his 6 surviving clones to return to the fire. Naruto simply glanced at each of his clones, who all gave him a shrug. They were also at a loss. Can he do anything else? To begin with, he had no idea where they were near Uzu no Kuni, and if this guy had wanted something from him, he could have taken it right away. In fact, he placed him in a position where he could defend himself. After eliminating the remaining clones, the displaced 10-year-old approached Kakashi and the fire gradually, only to discover 3 fish bones already on the ground. Well, that meant he wouldn't even be able to see the man's face behind his mask while he was eating. In an attempt to start a conversation in a friendly manner, Kakashi remarked, "Now I know you probably have a lot of questions. I'll answer whatever I can honestly. Just remember that I'm on your side first and foremost, Naruto." Suspiciously, Naruto sat down opposite the fire at Kakashi, keeping the two of them apart if necessary, and simply gazed at his face until he felt compelled to speak. He was never a big fan of silence. It wasn't a good use of time to keep his mouth shut. Therefore, he chose to begin with the straightforward question, "Who are you anyway? What are you all about?" "I'm Hitaki Kakashi of the Hitaki clan. I have no real desire to tell you my likes and dislikes. My dreams for the future, never really thought about it before. And as for my hobbies, well, I have lots of hobbies," Kakashi said, seemingly smiling at Naruto, as his eye closed in a seemingly pleasant expression. "Ah, introductions. Of course. How could I ask you to trust me if you don't know the first thing about me? Those are terrible answers. That was the worst introduction in history. The whisker-marked youth's face lowered more and more with each answer. Kakashi gave Naruto after his name. Ultimately, Kakashi simply told him his name and clan affiliation, asking, "Can I hit you?" Before grinning behind his mask once more, Kakashi firmly denied him, saying, "No, now it's your turn." "Alright, the name's Uzumaki Naruto of the Uzumaki clan. I like my mom, the ramen my mom makes, and doing stuff," Naruto said, squinting his eyes at Kakashi and scratching his own cheek before introducing himself. "Stuff?" Naruto pouted and became defensive about his responses, saying, "Yeah, stuff. It's better than what you said." In order to avoid being accused of hypocrisy, the masked ninja was going to let it go. Carry on then. In an attempt to think of quick fixes for things he had never given much thought to or had to explain to others, Naruto went on, "I don't dislike much, except vegetables I guess." The only person who ever really cared was Kushina, who said, "I even hate when they're in ramen, but at least they're a bit better then. And my dream, to kick some masked guy's ass straight to the moon." Kakashi said, "I hope he's not talking about me," before bringing up the subject. "I noticed that you didn't say that you hated your father." He was certain, based on Kushina, that Naruto had no affection for his father. It was a little unsettling how little of that smile made it to Kakashi's face when he said, "I don't really know how I feel about the guy. My mom loves him to death, talks about him all the time, but I don't get it." Naruto's broad smile at the mention of Minato was somewhat alarming when combined with what he said next. "Well, I can't hate somebody that I've never even met, can I?" All Kakashi could do was dream. At least he had a relationship with his father, even though it wasn't the best when he was Naruto's age. There were times when his father was his hero, and there were also many happy times spent there. Kakashi couldn't tell yet if Naruto was truly resentful, but time would tell. Hearing Naruto snort as he snatched his own fish off a stick to eat, Kakashi said, "I can tell you that your father is a good man. I took you away from your village to protect you because of him and your mother. If I hadn't, by tomorrow you would have been forced to go through the extraction process that your clan developed for removing a Biju from a Jinchuriki." Naruto acknowledged, "That doesn't sound so bad. That implied that someone had devised a safe method, correct? It would either kill you or cripple your system of chakra. Even if you survived, you would probably never be a ninja again," said Kakashi, with a sorrowful shake of his head. Whoa. It was a bone-chilling thought that he had been less than 24 hours away from having his very essence sucked out of his body. That was different. What? Why? I'm not gonna do anything. I didn't put Kurama in me, it wasn't my choice. Why do they have to kill me? Being a ninja and proving to them that he wasn't everything they believed him to be due to his father was all he wanted to do for them. He desired to demonstrate that he was a true ninja of the Uzumaki clan. However, as long as he was a Jinchuriki, that would never occur, and his only option was to die. Naruto's distressed expression made it obvious that he didn't, so Kakashi went on, "Kushina-sama asked me for help. It won't take long for your clan to find out that she had a role in your escape, and she's willing to endure the consequences as long as I keep you safe. Just the fact that you exist as you are could flip the entire world on its head. You have no idea just how much of a shift that you can cause as a Jinchuriki, do you?" Naruto spit out a mouthful of fish and yelled, "What? No, we have to go back. We have to get my mom. Nagato isn't a dumb guy, you know. He'll figure it out quick." There was no one who could beat him. Before Naruto was born, Nagato was regarded as one of the world's most dangerous shinobi when he unlocked the Rinnegan at the age of a young child. On one of their many large-scale operations back then, he and Kushina were part of a three-man team sent to reinforce the Senju clan. Not only were he and Kushina the only survivors on a team of Senju ninjas at least 10 years his senior, but they also finished the mission, and nearly all of the mission's kill total was at his feet, according to legend. No one ever questioned Nagato's power, despite the vague details on it. Everyone knew when he was leaving the village to train because they could frequently sense the effects of his more destructive methods. The man didn't appear to be very dangerous. He actually gave off the impression of being a little nervous until he had to cowboy up, at which point it became clear how dangerous it was to mess with him. "Your clan won't kill your mother no matter what," Kakashi reassured Naruto, walking over to place on his hip. "If they killed her, word would get out somehow. And if that happened, they can assume for a fact that they would definitely never see you again. So they need her in good condition. It would be in their best interest to find you, and that's why you're with me. Kushina-sama didn't come with us and allowed herself to be a hostage for a good reason. We can't go back." What would they look like, anyway? A child and a lone adult ninja battling the stronghold to liberate the imprisoned noble maiden. No way. To avoid making themselves enemies of the Uzumaki clan as well, they would not even be able to convince any of the ships that frequently visited Uzu no Kuni to allow them passage. Only because Kushina had meticulously planned out every step of Kakashi's operation and expertly navigated her own village system did he manage to get as far into their village the first time. In a pinch, she was undoubtedly competent. It would never work again. It had been the ideal storm. Using strands of Kushina's long red hair as evidence, Kakashi handed Naruto a scroll, which he unfolded and started reading. She told me to show you her hair when I gave you this in case you didn't believe me. I didn't open it. Naruto looked at the characters on the parchment, nodded, and swallowed hard. The Naruto. You're going to need to be strong for both yourself and me, even though I know that right now everything seems really weird and frightening. I couldn't allow you to remain in the village because I would do anything for you. You weren't treated fairly in the first place, and you wouldn't have survived the week because of what you've sealed inside. I hate to be the one to tell you this, sweetie, but when one person stands in the way of the group will always prevail. The appearance of a Jinchuriki in our forces is a source of fear for Nagato and the rest of the clan. We cannot demonstrate that the Biju within you was not sealed away. Nowhere on our island or in our records is there evidence or trace of the masked man you mentioned. I'm asking you to accompany Kakashi here because I can't allow them to kill you during the extraction procedure. He is your father's friend, and I knew him before you were even born, when he was about your age. He will never fail you if you entrust him with your life. Don't be concerned about me or what might happen if I remain here. I won't suffer any harm, and even if I do, your mother is strong. Definitely tougher than you. You get it from me, and as long as I know you have a realistic chance at living your own life, I'll be okay living alone in the village. Naruto, always carry this scroll. I've already given Kakashi a scroll that contains all of your necessities. I apologize for misleading you with the errand, but if I had told you about all of this beforehand, you would have most likely just acted like a complete moron. Keep in mind that you are more than just a Jinchuriki, a human being with a Biju within them. Go and make me proud because you are my son and I adore you. I'll see you shortly. That's what a lifetime baby promises. What about the promises I made to you? Wiping away a few forming tears, Naruto muttered to himself, don't break him. He had no intention of sobbing uncontrollably in front of the strange man wearing the face mask. I'm going to save you, Mom. That wasn't cool at all. You simply wait. I swear, whatever I have to do. Actually, Kakashi didn't think he could add anything to what was already written in that scroll to make him feel any more at ease than Kushina did. So we're just supposed to run away until someone catches up and takes us out or what? Naruto asked, looking at the other fish he had left to eat and not feeling particularly hungry at the moment. No, actually I'm going to take you to your father, just like Kushina-sama wanted me to do. Incredulous, blue eyes widened and the stick dropped out of Naruto's grasp. Kakashi was going to take him straight to his father, who he knew. Naruto's hands began to shake as nerves soon took over. How would Minato perceive him? Was Minato truly interested in seeing him in the first place? Why didn't he ever arrive or communicate? How had he managed to avoid his wife and son for a decade? We just have to find him first. What do you mean? I mean we have to track Minato-sama down. I have no earthly idea where he is right now. The crackling fire, the sounds of animals from further out in the woods, including one particularly loud crow cawing, and the eerie silence between Naruto and his presumed caretaker were the only sounds audible. Kakashi had a talent for saying something to make Naruto reconsider his opinion of him whenever Naruto began to be impressed by him or the things he said. The only reason it made sense for someone to shoot themselves in the foot so frequently was if he was doing it on purpose. Don't worry though, Kakashi said with a grin, patting Naruto. Minato-sama is a world-famous ninja known for the major cause he's seeking to accomplish. He simply has to constantly move around because he has no clan and no home. All we have to do is pick up his trail. However, his self-assurance was somewhat motivating. Naruto was genuinely encouraged by his casual approach to the subject. Yeah. The way people kept talking about him made it seem like Namikaze Minato could handle any issue with ease. If I can find him, and if what Mom says about him is true, he can definitely help, they said. Mom talks about Dad like he's some kind of superhero or something. He can save Mom if I tell him. It was strange. In a matter of seconds, the boy next to Kakashi's eyes had changed from one filled with uncertainty, bewilderment, and fear of the future. Self-assurance, tenacity, and the development of a purpose and an objective that he was determined to accomplish on his own, no matter what. One could simply attribute it to a child's stubborn decision-making, but it was more than that. Kakashi was already aware that Naruto would always try to save Kushina, regardless of what he said. Somehow, to return to her. That was something he had decided to do. However, he appeared to have a strategy. A simple strategy, but a strategy nonetheless. Furthermore, it didn't appear to be something that would make the assignment Kushina asked him to complete particularly challenging. "So you'll come with me to find Minato-sama?" he asked Naruto, looking down at him with his only eye visible. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. "That's good to hear. It'll be good to have some constant company again for once. Just don't slow me down too much, would you? We'll have to keep moving if we ever want to find him." Naruto swiftly finished the rest of his food and followed Kakashi after he got up. Naruto grinned and threw dirt on the fire to extinguish it, saying, "Don't worry about me." He also added, "I'm not stopping until I'm face to face with my old man." Above all, he needed to save his mother, and he needed to ask the man he had been waiting years to ask for some answers. Kakashi shrugged, opened a bag, and tossed it to Naruto, who placed it on his back. "Let's get going then." He could be anywhere in the elemental nations. He refused to carry that child's belongings around when he was more than capable of walking and doing it on his own. Naruto inhaled deeply as he moved the bag safely, then simply surveyed his surroundings before following Kakashi out of the room. What in the world could possibly be waiting for him? He would be content with anything as long as it brought him back to Kushina's safety and Uzu no Kuni. Whatever lay ahead, he could handle it. He would repeatedly reflect on that mindset in the ensuing months and years, later marveling at what he had initially anticipated from his involuntary journey. Even at its longest, it was shorter than he had anticipated. He had no idea how much he and those around him would have to endure, or how long it would actually take to get everything resolved. The world changed as a result of the troubles of a single boy and a single clan, which were at best a regional problem, and who could have predicted that? After the apparent kidnapping of new Jinchuriki Uzumaki Naruto, the Uzumaki clan had experienced a tense few days. There had been no news of a little blonde child and an older ninja with white hair passing through any of the nearby port towns that they would have needed to use on that coast, and the ships sent out to try and give chase failed to catch up in the short journey from Uzu no Kuni to Hai no Kuni. That most likely indicated that they had jumped ship or hopped off in a cove without the captain pausing, allowing them to waterwalk or board a rowboat near enough to land to simply depart without docking. Thus, Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Literally, he could be anywhere in the elemental nations. The ship that had escaped with him might have given them the slip by going out west to Mizu no Kuni instead, and they might have been completely off course. Days passed as the sun rose and set, and the scheduled meeting with the Senju clan to uphold their fostered clan friendship with the Uzumaki finally arrived. From the window of his mansion that overlooked the entire village, Nagato had been dreading it. After attending to the arrangements for welcoming his guests, Nagato had been standing at his office window since sunrise that morning, gazing down at the port designated for the Uzumaki clan side of the river, until a ship arrived to dock. "I just want to keep the Uzumaki clan as peaceful as possible," he thought to himself as he walked the halls. "If you're going to follow me like this, you might as well walk with me by my side down to meet with the clan head." He sighed and started the long journey down to greet the Senju before his secretary and guard could even let him know they had arrived. From the shadows of the mansion, a smooth female voice said, "Thank you for the invitation, Nagato-sama." Then, in a flurry of paper, a woman appeared directly beside Nagato and said, "It's an honor to walk by your side. You know I'm the only one around here that can tell when you're being sarcastic, Conan," Nagato said, grinning and rolling his eyes as he started to walk once more, this new woman falling in step with him. The Conan woman had a stony face, a small piercing under her lip, and neck-length blue hair with a large light blue paper flower in it on the right side. She was dressed in a navy blue robe that was tied around her neck and body, exposing her arms and the sides of her ample breasts. It began its downward slit at her stomach, revealing her pierced navel, and she was wearing black leggings and white high-heeled sandals. When the Uzumaki clan leader called her out, a tiny smile appeared on her face, saying, "And what makes you think I'm being sarcastic, Nagato? That hurts. You know I have nothing but respect for you. I know. You're a good person and a fine friend to have for all these years. Well, I feel that one of your childhood friends has to show some sort of loyalty." Since there weren't many of his friends left alive and only one in particular that Nagato had always disliked, it was obvious to her which friend Conan was referring to when he said, "Kushina is being kept under watch in the mansion for suspicious activity already. In the garden just out back. I was watching her and she somehow knew I was there and she waved at me." Conan stated sardonically, "I've already seen her." This wasn't exactly the behavior expected of a distraught mother, but Kushina was a cheeky woman, and Conan knew that she wasn't exactly a fan of her either. "I don't trust her, Nagato." As the sun greeted them as they left the mansion and descended the enormous staircase leading to the clan side of the village, the red-haired man asked, "Well, what would you have me do? She didn't lie to me. I went straight to her and put her on the spot with her life on the line. She spoke no lies." The pierced beauty simply allowed silence to envelop them. Nagato would never simply murder Kushina, she knew. In fact, Conan was shocked that he was prepared to try to question her by threatening to remove her soul. Although he wouldn't torture her, she would have personally preferred that he escalate the situation by questioning the King of Hell, not Kushina. Despite Kushina's large fake smiles as she walked around the mansion where she was officially a prisoner, she was content just the way she was. She was pleased that because of her long-standing friendship with Nagato and her skills as a kunoichi, they treated her almost as if she were a member of the Uzumaki clan, despite the fact that she wasn't. The world was chilly, particularly for shinobi without a clan to support them. Being a close confidant of the most powerful ninja and leader of the Uzumaki clan was a far better life than her childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood. And in the Senju clan, she and Nagato were greeting one of the primary causes of the turbulent state of the world today. With a small contingent of Uzumaki clan ninjas following, they halted when Nagato approached to welcome them. Similar to many members of the Uzumaki clan, the majority of these clan members also wore traditional armor, though theirs appeared to be less ornately plated than the host clan's preferred method of body protection. However, their leader wore no armor at all. Senju Tsunade is regarded as one of the most powerful people alive today and the most powerful kunoichi in history. She wore red lipstick, had a small green diamond mark on her forehead, and her long blonde hair was tied in two tails down her back. She appeared to be in her 20s or so, even though she was at least 12 years older than Nagato. However, unless they had a death wish, no one ever called her on it. The strong woman wore an open deep green jacket, which was noticeably less formal than the clothes she had chosen to bring with her. A dull blue-gray obi held the sleeveless gray kimono blouse she wore underneath it closed, exposing a good portion of her ample bust. She accessorized her look with heeled sandals and pants that matched the color of her obi. Senju Dono. Uzumaki Dono. With a friendly smile, Nagato held out his hand, which Tsunade accepted and shook. "I hope you had a safe trip getting here." The gesture was so simple that he could feel the bones in his hand creak. "This is probably her holding back as much as she can," she said, implying that she wasn't even attempting to do it. Looking around the calm environment she was in, Tsunade remarked, "It's been a few years. There wasn't any trouble. It's just as beautiful here as the last time I came by the way." In actuality, coming out to Uzu no Kuni was incredibly enjoyable. It was a very tranquil place in comparison to almost every other place on Earth. It was small enough that you couldn't really fight a war there, but large enough for the Uzumaki clan to survive and do well as the only ninja clan. Not like another country by the sea, Mizu no Kuni, which was made up of too many islands to count. It was a place where conflict was always brewing. When Nagato and Conan joined Tsunade and her group in their procession to the mansion, Nagato remarked, "Well, it's wonderful to have you back. I'll show you myself the prepared rooms where you and your escorts are to stay," he said. With a stern nod, Tsunade said, "I hate to bring it up so quickly without even getting settled in first, but some disturbing information has been drifting around for most of the last week. I think it would be best if we got to the bottom of the rumors as soon as possible to either dispel them or confirm them." The young-looking woman's face showed a preoccupied expression. Following Nagato's cheerful greeting of Tsunade, Conan and Nagato's relationship swiftly soured. The situation rapidly deteriorated once more. Nagato said, "Come with me, I understand." In the meantime, Hai no Kuni countryside with Naruto. Naruto felt a little irritated by the current situation. The main thing that irritates him is how quickly they are progressing. 5 days after he had made the decision to follow Kakashi's lead in the hunt for Namikaze Minato, he was not experiencing the heart-pounding moments of ninja awesomeness he had anticipated. To be fair, Naruto had no idea what to anticipate from the elemental nation's mainland, but based on the stories, the country of Hai no Kuni was pictured as having large forests, beautiful blue rivers, and a desolate battlefield every few miles where, with luck or bad luck, you might find yourself in the middle of a major battle. He had no idea that he would be sitting atop a large, long cart being pulled down a sunny highway by a group of oxen. This particular situation resulted from their complete lack of financial resources. If they had no idea where they were going or how long it would take to get there, wherever in the world it was, that was going to be a problem. As an adventurous young man with contacts and a fellow nomadic ninja who shared Minato's style, Kakashi was able to secure contracts and ultimately pulled Naruto along to attend one. Their current clients were a father and young daughter who ran a traveling ramen stand that traveled throughout the elemental nations. They temporarily relocated their business to Hai no Kuni and required bodyguards to help them navigate the hazardous terrain. At first, Naruto was all for it and became a fan right away. For the duration of the contract, they paid them in regular installments, were prepared to go anywhere they could get business if their bodyguards wanted to go somewhere in particular, and, most importantly for Naruto, fed them for free. Sure, please. They simply weren't ninjas, though. A middle-aged man and his 15-year-old daughter were just ordinary people. They weren't anything bad or repugnant, but they weren't as quick as shinobi. As he calmly read from a small book, Kakashi called out, "Ma, Naruto, you shouldn't be so hasty to get into trouble. We have no idea where Minato-sama is and where to begin looking. Running all over the countryside for nothing isn't going to do anything for us but get you killed." Sitting and pouting on the cart's roof, Naruto declared resolutely, "You work with my old man, right? Nothing's gonna kill me until I get Mom back. Yes, I'm a confidant and a follower. I could even say that your father had a major hand in forming the kind of ninja I am today. So why don't you know where he is? Because with that logic, every time he needs to go somewhere new he would have to find me and tell me first. Do you have any idea how difficult it would be for him to actually find me when he needed to? Even for him, it would be difficult, but it would likely be much simpler for a few unidentified reasons. It must be noted, however, that it is not nearly as difficult as finding Minato himself would be for Naruto and Kakashi. That's how a nomadic ninja lived. The nomadic ninjas were homeless. According to the song's lyrics, their spirit roamed their home. Again, how was it supposed to go? Yes, he would remember it later and ensure that Naruto committed it to memory for fun. Naruto rubbed his spiky hair in frustration and exclaimed, "Gah! That doesn't make any sense. You're friends with him and you say you work for him, but you can't find him and he can't find you." Kakashi corrected his current young charge with a friendly smile, saying, "I didn't say that I work for him, I said I'm a follower. I said that I believe in what your father's cause in the world happens to be. He's someone that I think has the ability to change the elemental nations for the better, and I'm not the only one who thinks so," Kakashi said. With a puzzled expression on his face, Naruto simply squinted down at Kakashi. "Right. Whatever you say." He tried desperately to avoid letting his skepticism show in his voice, but he was unable to do so. His father really couldn't have been that significant, could he? Perhaps Naruto was unable to imagine the man's character because he had never met him in person. He was unaware. "Just because we don't know if anyone is after us doesn't mean that no one is out to get us," Kakashi said, assuming Naruto was dozing off based on the look on his face. Naruto simply surveyed their surroundings. They weren't in a forest for once. They were, like who? "We're literally the only ones out here. 2 other guys and a billy goat walked this road coming the other way and that's been it all day." They were on a high road built in a grassland area with plenty of rolling, green, beautiful hills. Additionally, they slowed down even more by purchasing food from the ramen stand that paused to feed them. As he continued to read, Kakashi listed off on one hand, bandits, local gangs, traveling street killers, other ninja clans. Naming only a few, of course. You don't have to look very hard to find a threat. We aren't on Uzu no Kuni anymore. Kakashi's subtle reprimand about them no longer being on his home island was simply imitated by Naruto in silence. Even if Kakashi hadn't been trying to cram his mind with general information about what Hai no Kuni was all about, he would have known that. That was really saying something because it was one of the riskiest areas for clan ninjas to hang out and live. The Senju clan and the Uchiha clan were the 2 largest clans that dominated most of the landscape between them and were always at each other's throats. In this case, every other clan in the nation that wasn't Senju or Uchiha was essentially either in favor of one or opposed to both. It was not a good place to refuse to support one or the other, as fully independent clans who did not choose to support one over the other ended up as both clans' proxy enemies at the same time. Though neither the Senju nor the Uchiha clan had many admirers outside of those who had joined them, those who did not had an equal partnership because they were essentially forced to defer to and act as buffers for their larger comrades. But at the moment, that wasn't significant. They would be okay until they encountered a Senju or Uchiha, but that would be the moment. Their immediate objectives were to pick up Minato's trail and safeguard that ramen cart. However, Naruto, being the good little ninja he aspired to be, kept a watchful eye from his high position, alert for anything that might seem dangerous. Then, a hatch on the roof next to him opened, and a 15-year-old girl in a white robe with the sleeves folded back to her elbows climbed up with a sigh. Her long brown hair was partially wrapped in a solid white bandana, and her eyes were brown. The man who owned the traveling cart had a daughter named her, one of Naruto and Kakashi's 2 clients. She is just an ordinary civilian girl. To his dismay, she reached out and pinched his cheek, smiling at the sight of Naruto sitting so near to the hatch. "How's it look up here, Naruto-chan?" She must have been 5 years older than him, right? For heaven's sake, he wasn't a pet or a cute little child. He was a deadly shinobi. Even though Dad seems to be okay with it, getting the view from inside at the bar window isn't really that fun. He heard Kakashi snort from where he was walking alongside the cart because of the young ninja's change in attitude from just moments before, but Naruto ignored it. "It's not fun up here either," Naruto said as she climbed the rest of the way up and sat down next to him. "Hey, it's dangerous up here." The girl took a moment to look around the cart and scowled when Naruto seemed to warn her, "There's nothing out there." Trying to recall and quote Kakashi exactly from the previous scene, Naruto said, Just because we don't know if anyone is after us doesn't mean that no one is out to get us." The ninja wearing the face mask snickered, "Shut up, Kakashi." Once more, but it wasn't his fault. The aroma of the delicious food that the cart was serving diverted his attention. The girl's frown persisted as she said, That's a shame. And here I made you something to eat and everything." She then set a bowl of hot miso ramen directly in front of Naruto, who was caught between trying to watch and staring down at the divine food that defied him by being so close. When the girl offered a pair of chopsticks and placed them in the bowl, "Ready for use," Naruto said, "See, can't eat." His stomach railed loudly at his seeming dedication to perfection. "Gotta keep lookout." "It's okay, Naruto." Kakashi agreed from the ground, grinning helpfully, "There's nothing on this road anyway." "Hate you." The ravenous young ninja yelled down to Kakashi, "Hate you so much right now." Maybe Naruto should add guys wearing masks to his list of things he disliked, as he wasn't the biggest fan of them at the moment. However, as soon as he was given the all-clear, Naruto started eating the food that was brought to him before it could cool down in the springtime. "Thank you, Ayame," he said. As he began to eat, he felt compelled to thank the girl because he probably wouldn't pause to catch his breath until he was finished. It was good stuff, man. As she sat and watched Naruto eat quickly, Ayame grinned at the appreciation, but it wasn't a joyful smile. He was a tiny ninja, and he was very cute. Yet, "I don't think you like me very much, do you, Naruto-chan?" With a mouthful of noodles hanging limply, Naruto paused his meal and said, He finished what he had left to eat and stopped chewing before responding, "What are you talking about? What makes you think I don't like you?" Among other negative characteristics, the attractive ramen waitress shrugged and said, "Well, yeah, you introduced yourself and you smiled and all of that, but the only person you really seem to ever say anything to is Hitaki-san. That's okay. I just thought you were a cute kid, and you seem nice, kind of loud." Even though Naruto's mouth didn't ask the question, his face did. Was it that clear? Furthermore, he didn't intend to give the impression that he didn't like her. Despite her kindness, Naruto didn't think he was in a position to pause and appreciate her kindness. He remembered something Kakashi had told him a few days prior. It was probably best for him to find a way to make some friends or something out in the world because he wasn't going home anytime soon. Yes, doing so was risky, but Kakashi knew that Naruto was the Uzumaki clan's black sheep. What was he going to do with himself if he had no one to make friends with? Spend the entire day with Kakashi? No, Kakashi was not the kind of person who was kid-friendly. He wasn't the best person to spend a lot of time alone with them, but he did enjoy them when they weren't tiny murderous machines. Naruto needed some structure, if only temporarily, which was a secondary reason he initially accepted the Ichiraku ramen contract. And it seems that Ayame fell in love with the little bastard right away. She clearly wanted to hug him, put him in her lap, or do something else because he was the cutest thing she had seen since her father had moved out of their original house and taken their business on the road permanently. However, Naruto was currently as cute as a pit viper and about as dangerous as one due to everything that was happening that he had not yet adapted to. In a somewhat ashamed mutter, Naruto said, "I'd like a friend. It's all right with me, I guess." Was it? Yes, he was aware that she was a good person. "Can I put you in my lap?" Ayame asked with a big smile on her face as she gave Naruto a quick hug and squealed with pleasure. Naruto, perplexed by what was happening now, said, "No, why would she ask him that kind of question? How peculiar." Through her large doe eyes, she inquired, "Could you call me Ayame Ni-chan?" This hadn't been done to Ayame to the same extent as Karen, so it still had some influence over him. The question, "What? Why?" is even stranger. "Can I feed you?" "Wah? No, hell no." But you're so cute and little. When Naruto said, I'm not little, I'm 10. He was aware that he was short for his age. He had to live it every day, so he didn't need it brought up. Damn it, he would eventually grow. Right, you're little. If you can give me 2 of those things I asked for, I'll get you seconds in just a bit. Okay, you can put me in your lap, Ayame Nichan. A snake charmer meets a viper. Uzu no Kuni, clan leader's mansion, Uzumaki clan village. It was a rumor that Tsunade would have preferred to disprove rather than have turned out to be true, but it was precisely what she was hearing from Nagato as she sat in front of the desk in a private meeting. It was very unsettling to hear firsthand. You mean to tell me that you really do have a full-blown brand new Jinchuriki out there, and you don't know where he is? Tsunade tapped impatiently on the desk she was seated in front of. Because someone took him from your village? She asked. That's correct. Nagato stated, we believe he was created and abducted by the same person or organization, as there was no way that word left this island of him being the container of a biju. His fingers were netted together in front of his face, and his Rinnegan eyes were fixed on the Senju leader's abnormally youthful face. A few days after Uzumaki Naruto's Jinchuriki status became known to us, he was abducted. Were you ever going to tell us that you had a Jinchuriki in your midst? Nagato gave a very circumspect explanation, saying, the situation was to be remedied before your arrival. He had been taken the day before preparations for the extraction process were completed. The Senju clan was supposed to be friendly with them, but that didn't mean he was going to divulge some of their most valuable secrets or their more delicate methods. They had the most widely accepted approaches to handling the few Jinchuriki incidents that had happened in the world, which was why they were called to handle each and every one of them. Alright. Which biju does he have then? Tsunade asked, wearing a slightly forced smile that was visible on her entire face. The sound of Tsunade's fingers pounding on the desk caused Nagato's gaze to drop, and he said, that's indefinite at this time. She punched holes in the desk with her fingers and said, I'd appreciate it if you didn't damage my furniture, Senju Dono. Tsunade abruptly stood up, disregarding his worries about the state of his furniture. So you not only have a kidnapped Jinchuriki out and about with Kami knows who, but you don't even know which one he has in him? Tsunade asked. Although it wasn't definitive, it could be deduced from the information at hand and an understanding of the appearance patterns of tailed beasts. The Nibi would never appear near large bodies of water, the Ichibi never left the desert, and the Yanbi and Gobi preferred more mountainous regions, but there were still 5 more that might be. Once more, even though Nagato was not very good at lying, he refused to reveal their most private information. He had learned other things from his research, even though he hadn't been able to handle how exquisite Naruto's seal work was. Only 2 creatures could have been identified by the whisker marks, and one of them had been exterminated by the area in which they resided. Naruto possessed the Kyuubi. It had to have the most tails of all the creatures, didn't it? It didn't really matter if you didn't know, but it was a bit unsettling to consider, so he hadn't told anyone outside of the need-to-know spectrum that Naruto possessed. Tsunade and the Senju clan would overreact if he revealed that the Kyuubi was the one inside Naruto. It was definitely a big deal, so overreacting wasn't exactly the best word, but it would be damn near appropriate. The clan's long-standing relationship with that specific biju wasn't the best. Throughout recorded history, no one had a positive relationship with any of them, with the exception of the Kyuubi and the Senju clan. That would be the result of their most vilified enemy using them as a weapon in combat against the most formidable ninja in their clan's history. With a hint of diplomacy, Nagato insisted, we can handle this ourselves. Tsunade had another plan if she thought he would back down. If this had happened to any other clan and word had gotten out about it to you or to us, we'd be the ones going out to handle it anyway. So what makes this time any different? She asked, acknowledging that she was older and had more experience. Because this time you're the one it's happening to. Tsunade narrowed her eyes as she said, that kind of puts some scrutiny on you, doesn't it? Who better than to try and take control of the biju than the only clan in the world that everyone knows for a fact can handle them? Are you kidding me? Not at all. Take him away in a staged kidnapping, keeping him out of the eyes of the rest of the world and training him for your own devices. Tsunade offered up a potential scenario, not a bad plan to begin making a play for the top. I don't think I like what you're insinuating. And how, pray tell, did you even come across the information that led to this conversation anyway? The child that the biju was sealed inside of was attacked by one man, wearing equipment to conceal their identity and any discernible features. Nagato was infuriated by the accusation despite the fact that it sounded like something that could be done with their resources. Well, apparently they wanted the word to spread. But you don't know who it is or where the rumor originated from. As she said, It's been passed around so many clans in Hai no Kuni so quickly it's alarming. There's no idea where it started from. But it turned out to be true much to my chagrin, and I'm sure that you know what this means Uzumaki Dono. Tsunade slowly sat back down and examined her vibrant nails. He did, of course. Even though he wasn't new to politics, Nagato felt a little vindictive today after the conversation he had been having. No, go ahead and enlighten me. Cheeky upstart. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and said, fine. So she explained it. Everything. It would appear that they were upsetting the delicate equilibrium that the world already occupied because the rumor did not originate from the Uzumaki clan. They wouldn't have any friends there. Furthermore, because of their close ties to the Senju clan, it would appear that they were consolidating the power of both clans by doing whatever they wanted because they were an actual close partner of the most powerful clan in the world. They would be dreadfully intimidating to fight alongside if they had even one Jinchuriki between them, but there would always be the possibility that the Uzumaki clan could produce more if they could find the incredibly elusive Biju required to do so. Before the hackles of the other clans in the rest of the world were raised, they had to find Naruto in some way. An arms race of sorts would begin if one clan decided to try to make their own Jinchuriki because they were crazy. And that wasn't even taking into account the fact that, once the Uzumaki clan was in the sights of the others, the island setting and the close allyship of the Senju clan would accomplish nothing. We'll handle it. We'll handle it before everything starts coming to a head. You may be able to subdue the power of a Biju, Nagato said, pointing to Tsunade's green crystal necklace, so you should head up the search through Hai no Kuni. We'll handle the search at sea until one of us pinpoints him. Hearing it all began to weigh heavily on Nagato's shoulders. Tsunade raised an eyebrow and said, and you're sure about that? You said it yourself. He could be anywhere. How exactly do you plan on locating him at sea? Nagato didn't say anything. We've got powerful sensors, you should know this. We'll be fine on our end. There are only so many places one can travel to from sea even if it's a vast place. What about extraction? Isn't it unsafe to kill a new Jinchuriki? Pulling out a photo of Naruto taken after his first missions on the island as a ninja, Nagato said, no, at least not any longer. And definitely not by the time that one of us will find Naruto. If you find him you can end his life, and the same thing will happen to the Biju. Though it would eventually reform, the issue would be resolved. After saying that, Nagato wasn't prepared for it, but it was obvious that Tsunade had a problem with child murder. It was surprising that children of Naruto's age were competing against adults as full-fledged shinobi on the battlefield, given the nature of Senju and Uchiha's relationship. She appeared uncertain as she gazed at the blonde boy's photo, as though she were seeing a ghost from the past. Although Nagato made an effort to hide his observation, he believed she was only looking at the picture. Tsunade said, and you say that killing him is the only option? After clearing her throat to gather her thoughts. The only option other than extraction. Nagato continued. But the process has an almost unanimous chance of killing him and a 92% chance of effectively ending his career as a ninja on the off chance that he somehow survives. I see. Kushina leaned against the shut doors outside. It was not necessarily a secret meeting. No one on either side should have been close in case tempers erupted, and it was only possible that it was done to get heated. She had listened in for the majority of the meeting, and it was not illegal for anyone to be close. I gave you as much of a head start as I could, Kushina said, taking a deep breath, closing her eyes, and covering her heart. She felt another presence close by and opened her eyes, saying, Conan. I believe in you and I believe in Kakashi. Kushina. Conan's footsteps almost brought her face to face with the redhead from Uzumaki. You always know when I'm getting close. She heard a chain jangle, but assumed it was her imagination because she hadn't seen anything. It's rather annoying. Kushina remarked wryly, I'm good at what I do like that. I was never the best at ninjutsu, but I'm very tricky. The blue-haired woman's amber eyes narrowed at Kushina as he stood off the door to face her, their intentness leveling after all these years. You know, I never figured what your problem was with me after all these years. My problem? Conan replied, getting close enough to face Kushina. Where should I start? Everything that I would have dreamed of as a child you have right in front of you, but what are you willing to do to preserve it? This village, your peace, the trust in you that Nagato-sama has. You don't believe in the bottom line and what's in front of you. What about the greater good, Kushina? Kushina responded, gritting her teeth at Conan's implication. Whose greater good? The clan's. And how much should I give up until someone like you thinks that it's enough? I lost my parents on the battlefield when I was a little girl. I sacrificed my career for the clan's traditions. I gave up my husband for the clan's peace of mind. And now my only son is missing and said to be killed. So I'm so sorry, Conan. She concluded with the thickest sarcastic tone she could muster. Sorry, you say? Was not lost on the clan leader's close friend. I'm sorry that I love the family that I had, no, the family that I have, because Minato and Naruto are still out there somewhere. I'm sorry I can't help but love them more than a clan that will turn their backs on me for having a child with the man I adore. Even though Conan was positive that Kushina had not gone on a mission outside of regular deliveries and items on the island she had taken with Naruto since he was born, she didn't back down a single step. It had been years since she had engaged in actual combat. Her everyday tranquility came from those men, Naruto and Minato. Before Conan could finish, Kushina simply laughed and walked right past the paper manipulating Kunoichi, much to her chagrin and confusion. If not for this clan, you'd have never had enough peace to find that man of your dreams. If not for Nagato-sama protecting you on that Senju mission decades ago. Was she making fun of what happened on the mission that made Nagato famous in the first place? What are you laughing at? She asked, laughing as if she knew something that nobody else did. As she brushed past Conan and proceeded down the mansion's hallway, Kushina cryptically responded, it's a family secret. But if you really have that much of a problem with me, you can either sit on it the way you are now, or we can go out to this isolated little ravine that my baby discovered to play in and we can settle down like women. Nobody has to know. You're never supposed to leave the mansion, and if I took it too far and killed you, Nagato-sama would never forgive me, Conan said, stopping her hand before it could reach the doorknob. Her hand briefly trembled with excitement at the idea before she smothered her urge to go and do so. As she walked away, Kushina threw her hands up behind her neck, resembling her son's way of standing or walking while he was playing a game. Well, whenever you feel like you want to, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere for a while. She had discovered that it was a good way to end a conversation and irritate people. It had obviously worked because she could feel Conan trying to use her eyes to burn a hole in her back. I'm going to go find Naruto myself for Nagato. This time, Kushina was the one who clearly responded, pausing in the middle of her stride for a brief moment before moving on without looking back. She was not required to. She had reached her, and Conan knew it. After a while, Naruto and Hai no Kuni countryside. As Naruto sat on the roof of the ramen cart and watched all the beautiful places they had stopped at to sell food for a brief period of time, a yawn escaped his lips. They had arrived at a busy intersection in the middle of the afternoon, where people were visible traveling in various directions along a number of paths. The ramen cart owner decided that this was the best time to set up shop and start earning some cash. Kakashi simply rubbed his head and replied that they would most likely end up doing that in a short while. Naruto questioned why they didn't simply continue down one of the roads to a village that was only a few miles away. Ichiraku Ramen's target market was the traveling public, so catering to people from outside the village was currently a sort of top priority. Naruto was left to keep an eye on the cart and the people waiting in line for food while Kakashi went into town to do some reconnaissance in case there was anything to be suspicious of. This place really does good business, he thought to himself, grinning broadly. It was fortunate that so many people were aware of how amazing ramen was. It was a beautiful place, too. Most people chose to go over to a sprawling grassy hill that sat by a pristine, blue body of running water and sit down while they rested and ate, aside from the roads that joined and separated at that exact point. Ayame poked her head out the hatch during a lull in customers and asked, "You bored up here, Naruto-chan?" Naruto smiled and reassured her, "Nah, I'm fine. I can sit up here and watch out for stuff. The last few times you and Tucci-san stopped I got to train a bit, so I've got to do my job right?" Naruto said, lowering his guard a little around the civilian teenager and acting as kind as she had anticipated. Ayame was about to continue when she heard her father calling for her help, but she simply waved to Naruto and went back inside. "Ayame, you can play with Naruto after we pack up. Come back down and help with the cooking," she said. But as time passed, Naruto had to question how much money they were making because customers kept coming in. When the number served surpassed 100, Naruto felt compelled to count the number of people and was left speechless. Naruto was keeping an eye on everything around him when he saw that someone was watching him. He turned to see a girl his age standing out of line and staring up at him with steel-gray eyes full of curiosity. She wore a pink sleeveless blouse with yellow straps or something on the chest that held it closed, and her brown hair was styled in two buns with bangs falling over her forehead. She was wearing blue sandals and dark green pants. She looked up at Naruto and asked, "Are you a ninja?" She had a kunai pouch on her right thigh, just like Naruto. While some shuriken were thrown at his head, Naruto simply squinted down at her and scratched the side of his face, asking, does it matter?" He then had to roll off the back of the cart and exclaimed, "Hey, as he stomped around the cart and stepped into the girl's face, asking, "What the hell was that?" Unfortunately, he was only 4 or 5 inches taller than her, which would have made him somewhat intimidating. Oh no, why wasn't he able to mature sooner? The girl, who seemed quite proud of herself for making Naruto dodge or eat a chest full of metal, declared, "You are a ninja. I don't know why you're so mad. I made sure that I would have missed even if you didn't move." "Who are you supposed to be?" was Naruto's first thought when he saw how happy she appeared to be at proving her point. Taking Naruto's hand and shaking it in greeting, the tomboyish girl said, "Tenten. So what clan are you from?" she asked. "What makes you think I'm in a clan?" The blank expression on Naruto's face made her laugh a little. "The big spiral thing on your shirt. That's a clan insignia, isn't it?" she said. "You're kind of a dummy, aren't you?" The girl recognized a clan insignia when she saw one, but it was most definitely not a Senju or Uchiha marking, which would be instantly recognized by every living person in Hai no Kuni. Even though Naruto was proud to be a ninja from the Uzumaki clan, Kakashi repeatedly reminded him to try his hardest to avoid talking about his clan of origin when he was by himself. Naruto attempted to shift the conversation without revealing his last name by saying, "So, are you a ninja? What clan are you from?" With a melancholy smile that caused Naruto to frown, Tenten said, "I don't have a clan. I just live around here, and one day 2 years ago or something, a man stopped around here for a while. He was a ninja too, and he didn't have a clan either, so he taught me some basic stuff." She reached out and brushed at Naruto's hair, saying, "He looked a lot like you actually. That's why I came over here." A little amazed that she might have seen the person he believed she had seen, Naruto inquired, "What was his name? Was it Minato something?" Tenten said brightly, "You do know him, Namikaze Minato-sama. She was acquainted with his father. Holy crap. For more than 2 weeks, that was the best news he had heard. If it hadn't been so strange, he would have embraced her tightly." She also used the exact same term for him that Kakashi did. She was also his age. Oh, he had a new reason to keep looking for Minato if it turned out that Tenten was his daughter or something. He would have to cut his goddamn pecker off for abandoning his mother in Uzu no Kuni and spreading his seed all over the world for 10 years. Naruto needed to ask for peace of mind, even though it was completely insensitive. "Do you know who your parents are?" he asked bluntly, placing his hands on Tenten's shoulders. When asked why that was important, Tenten raised an eyebrow, but she nodded and said, "Yeah. They died a few years before that. A casualty of one of the bigger Senju, Uchiha battles. I'm not a ninja from my parents or anything." "Thank you, Kami. However, that was quite depressing." Tenten simply shook her head and calmly withdrew Naruto's hands from holding her before it could start to appear on his face and he could respond. She was by no means the only sob story of this kind that one could come across in the world. Living past 30 was a huge achievement in that kind of world. Although Kushina and Kakashi had previously explained to Naruto the extent of the elemental nation's chaos, this was the first time he was truly witnessing it. Once Naruto began to pay attention, he could actually see that it was true by looking around. There wasn't a single customer that he could assume was older than 25 at the most. The man inside the ramen cart, Tucci, who was serving food and wearing a white robe resembling a yame's, was the oldest person he had even seen thus far. He was only 41 years old, and that was the oldest person he had seen so far. So far, the living to 30 thing was accurate. That was awful. He didn't think there were many elderly people in the Uzumaki clan village back then, but now he saw a lot more. Was this how it would be everywhere? "I can show you the battlefield if you want to." Tenten sighed. "It's not far. A few miles away. The land still hasn't really recovered yet. It's no Valley of the End or anything, but it's still a pretty ugly scar on the earth. I've got to stay with the cart. I'm the bodyguard, you know. I can't really leave it," Naruto said, grinning broadly at her despite the somewhat morbid situation. Tenten's perspective was restored as a result. "There are bandits around here." That was the initial reason she had run out to the cart that day after learning from the nearby village that a traveling ramen cart had set up shop and was selling to passing travelers. She had initially arrived to alert the cart's owners and, if necessary, use some of the training she had been undergoing to combat the bandits who had been murdering and robbing people on this highway for the past year or so. The idea of going to battle people who had already killed many others was terrifying, but the world was already a horrible place for the majority of its inhabitants, and the weak didn't need to endure that kind of existence here. There was no need for people to make the people's already miserable existence any worse. Naruto shrugged her shoulders and said, "I can beat up bandits." He and his mother had encountered some bad guys during missions in Uzu no Kuni, and although she carried out the majority of the fighting, Roughly 94% of the ruffians encountered were dealt with by Kushina. In the 8 instances in which they had engaged in actual combat, Naruto had also engaged in combat. They were grown men without chakra, and he had fought his first one at the age of 8. Knowing the difference between some highwaymen and those who were truly dangerous to those who knew how to defend themselves as ninja, Tenten remarked, "These people use chakra. They're actually strong." Naruto asked, "How do you know?" And a third party provided him with the answer. "Because she already tried to fight us before." Before they began to move away from the ramen cart when they noticed 3 people approaching, there was a lot of chatting among the crowd. Naruto didn't understand why people were fleeing from 3 individuals who appeared to be only 2 or 3 years older than him. One walked with a hunch of sorts. A boy wearing snake-patterned pants, a straw raincoat on his back, a lavender poncho with very long sleeves, and a mummy-like head wrapped in bandages except for his left eye. At least Naruto could comprehend that one. He had a strange appearance. With sunken black eyes, spiky black hair, a beige shirt with the red kanji for death on the front, tight black wristbands, snake-patterned pants, and a snake-patterned scarf, the second boy in the group resembled a typical thug. The final one was a rather attractive girl with long black hair that was tied in a tiny bow at the end and nearly reached her feet. She wore a scarf, snake-patterned pants, and a pale green zip-up vest. Strange children, but there was a menacing quality to their presence that made Naruto ask, "Do you guys want ramen?" He could have been a customer. He knew he was completely off base when Tenten palmed her forehead hard, saying, "Guess not." She whispered to herself, "Oh Kami, he really is some kind of idiot." The girl gave him a hard punch for that comment, but he just laughed more. "This is the bodyguard," the dark-haired boy who appeared to be a thug asked, pointing a thumb at Naruto while laughing. "He's a total runt. I don't know whether to burp him or get kin to breastfeed him." With his arms drooping and his sleeves dragging on the floor, the mummy boy who appeared to be the leader stepped forward and said, "Let's be civil about this today since it is still light outside and all. If your little ramen cart forks over all of its money and valuables we won't kill you. And that'll be your only warning." "Yeah?" Naruto said, preparing for battle by bending his knees and clenching his fists. "One-on-one? I'll give you one warning too. Go away and I won't kick your asses to the coastline." That was going to be awful. Before the group's girl leaned forward in a condescending gesture and turned to face Tenten, the 3 would-be attackers exchanged amused glances. "Ah, you didn't tell him what we did to you last year when we first showed up and you tried to play hero, did you?" she said. Tenten reacted angrily to the apparent reminder of something she wasn't very proud of. "I could take any of you in a one-on-one fight. Unfortunately, things didn't always work out that way, and it didn't seem like it would today either. It was 3-on-1. But it's not, and it won't be." The child, whose name was Kin, replied with a pathetic headshake, "That little sense of justice or whatever you call it isn't as strong as your sense of self-preservation. Otherwise you would have accepted the offer we gave you after we almost killed you the first time. You could have joined, you know." "Oi!" yelled Naruto, feeling offended and completely forgotten. "Yo, ramen cart. Me, you threatening? Gonna kick your asses? Remember?" he exclaimed. With a deep laugh, the mummy boy motioned his head toward the boy with the spiky hair, saying, "Well, Zaku, you heard him. Show this baby how real being a shinobi can be, even for kids like him." Zaku, who appeared to be taller than Naruto, strode forward and cracked his knuckles before saying, "Well, it's not really gonna be a lesson he can take with him anywhere, except to the afterlife. Come on, runt. Show me what you've got." Tenten grabbed Naruto's arm as he was about to advance to engage in combat, saying, "I wouldn't. These guys are dangerous people. They will kill you if you lose." After glancing at her and then back at the ramen cart and observing Tuchi and Ayame's worried expressions, Naruto turned back to Zaku and persuaded Tenten to release him, saying, "I guess I'll have to win then." As her partner faced the small member of the Uzumaki clan, Kin yelled to Zaku from the sidelines, "Make it quick, would you? I don't want to be out here all night." And that subsequent act of underestimating was the final straw that caused Naruto to lose his temper, as he attacked Zaku directly with a dash in a straight line and a punch that Zaku defended with his arms folded across his body. On the dirt road, he slid back a few feet but blocked, saying, "Ooh, the runt isn't that slow." Naruto squinted as he blocked, seeing something stuck in Zaku's hands. "Are those tubes, or pipes, or what are those?" he asked. As he was thinking, Zaku struck back, almost taking him by surprise. Because of the height difference between the attacker and the victim, he delivered a knee to Naruto's abdomen, lifting him off the ground. Goo. As Kin watched Naruto go limp over Zaku's knee, she laughed and said, He isn't that fast either, or that tough apparently. Would you stop playing with him already? Kin asked. With his other hand in front of Naruto's face, Zaku lifted him off the ground by his collar and said, I suppose blowing his head off would be enough to get the message across. Let me play you a lullaby, Junior. All right. His attempts to portray Naruto as unconscious all backfired, as Naruto actually did. Zaku screamed in pain and agony as the tiny ninja appeared to come back to life and bit down on 3 of his fingers. He swore that the bite was so severe that his fingers broke instantly. The sight of Zaku running around the road yelling for Naruto to get off him astounded Kin and her mummy-like companion. Before he snapped one of those fingers off to take home with him, Naruto didn't appear to be letting go. The older ninja was knocked down in front of his teammates by Naruto's haymaker of a punch after he finally released his hold and squatted down. Grr, he growled and sneered as he stood back up, wiping the blood from his lip and declaring, You're dead. Be careful. Those are the signs for his jutsu, Tenten exclaimed as she watched Zaku use hand seals to obtain access to a technique. As Naruto withdrew a handful of shuriken to throw at him to deter his direct attack, Zaku yelled, Too late little girl, and stormed toward him. Zanku had decapitating airwaves. He unleashed a powerful blast of air from the tubes in his hands that was faster than Naruto could dodge from his position. He and his shuriken were blown away. Naruto was knocked away so hard and far that he fell off the road and down the side of a hill, so hiding didn't help him much. Oh no, Tenten attempted to dash over to look down and see what would happen to Naruto, but before she could get to the hillside, 3 senbon were thrown at her, saying, Enough already. As the 3 of them strode toward Tenten as one, the bandaged boy said, No, we warned him, and we warned you too. Tenten drew as many weapons as she could and hurled them at her enemies, only to have Zaku's ninjutsu blow them away. That's how they'd handled her so effortlessly on their first meeting. Since Zaku could simply blow them all away, none of her projectiles could reach her targets. Alright. After losing the last time, she had practiced what she would do in that circumstance. Tenten abruptly opened a short staff with a metal weight on the end after taking out a scroll, saying, It won't be that easy this time. With a sly smile, Kin threw more senbon Tenten at her, but she deflected them with a deft spin of her staff before she rushed Kin, who hadn't anticipated a follow-up after such a seamless defense. This time, she was determined not to let them control the altercation. He had a metal gauntlet with several large pores on it, which the bandaged one used to block Tenten's staff strike with his right arm. Well, you got better, he said, his arm stinging from the force of her swing, but you forgot about something, or maybe you never knew about it to begin with. The human mummy was behind Kin, who said, That's so cruel, Dosu. You know you didn't have to use that on her for us to win this. Until Tenten noticed that the ringing clang of her striking the gauntlet was lasting longer than it should have and that it was making her feel sick and lightheaded, she had no idea what he was talking about. What is this supposed to? I don't, she asked herself. As she advanced to the rear of the team formation, the dark kunoichi went on, sound waves amplified and sent straight into your ears, honey. It's dangerous, right? A little more subtle than what all those other clans throw around out there, isn't it? She asked. Kiyomisan resonating echo drill, Dosu clarified. Yes, I didn't have to use this the first time for us to beat you down, but I think your tenacity deserved a gift. To show you what you could have had if you'd have accepted our offer to join the Snake Clan after we showed you our strength already. You could have been given the same level of power. Tenten, who was seeing double, said, I don't need to rely on other people. I can be strong without handouts. She collapsed to the ground, gasping for air to prevent vomiting, and added, And if attacking people that can't fight back is what you call power, you can have it. As Dosu retreated to let her face her fate, Zaku threw out his hands and chuckled at her attitude, saying, They get blown away. TCH. Well, I guess you're happy being a weakling. And we all know what happens to weaklings. All of the bandit ninjas turned to see Naruto standing up again, looking rather irate, after a sharp whistle diverted his focus from the fallen girl. With one hand down and still pointing at Tenten, Zaku said, Well, look who woke up. Come on again, runt. I only need one hand to take you on. I'll do you a favor and kill both of you at the same time so you don't feel too lonely in the afterlife. Naruto said, Better idea, and then he spun in a circle. He threw a huge pair of shuriken in a puff of smoke at Zaku, who just smiled and leaned aside, letting them both miss. Crap. They even swerved past Dosu without coming into contact with him or Kin. Oh man, you suck. Oh, this is. Aw man. You're the worst ninja I've ever seen. He responded with a loud, mocking laugh. When he and Dosu heard a dull thump on the ground, he stopped his taunting and turned to see Kin unconscious and face down. with only 2 puffs of smoke leaving her body to indicate that something had happened to her. Zaku's eyes nearly popped out of his skull, asking, "What the hell?" There had been no action. Nothing had been touched by those shuriken. "What did you?" he asked, looking down at where he had Tenten. He could no longer see her there. What the hell? They weren't anywhere, and they hadn't even touched the ground. With Tenten back beside him once more, holding her head that was still tingling from Dosu's attack, Naruto droning, What? You were standing still. I know how to aim a shuriken." Dosu narrowed his eyes at Naruto and said, "How do you take out Kin without either of us seeing?" Naruto simply gave him the finger, saying, "I don't like you." Naruto answered, "I don't care. You guys are creepy anyway." If his opponents hadn't figured it out already, he wasn't going to reveal a bread and butter combination like a pair of cage bunshin combined with a hell of a henge. "Are you alright?" he asked, putting some genuine effort into his vehemently offensive gesture before turning to face Tenten, who was gradually getting better. When things finally began to make sense to Tenten, she shook her head. Naruto had defeated Kin before she could use her jutsu, but she most certainly didn't remember being struck by Dosu's jutsu the previous time. The girl with the bun hair said, "Wait." She reached out and touched Naruto to confirm that he was the real one. "Zaku hit you with his airwave thing. How did you get up?" "He sent you flying," she said, noticing that he was completely soaked. "You landed in the river, didn't you?" she asked. Looking directly at Dosu, Naruto confirmed, "I blocked the hit and the water broke my fall." However, the pain was still unbearable, and he wasn't willing to sell any injuries just yet. "Can we finish this already?" Naruto asked. "Take your pick. Which one do you want? Blowhard jackass or mummy man?" Tenten pondered, then shrugged and made her choice without uttering a word, instead hurrying straight toward Zaku. She would pick the one that appeared the most normal if the odds were equal and she had to choose between the two. Additionally, she would choose the one that Naruto had already demonstrated he could lay out. She might be able to do it too. By himself, he wasn't that tough. That was what Naruto had demonstrated. Numbers did matter in battle, and she had been training hard to ensure that she would never lose so easily to someone again. Fortunately, Naruto was able to balance it out. Her chest swelled with confidence now that everything was square, whereas previously she couldn't shake the feeling that she was outnumbered. "TCH. She wasn't that fast last time," Zaku said, pushing his hands into the dirt before letting the air out of his palms once more. Zanku had decapitating airwaves. He blew a trail into the ground that was supposed to explode upward beneath Tenten, but she was faster than expected. However, that had been a year ago. He had to dodge Tenten's strange staff swings, being careful to avoid the metal weights on the end. During their first encounter, Tenten's only options were to move like a ninja and throw weapons. How was Bujutsu taught to her? "You can't keep dodging supersonic blasts," yelled Zaku, repeatedly aiming and firing with each hand, but failing to hit. He may have been able to use the jutsu in a supersonic manner, but his aim wasn't, "Hold still and die." Tenten appeared to be timing Zaku's explosions as she whirled her short staff in one hand, saying, "One shot per hand, alternating, gives me 2 seconds to counter between attacks. The jutsu's range is 15 feet. She mentally broke it down and waited for a good step between blasts before stopping abruptly and swinging her staff directly at Zaku, only to have the metal weight on the end, which was attached to a chain, fly off. He took a big metal lump in the face because he was unable to summon his jutsu quickly enough to blow it away. It left him in a bloody mess that would not get up, cracked his teeth, and fractured his skull. Tenten smiled and pushed back the chained weight after pressing a button on her short staff. "How do you like my Kusari Fubu chain wind staff? Customized it myself." When she received no response, she said, "Don't worry, I'll wait for an answer." It was so sweet to be vindicated. Was he no longer alive? It didn't matter that she couldn't tell. If she hadn't beaten him and they had started the fight in the first place, he would have killed her. She was curious about Naruto's battle. Times passed. Instead of Tenten picking her mark and leaving to fight him without a word, Naruto had expected her to respond. Considering the situation, he most likely would have taken the same action. Thus, he was left with Dosu. Have fun. Kicking his ass was the only thing left to do. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto made 10 clones, all of which at once attacked Dosu after drawing kunai. It was impossible for him to outmaneuver them all. Even when he was engaged in combat, his posture was awful. That meant he would be a slow mover, wouldn't it? Not at all. My melody arm is just too powerful for someone to fight against in close without being a taijutsu master, Dosu said, demonstrating his superior speed by dodging and ducking through the clone's straight-ahead attack, avoiding stabs and slashes until he let one get close enough to bounce off his gauntlet. The gauntlet's sound waves caused Naruto's clones to stumble around lightheadedly and some of them to throw up on the ground before dispelling as Dosu walked straight through them. Wasn't that annoying, then? Naruto deadpanned, searching for a practical way to win. That was an A-rank jutsu. Well, when it's being used by an E-rank ninja, it might as well not be. Dosu responded, "You fight like a child." Naruto looked around as though he might have been talking to someone else, but he finally realized that he was talking about him. Then he said, "I'm 10. What do you want me to fight like? I think I'm pretty good actually." Statistically, someone has to. That's a real jerk thing to say. Why would you do that? Before donning his gauntlet once more and charging at Naruto, who was doing everything in his power to avoid him, Dosu said, "Because I'm trying to kill you." That's useless, you know. If you can hear the vibrations, it's already too late. This was demonstrated when Naruto stumbled over his own feet as a result of Dosu's sound jutsu confusing him. When it comes to sound, I don't have to touch you to hurt you. Naruto gritted his teeth and got back up, ignoring the pounding in his head that came with each echo of the gauntlet. No, he said. Okay, so he can't make the sound last, he said, reaching into his backpack and taking out a foldable Fuma shuriken, which he held up as the clamor began to fade. He is able to control it, but he is only able to make the noise in the first place. His gauntlet was made to be somewhat hollow in order to allow him to control the reverberation into Naruto's ears for a considerable amount of time. Dosu just remained motionless. Despite having a rather ominous appearance, Naruto would never be touched by his shuriken. However, he would pay for it the same way they did earlier, with Kin losing in defeat without them ever knowing how, if he allowed it to fly past him and diverted his attention from either it or Naruto. After regaining his equilibrium, Naruto was able to aim and launch his shuriken, saying, "Dodge this." Rather than attempting to move, Dosu simply raised his gauntlet and deflected it with a loud clang, which instantly caused Naruto to retaliate because of the sound he had prepared to make with his chakra. Any astute comment he was going to make instantly died in his throat as he felt a blow to his chest that was sharp, smooth, and powerful enough to knock him back a few steps. How? He asked, how? A second four-bladed Fuma shuriken protruded from his chest. There was no sense in that. How was that landed? A genjutsu? Not in a way. As he dashed to recover his first deflected shuriken, Naruto exclaimed, "Cage shuriken no jutsu shadow shuriken jutsu." A second shuriken flying under the first one in its shadow. Nice, right? Kakashi taught me that one. Before his lone visible eye rolled back in his head and he fell back to his death, Dosu questioned, "Who?" With a grotesque crunch and squish, Naruto scowled and approached Dosu to yank his shuriken out of the fallen young ninja's chest. As he wiped the blood off the weapon and moved into the grass off the road, Tenten approached and said, "You killed him." Naruto said, "Yeah," before throwing up immediately after folding his weapons back up and resealing them. 1 sec. For the first time, he had truly killed someone. Although Dosu's face had been mostly covered, some of the impact was still felt because of the blood on the ground, the sensation of the shuriken being pulled out by the broken rib bone, and the weight of his body striking the ground for the last time. It was not the same as killing an animal while hunting to kill a human in combat. Despite being repulsed, Tenten gave Naruto a back rub to provide him with some solace. Both the ramen stand and the individuals inside who had witnessed the entire battle were still clearly visible. They must have been affected by the fact that children had participated in such violence, even though it wasn't the most spectacular ninja battle ever. Naruto waited for the sudden nausea to subside before asking, "Where the hell is Kakashi?" Close by, concealed in the trees. The sight of his 3 charges being defeated by a small blonde child and the girl with the weapons he had spied them on when they first arrived in the area about a year ago made a young man with long silver hair, a frayed blue vest, and dark pants clench his teeth. That girl didn't have that much inherent talent when they beat her then, and where the hell did that boy come from? He could go out there and kill him himself, though, because he wasn't that good. He might be able to kill them both and make some use of their loss. The man, disgusted by the loss of the younger ninja trio, thought to himself, recruiting weak pawns like that, how can I ever get Orochimaru to grant me with the power I want if I can't even bring him kids with true skill? The first time they encountered even a small amount of difficulty in combat, they gave up. Horrible, terrible. Additionally, he had squandered a year training the 3 people he had recruited. For what purpose was it all? To allow 2 snotty preteens to beat them. He reached for a big shuriken he carried on his back and tried to shoot the two of them as they were making their way back down the street to the ramen cart. It would be very simple. It was a clear shot from where he was concealed in the trees, and there was no wind. All it takes is one throw on the right trajectory. When the silver-haired man turned around, he discovered a kunai positioned directly at his throat and another silver-haired man wearing a face mask hanging upside down from an overhanging branch. Well, Naruto didn't need my help, did he? And he made a little friend too. Why did he appear to be grinning beneath that mask, and how did he get that close? Looks like I made one as well. What's your name? He was caught dead to rights saying, Mizuki. I know you. You're copy ninja. Kakashi. There's no mistaking your appearance. This man essentially had his life in his hands. Before turning to Mizuki, Kakashi muttered to himself, I really don't like being famous, but I guess it can't be helped. Now, guess what's about to happen? He asked. Why, you're going to kill me? Thank heavens. Oh no, he was going to be released by the tender-hearted idiot. Yes, he would bring this directly to Orochimaru and the other members of the Snake Clan, who would then permanently put Kakashi on their hit list and blacklist him. He wouldn't survive. I'm going to interrogate you and then I might kill you depending on what I find. What? No. Oh, it's happening. Now if you're good it won't hurt a bit. Mizuki screamed in fear as he was caught in Kakashi's Sharingan Genjutsu as he raised the plated headband over his left eye. Returning with the cart of Ichiraku Ramen, when they heard a cry of mortality reverberate through the air from an unidentified source, Naruto, Tenten, Tucci, and Ayame all stopped what they were doing. Nevertheless, it made the civilians shiver. Tucci said, perspiring a little from all the action they had witnessed that night. Anyone gonna check on that? He asked. Instead of running off to do so, Naruto simply shook his head and laughed uneasily, saying, my job's to protect the cart, you know. I can't really leave you guys by yourselves until Kakashi comes back, just in case. As he kicked and flailed to get free without hurting her, Ayame grabbed Naruto off the ground and gave him a big hug, saying, it's okay to be scared, Naruto-chan, as long as you keep your big sister safe. I'm not scared of anything. After giving the byplay a strange look, Tenten remarked, she's your sister? She doesn't look anything like you. After setting Naruto down, Ayame smiled slyly and said, I'm his sister in spirit. She then lowered herself to eye level with Tenten and said, and I'll be yours too. Thank you for helping Naruto-chan protect us. She even spared Tenten a full bow, saying, you didn't have to do that for us. Thanks, but that was just as much for me as it was just to help. I was thinking for a long time that I couldn't be a decent ninja because I don't come from a clan, and Minato-sama only taught me basic stuff firsthand. The young Kunoichi felt uncomfortable receiving such a flattering compliment from such a pretty older girl. Recalling her chain wind staff, Naruto questioned, so that staff thing that you used? Dad didn't teach you that or give that to you? But Naruto, you're saying that Minato-sama is your dad? That's so cool, you're so lucky, Tenten said quietly, as if it were something embarrassing, and blushed even more when she saw that Naruto appeared to be in awe of her ninja tool. I made it myself. I like weapons. Yep. Naruto exclaimed, beaming broadly, and I never met him either. That's so awesome. That was definitely a mood killer. I'm glad you like him, but I've never seen the guy one time in my whole life. It wasn't good. He claimed that Minato reminded him of the fact that he had a son, which was the whole reason he trained Tenten in the first place when she kept bugging him about it. She always thought a man like that would have a son who was an amazing shinobi. However, Naruto didn't appear to be all that much more developed than she was. He was obviously still a child, even though he had some cool tricks and a fairly elite jutsu that allowed him to create solid clones of himself. Aside from his appearance, he didn't resemble his father in the slightest. Nevertheless, she was thankful that he was able to save her when things got tough. Well, I remember him telling me that he was going to work his way west, towards the desert. Why would he want to go to the desert? Tenten smiled and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Is there anything you do know? She asked, rolling her eyes when Naruto simply shrugged. After a moment of contemplation, Naruto finally responded, kicking ass. The young girl, who loved weapons and kept her hands firmly on her hips, said, okay, seriously, you didn't fight that good. You let Zaku and Dosu get some good shots in on you, and if the whole team hadn't been totally underestimating us the whole time, that would have been way harder. Everyone was frightened when Kakashi appeared on the scene in a shunshin, including Naruto, who attempted to stab him before he emerged from the whirlwind. When Kakashi grabbed his wrist, he tried to block it, saying, don't do that. But it's good to see that you made a friend with such a good head on her shoulders. It's a refreshing change of pace to see a child with some humility. With his arms raised triumphantly, Naruto declared, "You weren't even there. I was so awesome when I tricked those guys the first time, I think I got a case of awesome poisoning." "Was that before or after you had to bite that one boy to get free?" "I couldn't tell." He had been observing. Gurk. That made one wonder why in the world he didn't assist. As he previously stated, Naruto would be a work in progress. "Exactly," Kakashi said with an eye smile, "and to answer the question that you didn't ask, I wanted to see if you could handle yourself in a fight. You need a lot of work, but seeing as how I didn't have to step in, I'd say that you're passable, for now anyway." That was perfectly acceptable. He was still very young. Furthermore, even if a 10-year-old was hard up for improvement in many other areas, the fact that he could learn an A- rank ninjutsu in a single day was something that simply couldn't be ignored. He had also already mastered a basic shuriken jutsu that Kakashi had taught him as a ruse to keep him occupied during his training. That was a potential powerhouse that you fostered, particularly when he was a Jinchuriki. Although Kakashi had no idea how to handle a Jinchuriki and knew no one who did, he assumed he would have time to learn. Teaching a child how to avoid being murdered in the real world shouldn't be that difficult, could it? He caught a glimpse of Tenten leaving, so he cleared his throat to get her to stop and turn around. "And where are you going, young lady?" Tenten asked, his eyes wide, and he pointed haltingly toward the nearby village. "Oh, I was about to ask you if you wanted to come along with us, but if that was what you really wanted to do." Tenten questioned incredulously, "Wait, you want me to come with you? Why? You helped my idiot charge out of a real pinch, and you don't look like you really want to go back to that place." Kakashi clarified. "So how about it? Do you want to come with me and Naruto here to find Minato-sama?" He gave a half explanation of why he wanted to bring her along. This was apparently a training ground for the forces of one of the most dreadful ninja forces in the modern world, and they had just beaten up 3 top prospects and their handler. He wasn't going to mention that he couldn't possibly leave that girl alone. That's what he'd learned from questioning Mizuki, anyway. He was hired by Orochimaru, one of the greatest legends of the modern era, to look for unmarried children who had the capacity for great strength. He would have attempted to obtain more, but before he could probe for more profound secrets, he apparently turned to liquid jelly due to a mental defense. Stupid bastard. Fortunately, he was in the forest. That wasn't necessary for the children to see. Apart from that, there were other reasons to take her besides the benevolent necessity to quickly evacuate her in case the situation turned from dangerous to completely unsurvivable. Tenten had led them down a path that might lead them to Minato. West, into Kase no Kuni, a desert nation. After completing the remainder of Hai no Kuni, they were to go there and start looking for Minato. It sounded like the kind of place where Minato would go to advocate for his cause among the sand nomads, and even if they didn't find him there, it was still better than what they had before. Not to mention that she would be a pretty cool sparring partner for Naruto. There should be someone on his level to train and work with, as well as someone nearby to ensure Naruto doesn't kill himself. The way that girl used that staff. Such use of weapons was uncommon. Few ninjas were taught to use weapons other than shuriken or kunai. Although he needed to give her some practice, he was confident that the odd short staff she had used was only the beginning of her bukajutsu abilities. Both Tuchi and Ayame supported it. Tuchi because having another ninja, even a small one, meant that less frightening things would happen in close proximity to his daughter and his source of income from the ramen cart, and Ayame because it meant she had another new, cute ninja child to swoon over. At least in principle. As he spread ramen-based goodness throughout the Badlands of the elemental nations, the man could dream of having the protection of 3 ninjas rather than just 2, even though in hindsight it wouldn't work that way in practice. Kakashi gave Tenten a way out if she truly didn't want to accompany them by saying, "Of course it's just an offer. You don't have to." Tenten enthusiastically accepted, so there was no need to say, "I'm so in, let's go right now." Tenten wanted to get out of there and become a real ninja, saying, "I'm going to prove that being a woman and not being a clan ninja doesn't mean that I'm not just as good as a male ninja or a clan shinobi." However, there was really no more traveling light available to them, so it would have to wait until tomorrow morning. It was as good a start as any, though. In most cases, Kushina would wake up at sunrise. When she was younger, she had always woken up at that time because it had always been a good time to train and finish the day so she could spend the rest of the day doing more enjoyable or useful things. She didn't get much sleep during the first few months after having Naruto, but she would occasionally wake up before him to catch a glimpse of him sleeping. If you were to watch him sleep, you would never know he was such a litter terror, but if he were awake, you would. After a few enjoyable minutes of that, she would wake him up by kicking him out of bed and playing Mama Kushina for the day. She hadn't been able to break the habit until her son's essential exile made it necessary for her to do so. As a result, for the first time in her adult life, she developed the habit of waking up extremely early in the morning without anything to tend to. No son to feed or frighten out of bed and into action, no missions. Nothing. She just needed to train. Without stating it, Nagato was limiting her to the mansion, but nothing was preventing her from training because it was an unspoken house arrest. Outside, especially in the early hours of the morning, there was more than enough room for it. She had to find a way to expend all of her energy. Even though there was nothing truly useful she could do with her remaining energy, there was no point in wasting it. Well, you're a diligent one. As she entered the room, Kushina stopped molding the chakra for the jutsu she had been practicing and noticed the Senju clan leader observing her training. "Tsunade-sama," she said softly, avoiding a blank smile. "Good morning. What are you doing up at this hour?" Tsunade said, "Everyone else is just starting to stir, and you look like you've been at this for at least a half hour." She was looking around, trying to figure out what Kushina had been training for, as she hadn't seen her actually using a jutsu. "I could ask you the same thing." "Good guess. I'm going to have to ask you not to smile at me like that. It's so phony it might as well be hanged onto your face." Good, because Kushina preferred to glower rather than smile like a Stepford. In order to avoid upsetting a clan head, she said, "Well, sorry, but there's not really much for me to be excited about, Senju visit or not." Tsunade beckoned Kushina to join her as she nodded and took a seat on a bench against a castle wall. The red-haired mother got up and approached, wondering why Tsunade was awake while her guards were asleep. She was not going to offend a clan head again. In any case, she was already on thin ice. Every kunoichi in the world attempted to compare themselves to Tsunade, a woman who was 20 years Kushina's senior. Even now, Kushina was automatically assessing how well she would perform if she were forced to face the legendary lady, so she could count herself among them. "So it's your son, isn't it?" Tsunade inquired, causing Kushina to, "I already know." Nagato Dono was very forthcoming with what we needed to begin putting word out to locate him. "I've already sent a hawk back to the rest of my clan to have them on the lookout." "Why would you want to come out here and talk to me about this?" The violet-eyed redhead asked the leader of the most esteemed clan in the world. "The last thing I want to talk about is how the two clans that are supposed to be my family and distant relatives want to hunt my kidnapped son down just to ritualistically sacrifice him. I don't want to be rude to someone that could probably have me killed, but unless you want to hear me try to pick which one's worse, I don't want to speak about it." All Tsunade did was roll her eyes. Even though it upset her to see a mother who seemed to be torn between clan and family ties behave as she had expected, she was unable to have Kushina killed. She was aware that playing with that woman would be the one thing that would make Nagato act like a lion. When the discussion about the new Jinchuriki Naruto veered toward his place of origin, she had noticed that much. Indeed, she had discovered something interesting about his background, which also probably provided a solid justification for why her family's circumstances were what they were. Kushina scoffingly retorted, "You've had a hard time of it since you married Namikaze Minato, haven't you? There's a reason your clan has the rules that it does. I don't agree with them, but they have a reason." People were genuinely terrified of the Uzumaki clan and their potential capabilities. "Your clan has a lot of powerful fuinjutsu. I know you're aware of the fact that you're not exactly a popular clan in the world." Kushina already understood why her marriage to Minato was supposed to be bad. Yeah. If one of us married the wrong person, we could lose all sorts of clan secrets that could be stolen by other clans and used against us and blah, blah, blah. I know. I heard it every day from everybody when Minato was in Uzu no Kuni courting me. The problem was that they did have a point, as Kushina ended up imparting some of her knowledge of fuinjutsu to him. But in exchange, he gave her something else. Before he was essentially expelled from the island due to his somewhat controversial beliefs, he gave her a child and taught her some special things. "You want to know the original reason?" Tsunade smiled wryly at her. "The whole origin of the custom is originally meant to be that you can't marry outside of the clan with the exception of civilians." Kushina simply shrugged her shoulders and said, "It was originally enacted to make sure there wouldn't be any Senju, Uchiha offspring." Kushina responded, "Wow." To be honest, she was unaware of that. Indeed, when they were Uzumaki, they would be near Senju enough for them to experience that as well. What, did that actually come close to happening? A few decades after the era of Hashirama and Madara, it had been a gambit from many years earlier, an early attempt at amicable relations between the two clans. Senju and Uchiha bloodlines are to be closely intertwined through a proposed marriage. Then, for one specific reason, a conflict developed from what was ostensibly an attempt to mediate a ceasefire. Which party would be entitled to the outcome of such a union? To put it another way, who would the family live with and who would inherit the children? It was a big deal. The strongest lineage in the universe would belong to any child born with both Senju and Uchiha blood. It was a testament to the bitterness of clan feuds, and this one in particular, that it had never even approached happening before or since. The idea that clanless ninjas could acquire bloodlines in this manner and start their own clans kind of spilled over from that fear. As if she were repeating what she had said thousands of times since opinions on Minato soured more than 10 years ago, Kushina said, Minato doesn't want to use clan ties for anything. What he wants doesn't have anything to do with making himself to be anyone's better. And that doesn't matter right now. This is about Naruto. Kushina was not comforted by Tsunade's statement, I'll try to make sure he's caught alive so that there's at least a chance he'll survive. The other option present is to outright kill him. That essentially meant that there were two choices. Either kill him or torture him for days in an attempt to remove the Biju from his body, which would ultimately result in his death. Since she actually had access to the person she had placed the seal on for 4 days following the event, she had been examining the seal she had applied to Naruto. The seal bonded the two so tightly that, regardless of how the extraction was carried out, the shock of losing the Biju within Naruto would cause irreversible damage to his chakra network and the nearby organs to a fatal degree. This was done to make it as strong as it needed to be to help his body adjust and to stop the Biju from breaking free and undoubtedly killing everything around it when it did. They would still try to get it out of him, regardless of whether she shared this information with anyone in the clan. It would be obvious by then that she was the one who made the seal, if she knew something about it that no one else could figure out, so if she did tell them about it, she would end up being executed or something similar. No, that was not how she was going to leave. She would see Naruto once more. She would see Minato once more. She only needed to exercise patience and be ready for anything that might happen. Even if Conan's offer to go out and look for Naruto was genuine, she would still find the bitch and force her to pay herself if she hurt even a hair on her baby's head. There are probably a mountain of things that have piled up while I've been away, so we can just add this to the very top. Good luck. Tsunade said, getting up to end the conversation, I'm going to begin heading back home today. You as well, Tsunade-sama. Kushina nodded and got to his feet to bow slightly to the leader of the Senju clan. Being lucky is the last thing anyone wants here. It would imply that my son, whether or not he is Biju, would be safe and sound. Hai no Kuni, countryside western, Naruto was used to waking up early because that was how life was in his village. These days, it was a little more difficult because they were constantly on the go and Ayame always managed to get hold of him or Tenten, depending on her mood, to cuddle with a child. However, whenever he felt like a lazy bones and wanted to sleep in long enough for Tucci and Ayame to wake him up, the thought kept coming to mind. His mom. When his mother had risked her life to hide his tracks and give him a chance at life, he was lying down in his sleeping roll, looking for a reason to get a few more hours of sleep. Not a chance. No, he didn't deserve Kushina's possible sacrifice, so if he ever turned into that kind of vile person, he would prefer to surrender to his clansmen and let them kill him. Therefore, he would get up, go outside, and train until he had to leave, even if he had to figure out how to worm himself out of Ayame's hold. As Naruto stood in a pleasant little clearing a short distance from the location where camp had been set up for the night, he thought, got to get my mom back. Before they returned to the road that day, Tenten would find him to work alongside him after he had completed some independent training. I need to get some quality training in now while I can, Tenten said. It appears that we won't be stopping for very long today. The sky had been overcast when Naruto had woken up. According to what she had said, they had been traveling westward for 3 days since picking up Tenten in an attempt to find a more recent trail to Minato. Every time they had a few hours to spare during travel, they had been training together under Kakashi's tutelage, and they had rapidly discovered Tenten's areas of expertise. She was a very good weapon user. Superior to Naruto, she could hit anything with anything, not just kunai and shuriken, and she was so good at throwing projectiles that he was genuinely envious. It would hit its target if it could leave her hands with a reasonable trajectory. Bullseye, 40 yards away. Bullseye, moving target, irrelevant. Bullseye, the target behind a tree or other obstruction, didn't matter. Days after seeing it, Naruto was completely perplexed by how she had done the last thing. She had figured it out without even realizing it. He couldn't even imagine trying to duplicate the way she deflected her own throw and hit her mark. Apparently, it just felt right. It wasn't limited to hurling objects either. When she was in possession of a weapon, she at least knew how to use it honorably, if not overtly. She was a huge fan of weapons, to the point where she would frequently consider attempting to use Kakashi's white light chakra saber herself. However, it was reportedly inherited from Kakashi's late father, and because she respected him, she never felt naughty enough to act in such a way. He had to admit that working with someone his age who genuinely enjoyed his company was a lot of fun. Those days could have been so much more fun if he had been able to train with more children back in the Uzumaki clan village. In relation to training, it was time to practice some of the concepts Kakashi had been hammering home to him. She seemed to have it easier with Tenten. Once or perhaps twice, after explaining how something was supposed to be done, Kakashi would show her something he thought she could handle and let her try it. Naruto felt as though he had to repeatedly drive his lessons like a spike into his skull. Kakashi appeared accustomed to training in the way he would easily demonstrate to Tenten, but there was something about Naruto's need for instruction that he wasn't used to and appeared to find difficult. Kakashi appeared to be more adept at teaching Tenten than he was, but he couldn't blame him. Actually, he taught him much more than she did. In his own humble view, he was doing well, anyway. Kakashi had done a few other things for his limited skill set, aside from the neat shuriken jutsu that actually won him a battle which Tenten had also learned soon after, along with a few others. Damn her for being good with weapons. There must have been something that Kakashi could give away because it seems that he had at least 1,000 of them. Naruto thought, all right, one-hand seal, basic jutsu. 30 Narutos were arranged in a triangle on the field, facing one another. This was the best method he could think of to master the jutsu before he began using it in spars and the like. He had been taught a few different elemental types of jutsu by Kakashi. It wasn't wise to spoil Naruto with low-level items because he had a lot of chakra. That was already demonstrated by Kushina, who threw Kage Bunshin no jutsu in his face before dismissing him. Before that turned into a liability later, he needed to get them in a position where they could compete against older opponents who were more accustomed to ninja-based fighting. Although they weren't accustomed to fighting ninja, they weren't scared to engage in combat either. If he didn't put them through their paces thoroughly, that was going to be an issue. Kakashi had to be more selective in what he taught Tenten because her chakra levels weren't nearly as high as Naruto's. For the time being, he had to focus on her strongest weaponry until she was proficient enough to begin strengthening her weaker ones. In the same vein, you had to provide Naruto with a jutsu that fulfilled his needs. However, since the child wasn't particularly skilled at using fire, earth, or lightning-based techniques, the last week had been a series of trials and errors. He had some knowledge of water ninjutsu, but that was mainly because he had spent his entire life near the sea, so it would be absurd to be ignorant of anything related to that element. However, Kakashi was somewhat out of his league when it came to the things he knew that involved water. Naruto was capable of manipulating some previously existing bodies of water, but he lacked the experience and control necessary to create water directly from his own chakra. In an attempt to get Naruto to do something with it, Kakashi threw a wind jutsu in his direction. He was determined not to repeat his mistake of trying to teach Naruto a fire ninjutsu. Nothing at all went well for anyone that day. Before he attempted to spit fire out of his mouth and nearly burned down his lungs in a section of the forest, Naruto thought fire was kind of cool. Evidently, he had overloaded the jutsu beyond his control, and that wasn't supposed to happen. The clones in Naruto's field gave him a stiff nod as they pressed their hands together in front of their bodies and began to feel for the correct kind of chakra in their bodies. Okay, let's do this. First one to feel it and blow the other two away first wins. Last me standing in each formation moves on to do it again after this round. When they felt their chakra transform into a breeze, they knew they had it. They would then harness it, defeat the other two, and win. It was more effective to follow those rules than to line up Naruto's and force them to practice the jutsu as if they were martial artists reciting katas in formation. Learning a basic jutsu was too slow with that method. No, Naruto would learn it more quickly if you put pressure on him. It operated that way. Thus the three-way game of chicken across the clearing. Futen. Repusho wind release, gale palm. Naruto could sense that one of the division matches had been finished based on the sound of the wind blowing and the dispelled clones. 2 now. Oh no, he had to get the feeling he needed more quickly. Hold on, there was a tickle in the air. Did his clones do that or him? It passed over the backs of his hands first, so it was him. Okay, a bit more and he would prevail. The original would be humiliated if he and his clones were eliminated from his own competition. Stop thinking about winning and just win already. Kurama said in Naruto's head, if you can go for the kill you do it. You're lucky you're playing a game with yourself and not fighting a real battle. Shake that mindset sooner rather than later. Despite the demon chiding, Naruto was on his way to victory when his other clones who were still in the field heard rustling in the surrounding foliage. To give some of the clones time to investigate, An unspoken agreement was reached to temporarily suspend the competition. 4 of Naruto's surviving clones silently drew a backup weapon and began to cautiously make their way to the field's edge. But their investigation didn't last long because they were destroyed and hit by shuriken. When Naruto heard Kurama growl in rage at the clone's recollection, he was left with flashes of red eyes in his head and held his head. Kurama, were those the same eyes that the guy who? Yes. Uchiha eyes. Remember what I just said about going for the kill? Yes. Don't hesitate for a second. Why in the world did Kurama believe that a fight would break out? It was a little hard to believe that the first time Naruto saw the real Uchiha's body, it was a boy his age emerging from the brush with a kunai raised defensively. He wore a blue t-shirt with a high collar, white shorts, blue sandals, and white and blue arm warmers. He had black eyes and black hair that was spiky in the back. He appeared to be observing the scene of the 14 surviving Naruto clones in an odd way before focusing on a single aspect of them. With a hint of pity, one of Naruto's clones said, "Yeah? What do you want? We're kind of busy." He wanted to resume training in order to win the clone tournament and establish himself as the greatest Naruto. The Uchiha boy merely squinted at them all and said, "TCH, it's not the leftovers from that Hyuga escort party." He said, as if to no one, "It's an Uzumaki though." It was an odd-looking Uzumaki, but it was still an Uzumaki. When Naruto's clan was identified, all of his clones became defensive, but a few were removed from somewhere else. "Scatter!" exclaimed one of the remaining clones before he was destroyed as well. The original Naruto and all of his clones fled into the forest, followed by 3 blurs that came from the neighborhood to pursue them. A hand gripped the Uchiha boy's shoulder to prevent him from pursuing, just as he was about to. When he turned around and saw an older Uchiha staring down at him, he fainted a little. Itachi. He shared the younger boy's black eyes and hair, but his was longer and hung loosely in a ponytail. He had a stony, stoic expression on his face and very distinct tear trough lines. He was dressed in black pants with guards over his forearms and gray light armor over his torso. He looked like a man accustomed to continuous fighting. When his younger brother was able to step away from him, Itachi said, "Sasuke, why would you waste effort pursuing that boy? He isn't the target we're meant to capture." Before attempting to flee once more, Sasuke argued, "Everyone else is going after him." Itachi stopped him again, saying, "What are you doing? I haven't fought a single battle since we got sent out here. I found him, I should go after him. He's an Uzumaki." He was more eager to fight than usual because he was hankering after some action after learning that, for once, he was going to be sent out with his big brother. He had the opportunity to impress Itachi, whose career was a series of significant events, for once. Furthermore, defeating a member of a clan that was a well-known ally of the Senju clan would undoubtedly be a significant turning point in his career. The thought excited him so much that his Sharingan turned on. His first long-distance assignment as a full-fledged Uchiha clan member was this campaign in the West. Itachi made Sasuke wait and think by asking, "Did you ever stop to consider why you would find one Uzumaki clan child all the way out here? If you ever see any of them on the mainland, it's never this far away? The Hyuga clan isn't allied with the Senju clan, which means that an Uzumaki wouldn't be here to help them fight against us," they explained, adding that they were too far west to just happen upon one. In addition, the neighboring Hyuga clan had not even been involved in the ongoing conflict with the Uchiha long enough for them to start attempting to enlist the aid of any other Hai no Kuni clans. Technically, the boy had been by himself. The clone jutsu he had been practicing was inadmissible. Knowing that Itachi would never permit him to pursue the blonde child he had encountered, Sasuke said, "Whatever." He didn't want to be a place filler, so he lost the opportunity to demonstrate his abilities to his influential big brother. "As long as you don't leave me behind when it's time to actually do missions." Before squinting his eyes in the direction Naruto had fled in to avoid the Uchiha who had pursued him, Itachi remarked, "We'll see." Something in that boy's appearance matched a rumor that was circulating the nation. Jinchuriki from the Uzumaki clan? Even though he was only a child, the new Jinchuriki apparently didn't resemble any other Uzumaki. Yes, those were very strange marks on his cheeks. Itachi had to admit he was intrigued, but there was work to be done. Maybe later, when things weren't as hectic. At the moment, they had to find the target that the Uchiha clan had been hunting down when Sasuke had discovered the other child. With Naruto, although scatter wasn't meant to imply that they were all going to take off in the same damn direction, Naruto's clones did just that when the poop hit the fan and he ended up being pursued. "I could have told you that was going to happen. What with him being a Uchiha and you being a person that's not Uchiha," Kurama said with hindsight. "Not right now, later. Fortunately, by producing a final clone to replace him in a timely manner, the original Naruto managed to escape the pack. His clones were pursued by the remaining members of the Uchiha clan. He was able to determine this because he sensed that his copies were being routinely stolen. However, his clones were clever because they were creating more of themselves at the right times to keep running away by using the chakra that was available to them from breaking away from him. Hopefully, they would grow weary of the endless figures and stop chasing the subpar replications. As Naruto hid beneath a big clump of twisted roots beneath a tree perched on a ledge, he thought, I think they're gone. He had to return to the cart because it was beginning to rain, and if he played his cards correctly, it would better hide his tracks. As long as I don't lead them back to the cart, everything will be alright. From his perspective, it would be like home base in a game of hide and seek once he returned to the cart. But he had to act quickly because if this was more than a few Uchiha forward scouts, Kakashi, Tenten, Tuchi, and Ayame might be in some hot water. In any case, what on earth were they doing there? According to everything he had ever been told, the Senju and Uchiha remained in the center and east of Hai no Kuni to engage in combat. As they had traveled and served customers at the cart, Kakashi had been keeping a careful eye on the rumors, and there had been no recent mention of any growing conflict between the two clans. But it wasn't his issue. His challenge was to return to his people before the situation worsened. After that, things deteriorated, sort of. Due to the fact that Naruto's small makeshift hiding place was compromised. At the very least, he didn't believe she was a Uchiha. A young woman of his age with fair skin, white eyes, and a short, level-cut dark blue hairstyle who appeared extremely frightened by Naruto and the kunai he was holding. She was dressed in dark blue pants, blue sandals, and a cream-colored jacket with a hood and fur at the cuffs. For an extended period, the two simply gazed at one another until the girl's gaze shifted to his kunai and remained there. Naruto's eyes followed suit, then panned back up to her face, saying, "Shish." Hopefully, she was aware of the current situation. She had been running based on her somewhat labored breathing. After nodding and a brief glance away, the girl turned back to Naruto and said, Anyo, you're not a Uchiha. Moving past her to approach the roots they were hiding under, Naruto remarked, No, I'm not. Wait, how well did you lose them before you hid here? He asked. The girl put a hand to her chest, closed her eyes, and opened them again, her features sharpening and veins protruding around her temple. The brief moment was followed by her turning it off and making a small, eep sound, saying, Not very well, I'm afraid. The two stared at one another once more as Naruto heard movement through the leaves approaching. What the hell do you mean, not very well? He asked, turning his head back around to give her a clear expression of annoyance mixed with fear. He had time to think about whether he should do the right thing or just run away from this girl who had led the enemy directly to him. As if there was ever any doubt about his intentions, Kaiten. Gukakyu no Jutsu Fire Release, Great Fireball Jutsu. Just before the tree caught fire, Naruto gathered the girl up and dove out from beneath it without getting her permission or even telling her what he was going to do. Why? He had to take her with him, but why? He didn't care what the Uchiha clan had to say about her. I hate Hai no Kuni. Naruto yelled to himself, sensing that 3 individuals, 2 men and 1 girl, were pursuing them from behind. He said, I hate it so much. Fuck this country. But these were different men from the first squad that had gone on a wild goose chase after his clones. While escaping from her clan's latest adversaries, the poor girl who was being pursued for whatever reason was forced to cling tightly and curl up as best she could in the arms of the strange boy she had encountered. What are we going to do? She asked herself. I'm making this up as I go along, Naruto said in a startled tone. I didn't have a plan when I grabbed you. I didn't have a plan before I grabbed you. Ninja-san, drop. The girl's face was buried in Naruto's chest, so he didn't know why he listened to her. Nevertheless, he followed instructions and, by lowering a branch, managed to prevent multiple kunai from spiking his brainstem, allowing them to strike the tree trunk. How could she have known that was going to occur? It didn't matter. It was time to take action because these guys were as fast as the ones who had been chasing his clones, and he was slower now because he was carrying a girl. However, he was unable to stop and fight while clinging to this girl, and taking on the Uchiha clan 3-on-1 wasn't his idea of a fun morning, even with the ability to scatter clones throughout the forest. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu Shadow Clone Jutsu was the only thing he could do while he slept because it only required one-hand seal. The 3 clones Naruto made turned around to confront the 3 adults who were after him, but they didn't appear to be at all put off by the numbers. They're all solid clones. Take them out. The three clones engaged the Uchiha adults in mid-air combat and were swiftly vanquished. At least they were defeated in theory. As he struggled through the puffs of smoke from the destroyed clones, one of the Uchiha exclaimed, "Gah?" with his hands on his face. "I can't see, what did that brat do to me?" His two clanmates approached him and put his hands aside to discover an explosive tag adhered to his face, burning menacingly. When they saw what had clinging to his face, their faces changed horrified, and they attempted to run away from their doomed comrade, but it was too late for all three of them. Boom! Naruto recoiled at the sound of his tag being activated farther away. Instead of having them use their own supply, which would have disappeared the instant they dispelled it, he attached a tag of his own to the back of one of his clones and activated it after creating it. In order for the tag to be hidden in the smoke and adhere to the enemy, the trap was designed to force them to destroy the clone that was trapped. Since he was a child and wouldn't waste the projectiles on destroying them from a distance, he hoped that they would underestimate the clones in the taijutsu department, and he was correct. He wished a villager had been present to witness that, man. In actuality, he didn't, because blood spray and hot body parts were kind of falling, not pleasant. He put the girl back on her feet and held her to prevent her from falling out of the tree while he marveled at his creation, landing on a branch far enough away that Naruto knew they were no longer being pursued. He was feeling very good right now, and that worked way too well. "That really blew him away, didn't it?" he asked. "Indeed. Check for a heroic one-liner." The girl also found it hard to believe. A group of Uchiha clan shinobi who were at least a few years older than the boy who appeared to be nearly her age were defeated. Even though it required a lot of running, his little trick would never have worked if he had truly been that outmatched. If anyone asks you and you tell this story to somebody later, "It was 8 guys instead of 3 and I carried you out of that tree after it caught on fire." Speaking of fire, he then realized just how large the fire from the explosive tag and the burned tree were going to be. He cast a wide smile at the girl next to him to reassure her that everything would be okay. We should really get out of here. Like now." It was like attempting to learn that fire jutsu from Kakashi again. When the girl began jumping from branch to branch by herself, he went to pick her up once more but soon realized it was unnecessary. Could she do that all the time? What on earth prevented her from telling him that right away? As he started to follow her, Naruto exclaimed, "Oi! Who are you?" Ichiraku ramen cart. Sometime later, the best way to ensure that Naruto and the girl he had brought with him could remain hidden in case any Uchiha came along to try and check things out was to sit inside the cart as it traveled down the rainy road. "You killed 8 enemy ninja with one move?" Kakashi asked incredulously. "And you were surrounded?" 8 sounded much cooler than 3, so he was sticking with it. Naruto sat down between Tenten and the girl with the odd, attractive eyes and said, "Yep. Ask her. She was there." "Yes. There were Uchiha clan ninjas chasing after the 2 of us," the girl said, looking down at the floor and putting her fingers together as if she were uncomfortable being placed on the spot so brazenly. Tenten wanted to shout at their bad luck in encountering that specific clan. "You fought Uchiha? Wait, you got away from them in one piece?" Tenten asked. With a shy little smile, Hinata nodded and said, "Naruto-san was very brave." Still smiling smugly in Tenten's direction, Naruto thought to himself, "I so totally wasn't. I was 30 seconds away from freaking out," his partner with the bun hair said, clearly not believing any of his nonsense. Kakashi found it difficult to understand how Naruto was producing the quantity of clones that he had reportedly created. He was certain that although Kushina had taught him Kage Bunshin, she had not taught him the extremely forbidden idiot version that would unquestionably kill anyone else. Because he was pushing the boundaries of what Kage Bunshin no Jutsu could accomplish before having to upgrade to Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he was earning about 30 using the conventional training method. Kushina, good foresight. Or perhaps she lacked the time and privacy to teach him the precise steps he needed to take to advance beyond that. Gurk, it was a bit unsettling to consider that, had she been given the necessary time and privacy, Kushina would have been more than happy to give Naruto a kinjutsu. "Yes, Mama Bear. Maybe you're more capable of handling yourself than I thought. Alright, I'll start training you more intensively now that I've been assured that you can take it," Kakashi said, stroking his chin thoughtfully before grinning at Naruto. Why did Naruto feel so dreadful about that? Ayame was nearly inconsolable. Not just 1 or 2, but now 3 adorable young children are filling her father's cart. For this, what god did she have to thank in prayer? Similar to Naruto and Tenten, this young girl was incredibly cute. She was also very courteous and shy. To get her to stop swooning over the 3 of them, she had to be taken out front while her father drove the cart, but occasionally she would return with a dejected expression. She was unaware that at least 2 of these children were extremely dangerous assassins. She wanted one to sit on her lap so she could nurse the ninja kids because they were adorable and kids. Even so, Kakashi would not be performing his duties if he wasn't suspicious of the white-eyed young girl his blonde charge had brought back to camp. So mind telling me what a Hyuga is doing all on her own being pursued by the Uchiha clan? At last check they didn't venture this far west. What's your name? He asked. With trepidation, the Hyuga girl said, Hinata. What would they do to her now that they knew which clan she belonged to? She might have set herself up for something worse, asking, what are you going to do now? In an attempt to avoid being apprehended or killed by the Uchiha. Seeing their current tagalong shrink into herself just by looking at him with one eye, Kakashi remarked, well, that depends. What happened to you? You were being chased already when you ran into Naruto, correct? He asked without even attempting to be intimidating. The Hyuga clan, known for their operations in the western part of the country, and the Uchiha clan, who were starting to step on each other's toes, were apparently engaged in a new clan war in the area. Because so many members of the Hyuga clan were regularly hired out to serve as guards for the rural nobility, the clan had a robust economy. Their respective clan traits allowed them to see everything they might need to efficiently protect their targets, making them the best sentry duty options available. The Uchiha clan was hired to infiltrate specific locations that coincidentally were under Hyuga guard in an attempt to increase their influence in the area. It goes without saying that tensions increased for both parties after this occurred numerous times over a few months. However, the Hyuga clan did not foresee any actions that might be interpreted as open warfare. Hinata had been returning from a specific guard assignment, which she had interpreted as a sign that things were starting to improve. Nothing had occurred during her mission. It turned out to be a trap, but her team had not had to fight or deal with any trouble from enemies hired by rivals the way their client had expected. The Uchiha clan was preferred by their client, who only hired her clan in recent months to assist the Uchiha by giving them a better understanding of the Hyuga's manpower and capabilities. The Uchiha clan sent a force with a higher numerical advantage to capture or kill her after they found out that she was, well, a pretty important clan member. They weren't the targets, but her team didn't make it out alive. Hinata fled with them after they were killed in a brief battle because they were in the way. She was the youngest member of the team, the last person standing, and the most crucial person to keep safe for a variety of reasons. Hinata was on the verge of tears by the end of her story, which she had found difficult to discuss because she had had to witness the deaths of so many of her own clansmen to protect herself. Tenten simply watched with a sorrowful nod, realizing that such incidents were commonplace. She sat off and listened intently from the front of the cart, where she could hear everything. So, Ayame said, how cutthroat. They started a war with your clan just to get your mercenary business. She understood. She didn't understand why they did what they did because she wasn't a ninja. Simply put, it was hard to understand why a young child like Hinata, who didn't appear to be capable of hurting a fly, would be forced to witness murders while her murders were being attempted. Sitting between the young Kunoichi pair, Naruto said, I heard some stuff from the adults on Uzu no Kuni. They say things like they're stretching themselves thin with how long the war with the Senju clan's been going, Naruto said, drawing attention to himself. Yeah, Tenten asked, his brown eyes observing him intently to see what he was trying to say. Being completely clanless, she was unaware of the ninja rumor mill, and the only information she heard came from travelers who were passing through her village. It's been going on for so long nobody can remember a time when it wasn't. However, that was precisely what Naruto was doing when, much to his partner's surprise, he said, yeah, and both of them are running out of money to fight with. It would be impossible to sustain a war for more than 100 years at no cost. Because they were the strongest, they had long been the clans that Hi no Kuni turned to for any kind of mission services that were required. They remained. In order to maintain the flow of money into their coffers, both clans were expanding, which required more than their usual clientele. They had to spread outwards. It is said that the Senju clan began extending its business endeavors northward past the border in that direction, while the Uchiha clan followed suit to the west. In the east, near the coast, where business was most abundant, and in the heart of Hi no Kuni, where both clans were located, they continued to fight over business. Because Naruto knew so much about such a delicate topic, Kakashi rubbed him on top of his spiky head. When it comes to fighting regional wars, the Uchiha and Senju would much rather fight clans like the Hyuga than fight each other. It doesn't cost nearly as much, and usually winning one puts them in a better position to continue waging war with the other. However, his clan was close enough to one of the major players involved for him to overhear adult conversation. On a larger scale, neither clan had any trouble fighting them with the same ferocity that the Senju clan and Uchiha clan would use against one another, but most of the time, the clans they pitted themselves against would retreat rather than engage in combat with one another. Kakashi was kicking himself inwardly for not being able to read the region's current climate more accurately. Instead of pushing them aside, he would have done so if he had known that things were becoming tense in that manner. But now it was too late. All they needed to do was keep going and leave the hotspot as quickly as they could. Hinata stood up from her seat to bow and ask for their permission, but she still said, "I need to go back home. I know I've been enough of a burden already with needing to be protected by Naruto-san, but right now I don't think I would make it back on my own." After concluding that it was preferable to simply heading west and crossing their fingers that they wouldn't encounter any more unpleasant surprises, Kakashi said, "I see. Your home wouldn't happen to be west, would it? We were kind of going that way when Naruto brought you here, and it would be really helpful if, I hope Naruto had met their daily quota this morning." Kakashi, "I'm just saying. The clan fortress of Uchiha. How'd that kid kill 3 of us? They were older than him." Sasuke was walking through the corridors of a busy, well-equipped hilltop hideout with his older brother Itachi. He was undoubtedly now kicking himself for Itachi stopping him from continuing. Older doesn't mean better. Itachi ridiculed Sasuke for having that mentality, saying, "You should know that by now." In theory, they were stronger than him, but that lends itself to its own list of things they could have fallen prey to. Sasuke didn't fully understand Itachi's statement that, stronger, doesn't always equate to better, since Itachi was the last person he felt was suitable to say such a thing. In actuality, Itachi was superior to everyone else in terms of strength. Because he was the clan leader, he kept his possession of the Mangekyo Sharingan a secret from everyone but their father. Neither mentioned it. When it came to using or mentioning it, Itachi felt uneasy. Sasuke reasoned that he might as well have continued to take missions at home. He only had the opportunity to engage in combat with a small number of Hyuga clan members who were more focused on protecting their heiress than on winning, and it was his first time facing actual danger on the battlefield during a distant campaign. Now, at least, they were moving to start actively fighting the Hyuga clan. "So what's the strategy?" Sasuke inquired, realizing that an ambush like the previous one would not help him prove anything to his family or to himself. On top of an amazing multi-tiered hill that gave them a commanding view of nearly everything, the two of them strolled outside the fortress past a few of the guards to gaze down on the verdant valley in which they had placed their fortress. Their stronghold was a legitimate hiding place because there was nothing nearby for miles, but if the Hyuga clan could get a general idea of where they were, it wouldn't conceal their location. This campaign needed to move fast because of this. Since Itachi was in charge of this entire operation, they had already placed strike forces just outside of 3 villages that were protected by the Hyuga clan, prepared to strike at his whim. Since many of the clan members in the current generation were so accustomed to fighting an enemy in the Senju that they never seemed to wear down enough to break, the majority of them appeared excited about the prospect of potentially eliminating a rival quickly. But unlike many of them, Itachi didn't seem to feel the same way. Whether this was business as usual for the battle-hardened Uchiha powerhouse or whether he was feeling disenfranchised for some reason was unclear to them. Actually, aside from those who were close to him, like Sasuke, the majority of them were unable to perceive any difference in Itachi. However, he seemed strange to those who could see it. "Do you see?" Itachi asked, pointing to 3 settlements encircling a large one, as he knelt down to sketch out a diagram of what he was explaining in the dirt for Sasuke's benefit. "We have a flanking formation on the Hyuga clan grounds. They're in a semicircle around the Hyuga grounds, right?" "Yes," Itachi replied. "The plan is to cause a diversion in one, and attack from the angles provided by the other. Right now it doesn't matter which. If we use the middle one we can attack from the 2 exterior angles, but if we draw attention to one of the exterior villages we can use the other 2 to fold over and smash them from one side. Standard procedure in our clan's method of approach on a stronghold." Itachi was awesome. He spoke of bringing the battle to the enemy's fortified position as though they had already won. Sasuke aspired to be like his older brother, man. No, he aspired to surpass his older brother in strength. He would prove to his father that he was capable of being as good as Itachi. And this was only the start. With the Ichiraku ramen cart at the Hyuga clan grounds, one day later. As they stood at the base of a large hill with a massive castle atop, Naruto exclaimed, "You all live there. Like, nobody lives in a house surrounding it or anything. Everybody gets to live in the castle. That's nuts." The sheer amount of ground it covered seemed to be the size of a small village, and it was 7 stories off the ground, beginning at the top of the hill. He was envious. Hinata lived in the enormous castle that was the Uzumaki clan mansion, which he had never even seen inside before. They were surrounded by 10 other clearly Hyuga clan members with their strange dujutsu active, glaring suspiciously at them. "Don't be so loud, Naruto," Kakashi said. "We're not exactly friends of these people." The white-haired adult said, "Yet." "Hello there." Tenten and Naruto huddled around him in a makeshift manji formation before he could finish his sentence. "Where are the rest?" a member of the Hyuga clan asked, glaring down at the newcomers with blank eyes. "Hinata-sama left 4 days ago for her mission with 6 other members of our clan, so where are they?" When he felt the weight of their group's intent to kill him, Naruto realized that his response was incorrect and said, "Seriously? We don't know. I found her running away from some Uchiha guys in the forest." Before Tenten noticed that each of these Hyugas had an odd green mark on their foreheads, 2 canes on opposite sides of a manji-looking design. She muttered under her breath, "Not helping, not helping, not helping. What on earth was that?" From behind them, Hinata attempted to dissuade her clansmen from looking for an excuse to murder the group that had her technical savior in it. Before she had even spoken, her presence began disarming them after witnessing her attempt to defend them. Hinata sobbed as she explained why she was the only one who had returned. "These people went out of their way to escort me home. They're friends. The team I left with was attacked by the Uchiha clan on the way home." "Yes. Friends. Totally friends," Naruto exclaimed a little too loudly, drawing a pinch on his arm from Tenten as the Hyuga clan's gaze returned to the ninja trio. Hey, he had never been surrounded like this before. When he wasn't certain that he was only a few seconds away from a fight that seemed hopeless, let alone when he was actually up against one, being all cool like Kakashi wasn't really his forte. They all gaped at the amount of chakra they could see flowing through the little boy's body, but they only gave him a single look with their odd dujutsu Kekkei Genkei. They then glanced up at Kakashi and saw the specific characteristic he was concealing over his eye behind the left slanted side of his headband. Copy ninja Kakashi and a kid from Uzumaki who has way too much chakra and a seal on his stomach that prevents him from feeling anything else. With a half-bent bow, one of the Hyugas said, "Hitaki-san. We all know your reputation with the Uchiha clan, so we appreciate you returning Hinata-sama and overcoming them." Sometimes he forgot that he was supposed to be famous. It was nothing," Kakashi said, a little taken aback by the abrupt change in attitude but not particularly disliking the shift. "All in a day's work, I guess." It was difficult to recall the time he was essentially watching 2 preteen murderers, one of whom was yelling at him for taking his hero thunder. "Our clan patriarch would love to speak with you. Please, your children and the merchant folk with you will be allowed onto the premises as guests until you depart. It's not safe in this area." Yes, they were aware of that already. Around the periphery of the village, with more than 200 members, the Uchiha clan ninja contingent was ready to attack the Hyuga clan stronghold. They were currently out of sight of the damn Byakugan that each and every one of them possessed, but unless Itachi's plan worked, once they started to approach, they would never get close enough to even start launching distance attacks. There was a ridge a short distance away that could actually overlook the castle, but the Hyuga clan castle grounds were situated on the edge of a cliff overlooking a main lowland road below that they could easily monitor. The ranged artillery would advance up onto the ridge and start firing at them from a distance after they created a commotion in one of the towns to draw the Hyuga clan's attention. This clan was known for having poor distance fighting skills, both in general warfare and in the ninja arts. Simply put, their Byakugan typically compensated for that disparity. They would also end up benefiting from this rain. Their fire techniques would not be hindered in the slightest. As he and many of his clansmen waited for things to begin, Sasuke was restless. In order to draw attention to one of the other villages and start dragging the Hyuga clan in that direction before they found themselves flanked, they were all moving as close to the castle as they could before the first action started. Although they wouldn't be able to effectively defend against the Uchiha distance attack, the castle itself would also be completely exposed. "Sasuke." His brother called out to him, "I have a mission for you." Did the young Uchiha pay attention? Yes, at last. Rumor has it that a small path leads to a bridge away from the castle meant as a way out in case the grounds are ever overrun. I want you to investigate and see if this is true. Oh. A mission. This was merely an attempt to keep him out of the actual conflict. Why did it have to be this way all the time, damn it? Sasuke's onyx eyes changed to the red of his Kekkei Genkai, exposing 2 tomo around the pupil in each orb. Itachi, why do you always try to do this? Why can't I fight on the front lines like everyone else? He asked, acknowledging that it was by no means his ideal position. I can do it. I know. Itachi replied, which is why I'm telling you to do what I say. We can't spare a party to head around the back end lest they be seen. If this rumor of an escape route is true, we have you to set a trap and cut off their escape. They'll have no way out. Additionally, the Hyuga clan would either have to give up or perish. Once you find this place, set your traps and send a signal. Depending on the tide of the battle at the time, I'll either meet you there myself or a squad of 12 will. Sasuke was now listening intently as Itachi placed his hands on his shoulders to force him to listen. This was a dangerous job. Since scouts are usually the ones that find themselves in the worst peril during combat, he would be going before the others. Indeed. Give it to him. That was all right with him. He had been waiting for this. Before Itachi pushed him to leave, Sasuke simply grinned and nodded his comprehension of his role, which he did without hesitation. Sending a 10-year-old off to do such a thing might have been deemed insane in a different era. Itachi was genuinely saddened by the idea that a ninja who hadn't even reached adolescence could be fully accepted before leaving to engage in such an activity. Even though Sasuke was older than Itachi when he was first sent out to do this kind of thing, his older brother still hoped that, despite Sasuke's desire to be like him, Sasuke wouldn't end up being anything like him. Office of the Clan Head, Hyuga Clan Castle. Personally, Kakashi hated sitting in Seiza. He was a dedicated ninja who was guarding a traveling ramen cart and training 2 children at the same time. He would prefer not to sit on his goddamn heels behind him with his back straight when he decided to unwind. Here, however, he was the visitor. And if he didn't know that the Uchiha clan was out there, he needed some information about this region of the country that apparently civilians didn't have. The host of the day, Hyuga Hiyashi, sat in front of him, looking much more accustomed to the awkward posture. At least 10 years older than Kakashi, the man had a severe appearance, a high forehead, long black hair, white eyes, and loose-fitting white robes covered with a brown haori. He noticed that this man and many of the others he had seen since arriving there truly fit the description of the clan of noble shinobi. Observing Kakashi intently as he gazed at the masked man holding a tiny cup of tea, Hiyashi questioned, "What brings the infamous Hitaki Kakashi to this part of Hai no Kuni? Rumors say that the normal areas where you've been spotted for the past 12 years have been around the East Coast." Although Kakashi was aware that drinking was expected of him, he would be damned if he removed his mask for any reason. He wasn't going to remove his mask today because he didn't do so to sleep, get laid, or while he was half dead in a hospital. "Well, would you believe me if I said I just felt like a change of scenery?" he asked. "Not in the slightest. I didn't think so. And the children with you? A clan-less little girl and an Uzumaki with monstrous chakra, even by their standards. Which one, Hitaki-san?" Hiyashi asked calmly as he sipped his tea. Oh, Kakashi didn't like the way that this seemed to be about to go. "Byakugan." Kakashi sighed after simply staring at him. "Byakugan. We can see almost anything," Hiyashi said, letting the veins around his temple swell at the sides of his eyes to activate his Kekkei Genkai. "But not many of us know exactly what we're looking at when we see inside the child. Fuinjutsu isn't exactly our strong point, and Jinchuriki are a mysterious sort. Therefore, the cursed seals on your branch family's heads that essentially established a caste." Kakashi considered this, but he chose not to speak it out loud. If I gave Naruto 3 years to study what it's supposed to be for, in his spare time he could probably come up with something better than that. Even though Naruto was a chibi Uzumaki, he was still an Uzumaki. Those individuals appeared to be able to read the seal's language, and Naruto appeared to be no different, albeit a little less educated given his advanced age. As he watched Kakashi stiffen, the stoic Hyuga leader held up a hand to calm his fear, saying, "No, I can see clearly that the seal is more than stable. His chakra flow is steady and safe. Were he unstable, his chakra would fluctuate wildly. The Jinchuriki rumor is true after all. An unconventional-looking Uzumaki boy, and I can see the seal on his stomach constantly trying to mix chakra with his own." With a hint of surprise, Kakashi questioned, "But still, that rumor has made it this far already? Naruto had only arrived 2 weeks prior. Do you know who could have started it? It traveled faster than they had to the opposite side of Hai no Kuni, reaching individuals who had nothing to do with it at all. It's just something that has spread. We were told by the client of the last few missions we've taken." Hiyashi shook his head negatively, referring to a man he would be speaking with about his betrayal. There are more important things to be concerned with, such as the pending threat of war with the Uchiha clan. He definitely meant a palm to the chest when he used the word, a word. With a friendly eye smile, Kakashi asked, "Is there any way we can get out of here before that actually starts? The Uchiha clan aren't exactly the biggest fans of mine, as you could probably imagine." He tapped his covered left eye for emphasis. "And I have civilians with me. Actually, I would like to, for lack of a better term, pick your brain for possible ways to fight against them." Hiyashi put a bow in Kakashi's manner, putting the man in his place. "The fact that we both possess Jujutsu is something that has inherently set us against one another, but our respective areas in the country kept us from ever engaging in any real conflict. Their current economy is putting a squeeze on them. The secret to their continuous existence and capacity to flourish at the top of the food chain was their search for alternative sources of income elsewhere. Their next path just so happened to pass directly through the Hyuga clan. In the meantime, the castle is visible from the bluff. Passing a small group of Uchiha clan members who were all manning a single, enormous piece of weaponry that they were rolling into a good position to take aim at, covered by enough foliage that they would only move it from behind when it came time to fire. Itachi trudged up the remainder of the hill through the rain. One of the clansmen in charge of the attack force's artillery division stated, "Give us the signal when you want us to fire and we'll be ready. It'll be a hell of a shot to make, but I think we can pull it." "Things are almost ready, Itachi." As he attempted to observe the Hyuga clan castle through their cover, Itachi responded, "We have no choice. The only way we keep the element of surprise is at a distance. A vast distance. Without the advantage of a surprise attack we would be facing perhaps the best defensive clan in Hai no Kuni." Though not always appreciated, the point was understood. Itachi was the clan's pragmatist, but the Uchiha clan liked to think they could beat any opponent. He was the one who could always realistically estimate their chances of winning a battle against any adversary and could rationally determine a course of action for them to follow. The majority of the time, it led to victory. At the age of 13, Itachi made his name in this way during the last significant battle against the Senju clan 4 years ago. He actually turned the tide of the battle in the middle of a massive Senju rout and managed to bring it to a standstill. As a highly competent shinobi and leader, he thus enjoyed their trust. He watched as the members of the clan loaded a giant bolt into a huge crossbow, which would be their distance weapon of choice for terrorizing the sacred grounds of the most powerful clan in the area. Prepare to set fire to the arrow at a moment's notice to shoot. The battle was almost ready to start.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.